Hi everyone, please subscribe to my channel. Blood Immortal. See playlist for other chapters and novels. Join now our Telegram channel now and enjoy exclusive early access. t.me/blood_immortal_official. I do not translate the novels. Credits goes to original translator and author of the novel. I only make it as an audiobook so it would be easier to just listen while doing other things. Credits goes to the author of the novel. I convert stories to audiobook for mental health, for multitasking purpose, for accessibility and time saving. Listening to audiobook is also beneficial for people who have disability. It improves our listening skills and improve our English comprehension, vocabulary and other things. So, thank you for listening. Thank you and thank you very much for your support. Chapter 101 Traveling Through Space. KK, why are you here? Xiao Chen was really worried about it just now. Kiki pointed at him angrily, and then pointed at itself. The expression was really cute and funny, like an angry child, babbling, constantly, as if blaming him for leaving it alone. After Katang jumped here, there was chaos under the altar, and the ominous spirit that rushed out from the ancient house seemed to want to rush up across the river of blood, which made all the cultivators extremely worried. However, fortunately, after they let out a few extremely angry roars, they did not catch up after all. Oh, it's so cute. The peerless stunner Lu Ruyan smiled charmingly, walked over and hugged Kiki. But KK didn't seem to appreciate it very much. She didn't like to stay in front of her soft chest, and jumped directly on top of her head. This made Lu Ruyan embarrassed and ashamed, but in the end it was Monk Yijun's bald head who helped her get out of trouble, and Kiki jumped up with a whoosh, and jumped on it a few times curiously. Monk Yijun was not angry, but with a smile on his face, it seemed that he was really a monk and Buddha who transcended the ordinary world. KK, don't mess around. Xiao Chen hugged it down. However, in the end, Kiki stared at the purple dragon king. Looking at the legendary king of dragons, he was not afraid at all, and boldly jumped onto its head. This surprised everyone again. What is the origin of this little beast, so bold? Roar. The purple dragon king was furious, and violently swung the dragon's head, about to throw Kiki off. For it, this is a serious provocation. As the future Dragon King, it is really unbearable to be ridden on the head by a small beast. KK. Xiao Chen was almost speechless. This little beast is too naughty. Why is he not afraid of anything? He forcibly hugged KK to prevent the purple Dragon King from going crazy. Facing the angry and roaring purple Dragon King, KK waved the little beast claw at it nonchalantly, as if saying, I won't play with you anymore. Everyone was speechless. And at this moment, the bloody sun moved to the center of the sky, streaks of bloody light shot down, and the altar also erupted with endless bloody lights, and finally everyone felt that there was blood everywhere in front of them, and there was no other scene. The space is distorted, and the time is also disordered. Everyone seems to have stepped into a space-time tunnel, and a strange feeling surges in their hearts. The bloody light became the only thing in front of everyone's eyes, and they didn't know how long it had been. Everyone felt as if they were flying through the clouds, as if they were traveling at a very high speed. Until the blood light disappeared, a silent void appeared in front of their eyes, as if they had returned to the ancient times. There was no scene in this special space. Except for the sound of their breathing, the dark void was deathly silent. It seemed as if hundreds of millions of years had passed, and it seemed that only a moment had passed, and everyone had a feeling of time and space disorder. Afterwards, countless beams of light, like shooting stars, continued to pass by the crowd. Xiao Chen and the others felt as if they were traveling through time and space. Traveling at such a high speed, time seems to have stopped, there is no feeling of passing, and everyone's heartbeat and breathing seem to be gone. I also know when the surrounding space began to distort, and waves of energy waves came, but they didn't hurt everyone's bodies, like soft water waves gently swaying. Boom! Amidst a loud noise, a dazzling light burst out suddenly, and everyone had to close their eyes. When everyone opened their eyes again, the breeze was blowing and the moonlight was soft. It was a quiet night, the sky was full of stars, and the moonlight was like water falling down. Everything was so peaceful and peaceful. As if it had been a lifetime away, the soaring blood, the fierce evil spirit, the endless evil spirits, had all disappeared. Everyone was on the top of a huge mountain. Not far away were pavilions, small bridges, flowing water, and the refreshing fragrance of flowers. Under this peaceful starry sky, everything was so beautiful, and everyone was convinced that they had escaped from the dead city. Finally escaped, someone shouted excitedly. Xiao Chen found that this place looked familiar, and KK, who was sitting on the head of the reincarnation king, was even a little uneasy, watching the surroundings vigilantly. It was rare for him to show such a look. A young cultivator happily rushed towards a clear spring not far away, but suddenly disappeared out of thin air as he passed by an ancient temple next to him. At the same time, a spiritual man who flew into the sky suddenly disappeared, and the sky was also terrifying. Don't walk around casually, don't get close to those ancient temples. Xiao Chen shouted. He finally remembered, this is the holy mountain, where many dragons and fierce beasts used to haunt. It is very close to Qiqi's hometown Tongtian Shenshu. When he was at the foot of the mountain, he almost encountered an accident. How come here, and it is already night now? Did it really take a space travel, which took most of the day? Everyone has doubts. The Purple Dragon King let out low growls, and also signaled everyone not to act rashly. It seemed to be a little jealous of this holy mountain. On the holy place, there are verdant trees, waterfalls and flowing springs, and many pavilions and palaces. It looks like a fairyland, but everyone is afraid. This place is really weird. This area is picturesque, but the bottom seems to be desolate. A cultivator standing on the cliff of the mountain said to himself, and he was looking down. As he said, there are many magnificent temples under the holy mountain, but the lower part is very desolate, with almost no vegetation. This huge holy mountain is dark brown, which looks a little weird. It can be clearly seen that the temples have gone through too many years, and some of them have collapsed. Where is this? What is going on? The cultivators were very disturbed. We traveled through space and came to an unknown place. The spirit man Lu Mu is the most proficient in the power of space, and he told everyone this conclusion with certainty. The mysterious woman who is proficient in the laws of time said, it took us several hours to get here. Now, it's understandable why it went from noon to night all of a sudden. Xiao Chen didn't hide anything, and told about his experience at the foot of the holy mountain last time. Now, their destinies are linked together, and only by working together can they survive. Not far away, a mysterious woman covered in colorful mist caressed the horns of the Purple Dragon King, trying to communicate with it. After a long time, she came back and said, the Purple Dragon King accidentally broke into an ancient temple at the foot of the mountain, and then inexplicably arrived at the altar of the dead city. Everyone was silent for a while. The Purple Dragon King entered the dead city from the foot of the mountain, but when they crossed back from the dead city, they came to the peak of the holy mountain. How can they reach the upper foot safely? Xiao Chen's experience, as well as the incident where the cultivator disappeared out of thin air just now, all indicate that it is full of difficulties and dangers to reach the foot of the mountain. Let's grope down the mountain. This place can't be more dangerous than the dead city. Someone made such a suggestion, and the others hesitated for a while, but finally decided to grope down the mountain. However, just after walking more than 100 meters away, there was a scream, and the person at the front disappeared out of thin air. And there is no ancient temple nearby, which is really scary. They are still on the top of the peak, they have just left a steep area, and they have not officially descended the mountain yet. Looking at the ancient palaces under the mountain, everyone felt a little dizzy and aware of the danger. Life and death are up to you, let's go. A cultivator has a lot of backbone, and even took the lead to move forward again. This time, the crowd moved forward for more than 50 meters, and the leading cultivator disappeared out of thin air, without having time to issue a warning. How could this happen? Everyone was a little frightened, and now no one wants to walk in the forefront. Let me lead the way. The mysterious woman in the colorful mist resolutely walked to the forefront, which has to be admired. No, I'll do it. At this time Xiao Chen stood out from the crowd, because he remembered what happened last time. Qiqi saved him twice at critical moments. He put Qiqi on the ground and said to it, little beast, stay away from me, save me at the critical moment. Yee-ya-ya, Qiqi was very dissatisfied with Xiao Chen calling it a little beast, and gently grabbed Xiao Chen's long hair and pulled it, then nodded, blinked her big eyes and backed away, and then unceremoniously jumped onto the back of the Purple Dragon King. Roar! The Purple Dragon King was extremely annoyed. This little thing offended it repeatedly. It really made the Dragon King angry, and wished he could tear it apart immediately. Don't be angry. The woman in the colorful mist comforted the Purple Dragon King, who was about to go crazy, and said, it's much smaller than you, let it go. The Dragon King should have the demeanor of a Dragon King. Obviously, the mysterious woman treated the young Purple Dragon King as a child and coaxed it. With a low growl, the Purple Dragon King turned his head and glared at Qiqi. But Qiqi no longer provoked it, sat quietly on its back, and stared at Xiao Chen nervously. After changing direction and walking down the mountain for tens of meters, Xiao Chen's figure suddenly disappeared, and at the same time, a divine light erupted from that area, and KK made a move. He unexpectedly pulled Xiao Chen back, who had disappeared. Everyone was dumbfounded, looking at this cute little animal with big eyes blinking in disbelief. Even the purple dragon king showed a strange look, turning his head to look at Kiki on his back. Hee hee, Kiki laughed like an innocent child. Xiao Chen, who walked through the gate of hell, seemed to have sensed something. He turned around and said, I just felt enveloped by endless evil energy, which is exactly the same as the atmosphere in the dead city. If we disappear on the holy mountain out of thin air, I'm afraid we will return to that dead city again, and it may be a more dangerous place. It can be seen that the silent holy mountain is also full of dangers, and one will die if one is not careful. Walking more than 200 meters down the mountain in an extremely thrilling manner, Xiao Chen almost disappeared out of thin air 3 times, but was pulled back by Kei Kusheng with his magical powers. However, something bad happened, because KK gestured, "Yi ya," as if telling Xiao Chen that it was getting more and more difficult. Everyone can't help but look worried. Walking down to the halfway up the mountain, the ancient temples will increase in pieces, and it is impossible to avoid it. Everyone has figured out the rules. The closer they are to the temple, the more dangerous it is, so how can they walk down the holy mountain? When Kiki rescued Xiao Chen for the 6th time, a strange look appeared in the eyes of the purple dragon king. The way it looked at Kiki was quite different, and then it also emitted a divine light, pulling back a cultivator who was walking in front. It turned out to be similar to KK's supernatural power, but it was far less powerful than KK's. Everyone looked at the purple dragon king in surprise, and couldn't help but praise that he was worthy of being the companion dragon king, and he learned KK's skills so quickly. It's just that when he heard everyone's praise, the Zilong king showed a rare look of shame and annoyance. It has to be said that the mysterious woman had a tacit understanding with it, roughly guessing why it was ashamed, and asked, is Kiki using the supernatural power of the dragon clan? Zilong Wang nodded angrily. Seeing this result, everyone seemed to be petrified, and Kiki used the magic power of the dragon clan. I guess that's the case. When it was the dead city, I saw royal families like Lion King Dragon and Tyrannosaurus Rex use such abilities, imprisoning everything, sweeping everything down, and killing everything. Not only the other cultivators looked at KK in amazement, but even Xiao Chen, who was walking in the front, stopped and looked back at the cute little snow-white beast. But at this moment, KK became a little confused, looking at everyone with wide eyes in bewilderment, with an innocent look. The monk Yijun recited the Buddha's name and said, I once saw a record about alien beasts in an ancient scripture. It seems that there are 2 or 3 alien beasts that are not weaker than the dragon race. They are born with unparalleled spirituality and can practice the supernatural powers of all races. I think Kiki must be that kind of race. Unfortunately, the ancient scriptures mainly focus on Buddhism. The record is very general and does not describe the shapes and names of several alien beasts in detail. Chapter 102 Promotion to the 7th Heaven. Swipe. Kiki's status has risen sharply, and everyone's eyes on it have become even hotter, and they really want to hold it in their arms and keep it for themselves. It's a pity that the little thing didn't understand their mentality, and looked at everyone with big eyes. Such attention seems to make it a little dissatisfied, while waving the little beast claws at the crowd, while, babbling, in dissatisfaction, it seems to be protesting. Everyone had different moods and started to move forward again, but they were getting closer and closer to the palace group below. Brush. With a flash of light and shadow, Xiao Chen almost disappeared, but was imprisoned by KK for life, but it seemed a little difficult. The mysterious woman, Lu Mu, and Yijun rushed to help, and finally pulled Xiao Chen back. No, we can't go on, otherwise none of us will be able to walk to the foot of the mountain alive. Xiao Chen stopped. He didn't want to die. Earlier it was because KK could save it, but now KK is getting more and more difficult. If it continues like this, it will definitely miss. Then what should we do? Can't we wait here to die? Everyone panicked and had no choice. Look, there seems to be an altar. The stunner Lu Ruyan exclaimed suddenly. The huge holy mountain has a very wide area. Behind a pile of chaotic rocks in the distance, there seems to be an altar, which is completely made of dark brown rocks. Everyone walked over cautiously, but they looked at each other in blank dismay. Here, there is actually an altar with a height of about 10 meters, exuding an infinitely long-lasting aura. Xiao Chen said, it's better to fight than to be trapped here. Hey, let's take a gamble. Dugu Sword Demon agreed. Even though he was conceited, there was no other way to escape now. Everyone walked up to the ancient altar together. There were bursts of tragic evil spirits on it. It seemed that it had been watered with blood. Although endless years had passed, it seemed that the dried blood could still be seen. It's just that after more than a dozen people walked up, the ancient altar didn't respond at all, it seemed to be just an ordinary high platform. Blood sacrifice. This high platform seems to need blood to function. Someone made such a suggestion because they saw the dried blood on the altar. Well, let's each spill some blood. Everyone cut their fingers and let the blood drip onto the altar. Although the blood was limited, they clearly felt the change of the altar. It turned red all over, emitting bursts of blood. At the same time, the stars in the sky shot down beams of light beams, gathering towards the ancient altar. The blood light soared into the sky, and the dazzling blood light appeared in this area. At the same time a strange picture flashed out, and everyone saw the dead city. Everyone was shocked, thinking that they would return to the dead city again, which made them feel terrified. Fortunately, that was just a picture, not where they were going. There is still fierce fighting in the dead city. The Buddha's body, the horn of the ancestral dragon, and the brass gossip are still bombarding the sacred monument, and the dragon clan is also attacking, and endless evil spirits are approaching the location of the sacred monument with surging evil spirits surging into the sky. What made everyone even more frightened was that there was a sea of blood floating in the sky above the dead city, and there was a mountain of bones in the center of the blood, and there was a gloomy old castle on the mountain of bones. This, everyone was stunned. Isn't this the engraving on the divine tablet? It actually appeared. When they were in the ancient city, they clearly saw the engraved pictures on the front of the sacred tablet, and those pictures can still emerge in their minds at this moment. At the top of the engraved image of the god steel is an endless sea of blood, with thousands of layers of turbulent waves and thousands of waves of blood. A mountain of white bones stands in the middle of the sea of blood. In the middle, many savage dragons are galloping in the sky, roaring and mourning, and many people and gods are also struggling. Below the wild dragon and those gods and men is a dead city, full of ghosts. The dark gate of hell is ajar, and the inside is lifeless. And under that dead city, there is still a peaceful and pure land, with palaces and palaces, sacred trees, and yao grass everywhere, but there are few outlines. It is close to the bottom of the sacred monument, and it is difficult to clearly observe a wider area. Now, the sea of blood and the mountain of bones have appeared, and the dead city has also appeared. Could it be said that there is really a piece of pure land under the dead city? Everyone is full of doubts. There are various indications that the engraved picture on the steel records a real world. A dazzling bloody light flashed, and the stars in the sky shot down beams of light, all of which were absorbed by the ancient altar, and then burst into a blazing light, making it difficult for everyone to open their eyes. But they knew that they were about to travel to unknown regions. There is no doubt that they are risking their lives. After all, the altar is not used for space travel, it seems to be used for offering sacrifices. If the deduction is correct, the situation of everyone will be extremely dangerous, because they are very likely to be sent to the Holy Ghost who enjoys the sacrifice. It's just that they have no choice but to give it a go. Another space travel, similar to the last time, beams of light flew across the endless void like meteors, as if there were countless stars shining in the process of advancing. They seemed to be walking under the bright starry sky. Time has become chaotic, making it difficult to know whether time is flying by or flowing slowly. It was not until the dazzling light burst out and they passed through this strange space that it all ended. The cold wind was howling, snowflakes were flying, and everyone saw a vast expanse of whiteness, and they were actually in the snow-capped mountains. This is the Great Snow Mountain on the west side of the Sea of Bone. The Holy Mountain in the east, the Bone Sea in the middle, and the Snowy Mountain in the west are 3 points connected in a straight line, which is a very special area on Long Island. Xiao Chen did not expect that there is a great connection between the three. Everyone was anxious and uneasy, wondering if they were out of danger this time. It was dawn, the east was already pale, the cold wind was howling in the snow-capped mountains, and the snowflakes were dancing wildly. This snow-white world was extraordinarily cold. There won't be an infinitely terrifying existence here, right? We won't be eaten as sacrifices. A cultivator's voice trembled. Facing the threat of death again and again in such a short period of time had already made his mind a little fragile, and he could no longer withstand any blows. After going through a series of dangers, there were no more than 16 people who escaped here, including King Qin Guang and King Samsara. If we count only pure people, there are no more than 13 people. When everyone was a little nervous, Kiki let out a cheer, stepped on the head of the purple dragon king and jumped onto the snow, rolling happily, like a happy little snowman. The young purple dragon king seemed very depressed, and growled at KK, who was much smaller than him, but did not attack. Time passed by quietly, the blizzard had stopped, and the morning glow in the east was shining with golden light. This is a morning full of hope. Everyone walked carefully on the snowy ground, climbed a snow peak and looked at the green mountains in the distance, where they did not encounter any danger. There is no restriction here, we are saved. A cultivator shouted happily. Illusionist Kai Luo was the first to soar into the sky and flew towards the distance at a very high speed. He was convinced that he had to escape after escape, otherwise he and Xiao Chen would have to live and die separately. Now is not the time to help each other. Ha ha, Dugu Sword Demon laughed loudly, his voice clanging like metal trembling. He looked at Monk Yijun and Xiao Chen and others, and flew away with the iron sword in hand. The woman in the colorful mist also drifted away with the purple dragon king, and then the surviving cultivators left one after another. Lu Ruyan didn't leave, and smiled sincerely, holding Yan Qingcheng's hand tightly with a jade hand to prevent her from escaping, which made Yan Qingcheng's teeth itch with hatred. Finally out of sleep, after Lu Mu said these words, he fell down in the snow. He was seriously injured, and at the same time, because of his exhaustion and his own weak constitution, he fell asleep after relaxing at this moment. One rebirth, one transformation. Monk Yijun seemed to have some insights, and sat in the snow facing the morning glow. As a martial artist, Xiao Chen's physique was far superior to that of ordinary people. Although he felt a little tired, he had no desire to rest at all. The four Sanshou of killing gods, rebelling against chaos, suppressing demons, and cracking, tempted him like an ancient curse. He rushed into the snow-capped mountains to stretch his body, and began to practice the four methods of killing in the heavenly map of the god steel. Under the rising sun and amidst the white snow, Xiao Chen jumped like a dragon, leaping on the top of the snow mountain, leaving behind afterimages, like divine light passing through. Amidst the rumbling noise, the peak of a snow mountain collapsed, and the momentum was extremely huge. In the distance, both Lu Ruyan and Yan Qingcheng's expressions changed, and the monk Yijun who was meditating was also moved by it. Xiao Chen stood on the snow-capped mountain, his tall and straight body was dyed with a layer of golden light by the morning glow, as if covered with a layer of divine armor. Just now, he really felt the horror of the four hits of Sanshou. He just hit the first, killing God, and completely exhausted his strength, but the power was huge, shattering the peak of the snow mountain. If he can perform 4G Sanshou unlimitedly, then it doesn't seem too far to be superior to his peers. After resting for enough time, Xiao Chen began to perform the second Sanshou, Nianluan, but still as before, the follow-up power could not keep up, and only a part of the power was exerted, and the power in his body was drained. In this way, it made him look forward to the four Sanshou of killing gods, rebelling against chaos, suppressing demons, and cracking. It's already so terrifying if he can't exert his full power. If he really masters it, how powerful will it be? After performing Sanshou and Niluan, although Xiao Chen had enough time to rest, he still felt that his qi and blood were not flowing smoothly, and his body seemed a little uncomfortable. Of course he knew what was going on, he had felt this way a long time ago, he always felt this way whenever he exerted too much power. It was precisely because of this that he deduced that the formula he practiced seemed to be incomplete, and there should be a follow-up. Breaking into the dead city this time and returning alive was really a great opportunity for Xiao Chen, and he actually found the follow-up part of the heaven-sent qi refining map. Xiao Chen stood quietly on the snow peak. The method of the heaven-given qi refining diagram is very special. You don't need to meditate to practice. The Tiantu imprinted in the depths of your mind emerged at this moment, and he began to operate the profound kung fu according to the engraved diagram. If it really blends like water and milk, it is indeed the follow-up part of the original qi refining diagram, completely continuing the original qi refining method. Xiao Chen feels extremely comfortable throughout the body, and the blood that was not smooth just now is completely smooth. This station lasted half a day, and the sun shone around him, setting off the surrounding white snow brilliantly, and streams of spiritual energy were forcibly gathered and poured into his body. In the end, Xiao Chen's feet were 3 inches off the ground, floating in the air, his body glowed with a faint luster, and every inch of his skin was like divine jade. At noon, Xiao Chen woke up from the mysterious martial realm, with a layer of crystal radiance flowing through his body. He actually stepped into the 7th heaven of the transformation realm very naturally and peacefully, all because his profound arts were further perfected, and he was promoted to a new realm very peacefully. Lu Mu had already woken up, and he kept scratching on the snow as if possessed by a demon. It was a very mysterious space spell, which was written down from the guardrail of the stone tablet, and it was considered a treasure for him. Neither Xiao Chen nor Yijun disturbed him, and let him fall into the cultivation realm of no self and nothing. It has been 2 days without any water or rice, and monk Yijun brought a few snow rabbits. He and Xiao Chen washed the rabbit meat with snow water melted with true essence, and then used zongong to roast the rabbit meat with blazing divine light. This can be regarded as a different kind of cultivation. The smell of meat finally awakened Lu Mu from the cultivation realm of selflessness, and his stomach betrayed his mind and gurgled. The stunning captive, Yan Qingcheng, was not abused, and she herself did not see outside, and they gathered together in the snow to enjoy game. Only Kiki looked at everyone pitifully, touched her round belly in pain, and then covered her eyes with a pair of small animal claws. After the catastrophe, several people were quite emotional. After all, they escaped from the dead city. Even in the cold ice and snow world, they felt that life was so vivid, and the real world full of vigor and vitality was so beautiful. Chapter 103 Harvest Dragon King. In the afternoon of that day, several people decided to leave this ice and snow world and return to the lush and vibrant mountain forest. At this time, Xiao Chen remembered the 3 dragon eggs buried here. The Lion King dragon egg had already been refined by him, and the Tyrannosaurus dragon egg, Stego dragon egg, and Thunder dragon egg were kept intact here. When Xiao Chen briefly mentioned it, not only Lu Ruyan was surprised and excited, but Lu Mu and Yijun Monk were also moved. They had heard of the fierce battle in the snow mountain because of dragon eggs before, but they did not expect Xiao Chen to actually get so many dragon eggs. When they walked into that area, several people stopped at the same time, because they felt waves of life, as if they were on the mountain where Xiao Chen said that the dragon eggs were buried. At the same time, they thought of a possibility. Quickly rushing up, Lu Mu and Monk Yijun shattered the thick ice and snow according to Xiao Chen's instructions, and an ice hole was dug out. After clearing away the ice and snow at the entrance of the cave, brilliant light overflowed immediately, and the 3 miraculous dragon eggs were as beautiful as jade. The cyan Tyrannosaurus egg is brilliant and crystal clear, as eye-catching as a cyan moon. The jasper-like eggshell of the Stegosaurus egg is full of intoxicating light, really like psychic emeralds. The Thunder Dragon egg is shrouded in purple brilliance and is incomparably magnificent, as if carved from a purple diamond. But at this time, the life fluctuation became more intense, and it actually came from the eggs of Tyrannosaurus and Stegosaurus. Xiao Chen and the others' conjectures were true, a baby dragon was about to emerge from its shell. The temperature is so low, it's really unbelievable that they can break out of the shell. Lu Mu sighed. Monk Yijun explained, it has nothing to do with the temperature. The dragon egg will absorb the essence of the world on its own. After accumulating enough spiritual energy, the little dragon will break out of its shell by itself. Xiao Chen did not expect this to happen. Click. The sound of the eggshell cracking came out, and a gap was opened in the Tyrannosaur egg, and a cyan light came out. Xiao Chen hurriedly called everyone out, and said to Lu Mu and Yijun outside the ice cave, I have a feeling that Tyrannosaurus egg may give birth to a little dragon king. I think the first person it sees after it breaks its shell will definitely leave an important impression on it. Which of you two wants to go in and get this opportunity? What this means is obvious, it is possible to subdue a dragon king, anyone will be tempted. Lu Ruyan next to her was really envious and jealous, but she knew that the dragon king was too precious, and this opportunity could not be her turn. Brother Xiao, go in by yourself. Lu Mu and Monk Yijun agreed. No, you've also seen that Kiki is no worse than the dragon king. Make a decision quickly, or you will miss the opportunity. Kiki's miraculousness is obvious to all, and what Xiao Chen said is the truth. Monk Yijun said, Brother Lu, go, you are a space spirit warrior, the only disadvantage is that your physique is not as good as that of a warrior. If you have a dragon king by your side, you will be invincible in the future, a true fighting king. No, I've heard it a long time ago. There is a saying in Buddhism that there are divine beasts protecting the Dharma. If you have a dragon king by your side, the supernatural powers of the Buddha will be achieved soon. The two declined each other. Xiao Chen smiled and said, Don't argue, there seem to be 2 waves of life, they are about the same strength and weakness, but one is about to break out. Lu Mu, go in first, and the other one will return to the truth. At this time, Lu Mu and the others also sensed that another wave of life fluctuations also became violent, and it seemed that they were about to break out of their shells. Lu Mu no longer refused, and strode into the ancient cave, but at this time the sound of the eggshell breaking accelerated. There was an exclamation from inside. Lu Mu witnessed the birth of the little Tyrannosaurus with his own eyes. Roar-a! The sound of the dragon's roar came out, and Lu Mu came out holding a cyan young dragon that was more than half a meter long. The little dragon seemed a little confused, but it didn't attack Lu Mu. It's the Dragon King, Monk Yijun and Lu Ruyan exclaimed at the same time. The companion Dragon King was born with tall horns, which is quite different from the general dragons. This young blue dragon doesn't look very much like a tyrannosaur, its head is almost the same as that of the ancestor dragon, a pair of cyan dragon horns are shining brightly, and its body looks like a Tyrannosaurus rex, shining bursts of blue light. As soon as it was born, it began to crazily absorb the essence of the world, and all the auras from all directions gathered. Lu Mu hurriedly surged the spiritual energy in his body to feed it, and let the young dragon king absorb it crazily. This is really a joyous and surprising scene. I'll call you the Azure Dragon King from now on, Lu Mu said happily. Before Yi Junhee could wait for Xiao Chen to say more, he had already entered the ice cave, waiting for the little stegosaurus to break out of its shell. There is no doubt that it is definitely a Dragon King, because its life fluctuation is not weaker than that of the Azure Dragon King. If all this is spread out, it will definitely be extremely surprising. Xiao Chen took a few dragon eggs and successfully carried out the Dragon King cultivation plan, as people rumored, but this is really unintentional. Click click, there was the sound of eggshells cracking in the ice cave, and then there was a dragon whistle, and another little Dragon King was born. Monk Yijun carried the young dragon out. It was also more than half a meter long, surrounded by green light, and the dragon head was the same as the ancestor dragon, with a pair of jasper-like dragon horns. The body of the dragon is similar to that of a stegosaurus, with many sharp bone spurs, so Monk Yijun had to be careful not to be stabbed by it when holding it. From then on, I will call you Jade Dragon King. The monk was very happy, and began to feed the little Dragon King with his own true energy, allowing it to absorb crazily. Xiao Chen, can you give me the remaining little dragon? Anyway, you all have powerful Dragon Kings yourself. Lu Ruyan could be said to be charming, showing infinite charm to Xiao Chen. If you can really hatch a dragon, I can give it to you. Xiao Chen replied. In fact, he knew that this seemed unlikely, because he didn't sense the life fluctuation of the Thunder Dragon egg. However, Lu Ruyan had already rushed into the ice cave happily, and only after waiting for a long time did she hear her exclaim, how could this happen? Xiao Chen walked in, and saw Lu Ruyan gently dragging the huge purple dragon egg with one hand. It seemed that he didn't waste much energy. How can it be so light? She seemed full of doubts. Xiao Chen took the Thunder Dragon egg over and frowned. This dragon egg was indeed too light, and he sensed that there were not many life essences inside, and there was no life fluctuation at all. Could it be that the life essence inside was taken away by two little Dragon Kings? Xiao Chen had such a guess. After all, ordinary dragons cannot be compared with the Dragon King. Since the dragon was born, it needs to absorb a lot of energy from the world. In front of the two Dragon Kings, this dragon egg is of course lost. Hearing this, Lu Ruyan immediately showed a dejected expression. She was extremely disappointed. At this time, outside the ice cave, the Azure Dragon King and the Jade Dragon King have absorbed enough aura, and now they can walk on their own. And Kiki also ran over from a distance, looking at the two Dragon Kings curiously. Qinglong King and Belong King seemed to be hostile to each other, facing each other, and a fierce battle might break out at any moment. Lu Mu and Yijun hurriedly separated them. The Dragon King and the Ancestor Dragon will fight to the death, and at the same time there will be fierce battles between the Dragon Kings. Now they must not be allowed to be hostile. If they fight, no matter who wins or loses, they will suffer heavy losses. Lu Mu and Yijun are well aware of the legend about the Ancestral Dragon and the Companion Dragon King. The little Dragon King will automatically leave the dragon's nest when he has the ability to protect himself shortly after his birth, and has been fighting and growing up in the dangerous environment ever since. Although the two little Dragon Kings have a good impression of them now, it is hard to say whether they will leave in the near future, so the two decided to establish a real and stable relationship with them, just like the mysterious woman and the Purple Dragon King. It's unbelievable, it's unimaginable to see two Dragon Kings born in one day. Lu Mu sighed. It's really surprising. Monk Yijun said the same. I found a few dragon eggs from the Holy Mountain. The dragons and fierce beasts that can appear in that area are all top powerhouses on Dragon Island. How can their descendants be ordinary dragons? Xiao Chen had already had this kind of premonition, knowing that if a baby dragon was born among the dragon eggs he looted, it is very likely that a Dragon King will be born. The two little Dragon Kings are already running like the wind, and they are indeed worthy of being legendary beasts. Although they are only half a meter long, they are still bigger than Kiki. Kiki jumped up and down on the two dragons, feeling very novel, as if she was extremely happy because she had two playmates. But the two proud Dragon Kings couldn't be happy. They were very annoyed that the little thing stepped on their dragon head, and they were even more annoyed that Kiki used them as mounts, but they found that they couldn't help the little snow-white beast, whose speed was much faster than them. Roar-a-ay! Roar-a-ay! The roar of the dragon shook the sky, almost causing an avalanche. Although the companion dragon king is still very young, he is extremely powerful. When they left the snow-capped mountain, they stood on the highest peak and looked towards the sea of Aa bones. The area was still shrouded in bloody light. It seemed that the war hadn't stopped yet. Why did it rain blood that night? Why did the dragon clan who lost their supernatural powers on Long Island regain their supernatural powers, and at the same time attack that extremely terrifying dead city? What exactly is the sacred monument suppressing? Several people were full of doubts. It was not easy to escape this time. Chapter 104 Mysterious 7 days later. Xiao Chen decided to go to the vicinity of the dead city to observe it, and he had to figure it out, otherwise he would feel uneasy. Lu Mu and Monk Yijun don't intend to explore the dead city in a short time. Now their priority is to train the two little dragon kings until the two companion dragon kings have enough self-protection strength and don't want to leave them. They now need to find a place to practice, and now Long Island is too complicated, only strength is the last word. After the catastrophe of the dead city and the previous massacre, hundreds of cultivators on the island died. Today, there are only more than 100 cultivators left on the entire Dragon Island, almost all of them are solo travelers. If they also participated in the Alliance duel and were forced to enter the dead city, there may not be many cultivators left on Dragon Island. Xiao Chen originally wanted to go to the vicinity of the dead city to observe it immediately, but he found that the area was full of evil spirits and glaring with blood, so he changed his mind. Now it is too dangerous there, so he decided not to take risks for the time being. Walking among the mountains and forests, the few people were surprised to find that there was no rain of blood in these areas at all. It seemed that only the rare scene of blood rain appeared in the sea of Aa bones and the dead forest. Several people lamented that that area was really a murderous place, but they happened to enter there that night, and they were really looking for their own death. There are countless places with beautiful scenery on Long Island, and soon Xiao Chen and the others found a spiritual mountain. Here, there are verdant trees, vines and vines. After the catastrophe of the dead city, seeing such a beautiful spiritual place, everyone felt pleasing to the eye and relaxed physically and mentally. There is a small clear lake in a bamboo forest. Xiao Chen is swimming in the lake at the moment, washing away the blood stains all over his body. It seems that his soul has also been baptized, and his heart is empty and peaceful. Unknowingly, he actually operated the profound art in the lake. The whole lake was rippling, and Xiao Chen was shrouded in mist. Afterwards, the lake calmed down again, and he seemed to have merged into the small lake, and the fish around him no longer feared him, and swam around him. Xiao Chen felt as if he had really merged into the heaven and earth and became a part of nature. Finally, he sank into the bottom of the lake and fell into a wonderful martial environment. He no longer needed to breathe. The endless spiritual energy merged into his body from his skin, and the turbid air was naturally discharged. I don't know how long it took before Xiao Chen opened his eyes, rose from the bottom of the lake, and surfaced. The golden glow came from the east, bathing him in the gorgeous morning glow. Lu Mu, who was taking a walk by the small lake, was extremely surprised, and asked, "Could it be that you've been in the lake all night?" "Well, it should be like this. I didn't expect that I have been sleeping since yesterday evening." Xiao Chen shook his wet long hair and walked towards the shore. His body surface shone with a crystal luster, as if a layer of jade had been smeared on it. "You seem to have undergone a strange change. I also feel that some changes have taken place." However, Xiao Chen couldn't clearly perceive what kind of changes had taken place, but at this moment he said, "Yijun is here." Sure enough, Yijun walked over from the bamboo forest not far away, confirming his feeling just now. Lu Mu was dumbfounded, and didn't realize until Yijun appeared in his field of vision. At their level of cultivation, walking was silent, and Xiao Chen actually sensed Yijun's arrival by relying on his spiritual sense. Although the distance is not too far, this kind of prophetic spiritual sense is really too miraculous. Our good prisoner is really hardworking. He actually prepares breakfast for us. There are roasted yellow leg of lamb, preserved deer, coconut milk. Xiao Chen came along one by one, and Lu Mu quickly rushed into the bamboo forest, and found that, as Xiao Chen said, Yan Qingcheng was preparing those breakfasts under the supervision of Lu Ruyan. Both Lu Mu and Monk Yijun were amazed by Xiao Chen's outstanding spiritual awareness. "How far can you perceive without eyes or ears?" Lu Mu asked. "Probably more than 100 meters. It's really scary, no one will be able to sneak attack you in the future." Monk Yijun said with emotion. This seems to be a phenomenon that only occurs when cultivators reach the state of knowing Tibet. The 5 realms of transformation, knowledge of Tibet, imperial space, nirvana, and longevity are the 5 realms of cultivators. Once they enter the realm of consciousness of Tibet, the cultivators will have some strange supernatural powers. Xiao Chen's ability to foresee without seeing or listening is already a kind of supernatural power. Xiao Chen has just broken into the seventh heaven of the realm of metamorphosis, and there is still some distance from the realm of consciousness, but there are already supernatural powers emerging, which is definitely a rare thing. Dinner is ready. The beauty Lu Ruyan greeted the three of them in the bamboo forest. Enjoying the sumptuous breakfast provided by the beauty, feeling the fragrance of flowers and birds singing not far away, and the clear spring and mountain stream, everything is so pleasant, and the tense emotions in the past few days have finally been completely relieved. In this spirit land where flowers are fragrant and birds are singing, and beautiful trees are verdant, Xiao Chen practiced with a relaxed mind, his true energy became more and more condensed, and the perfection of his exercises made him feel that he could absorb the spiritual energy of heaven and earth faster than before. It has to be said that Lu Ruyan is really conscientious, and she really wants to train Yan Qingcheng into a beautiful woman, and she works hard to guide her every day, making Yan Qingcheng grit her silver teeth secretly in shame. The three skeletons are practicing, Lu Mu and Monk Yijun are also practicing, and everyone is working hard to improve their cultivation. According to Lu Mu, 1 year of practice on Long Island is the best for 3 to 5 years, because if the strength is not good here, there is a possibility of death, and everyone who is forced has to find ways to make a breakthrough. Only Kiki was the most leisurely, and she went to provoke the two little dragon kings when she had nothing to do, but in the end, the area was frightened by birds and animals, and the roar of dragons shook the sky. Xiao Chen, what you are using is the real god-killing Sanshou. Yi Jun was exercising with Xiao Chen, and seeing him perform the god-killing Sanshou, he was very surprised after asking, and said, the legendary killing god Sanshou can cleanly kill the gods after reaching a certain level. It is an extremely terrifying killing style, but it seems that no one can practice it to the perfect level. When I really saw that Xiao Chen was able to exert a huge power with his current cultivation level, he felt a little startled. Xiao Chen had no secrets, and taught him this Sanshou, but it was difficult for Monk Yijun to use the Buddhist mentality to exert its power. It seemed that this was a killing style specially created for the divine tablet mentality. When he heard Xiao Chen's introduction that the three Sanshou of rebellion, suppressing demons, and cracking were not weaker than killing God, Monk Yijun was really speechless. In fact, Xiao Chen is currently only focusing on the practice of killing gods, because a Sanshou can evolve endless changes, and he has not mastered the essence of the first Sanshou yet. In fact, after a Monk Yijun entered the ancient city and experienced life and death trials, he gained a lot. An ancient scripture in the Buddhist scriptures was imprinted in his heart forever. After cultivating in this beautiful spiritual mountain for a few days, Xiao Chen and the others clearly felt that the evil spirit in the area in the center of the island seemed to have weakened, and this day was already the 7th day since the dead city appeared. Xiao Chen left here in a hurry, and went to observe near the Sea of Aa Bones. But Lu Mu and Yijun didn't go because of Qinglong King and Belong King, and neither did the three skeletons, and continued to practice here. Only Kiki happily followed Xiao Chen on the road. In terms of his current cultivation base, the distance of tens of miles is nothing at all, and he soon entered the dead forest, and then arrived at the outskirts of the Sea of Aa Bones. There are dozens of cultivators lurking here, all watching the dead city, watching everything there closely. Xiao Chen came at the right time, the Sea of Aa blood in the sky was slowly receding, and the brass gossip, divine halberd, and iron seal in the dead city turned into 3 beams of light and left the dead city, and the Buddha was embedded in the ancient city gate tower again. Afterwards, many wild dragons flew out of the dead city, their magical powers seemed to be weakening rapidly, and they all landed on the ground after leaving the dead city. In the end, the horn of the ancestral dragon and the claw of the ancestral dragon flew out of the ancient city and rushed towards the holy mountain. Everyone was astonished. It seemed that the supernatural powers of the barbarian dragons had really been lost, and they had only possessed 7 days of supernatural powers before being beaten back to their original forms. Whether it is the royal lion king dragon and tyrannosaurus dragon among the dragons, or the ordinary snake elephant dragon, they all rushed to the distance with brute force, and no dragon can fly. 7 days. Mysterious 7 days. Why did these things happen? The dead city in the Sea of Aa Bones also gradually faded away, and finally completely disappeared from the vast expanse of bones. Only an ancient sacred monument with a height of more than 100 meters stood there. Everything disappeared, as if nothing had happened. However, no matter in the dead forest or in the vast Sea of Aa Bones, there are traces of blood rain, which is the only evidence left. Until all the wild dragons went away, the forest was silent. After a long time, the cultivator walked towards the Sea of Aa Bones, wanting to see what happened. Most of the dozens of cultivators had never entered the dead city, and they were not in this terrifying land when the blood rain fell. Among them are Schroeder, the curse master, and Lan Yu, the spiritual master. These two had a relationship with Xiao Chen once, and Xiao Chen hardly knew anyone else. Xiao Chen also walked into the Sea of Aa Bones, where he found the Dugu sword demon and the mysterious woman in the colorful mist. Almost all the survivors who had entered the ancient city came, and they were most concerned about all this. Suddenly, Xiao Chen felt someone was spying on him. This was a sense of invisibility but foresight, and it was his latest supernatural power. 50 meters behind him, there was a pale young man looking at him. Although there was a distance, Xiao Chen felt that this person was very dangerous. He had a feeling that even Dugu sword demon could not be his opponent. Although he didn't look back, his spiritual sense had already clearly captured the appearance of that person. He was a young man in his 20s, with a medium build, not handsome, and his face was extremely pale, as if there was no blood flowing. For some reason, Xiao Chen felt a strange feeling in his heart, as if he had seen the other party somewhere before, but he couldn't remember it for a while. The extremely pale young man was obviously not only watching Xiao Chen, but also watching Dugu sword demon, Lan Yu, Schroeder and other masters, all of which were clearly captured by Xiao Chen. What does he want to do? Xiao Chen remained calm, still watching him with foresight. Suddenly, two divine lights shot out from Xiao Chen's eyes, and he felt a slight chill in his heart. He saw a red birthmark on the young man's left wrist, which surprisingly matched a certain memory in his mind. He once dug out 3 ice coffins in the snow-capped mountains, each with a pair of molted human skins. The left wrists of the 3 human skins all have such a red birthmark, which are exactly the same. Now, Xiao Chen finally understood why this young man looked familiar. If the young man's pale cheeks were wrinkled, and his hair turned into sparse white hair, it would be exactly the same as the appearance of those 3 human skins. The old ghost in the ice coffin. Xiao Chen secretly took a deep breath. How could this happen? The original conjecture turned out to be true, and there really was such a strange old ghost. In this way, this old ghost has been living on this dragon island, at least for hundreds of years. But why is he spying on me? Xiao Chen had such doubts. Being targeted by such an evil old ghost, anyone would feel very dangerous. God knows what this old ghost is up to. Now, looking at the old ghost's young but pale face, he really looks like a living corpse, indescribably eerie and frightening. In the end, the old ghost went far away, and then disappeared from this sea of Aa bones. This is a serious problem, and we must find ways to prevent it, and even get rid of it. Just when Xiao Chen was restless, he felt a familiar aura again, and the strong barbarian youth Kaio seemed to be looking around not far behind him. However, Xiao Chen was taken aback immediately, although the breath was very similar to Kaio, but the person was not. Chapter 105. The Aboriginal People of God Island. Kaio is 3 meters tall. He is a wild and strong young barbarian. He has the ears of a wolf and the long tail of a tiger. And the person behind him who was looking around was a little fat man, not tall, but chubby, giving people a very simple and honest feeling. Even looking around now seems a little silly and dumb. Too strange. Xiao Chen indeed sensed Kaio's breath on him, but why not his body? Suddenly, he shuddered tremblingly. Could it be that Kaio was already dead, and then revived his body? After all, when he experienced the catastrophe of the dead city, he encountered too many supernatural and terrifying things, and he instinctively thought of that. What's more, such strange facts as the old ghost of Zushan are also in front of him, so how can he not let him think wildly? The silly little fat man made a big circle in the Sea of Aa Bones, and then went across the Sea of Aa Bones, heading towards the southernmost point. Xiao Chen is not very familiar with the south of the island, and has never explored that area. However, he followed this time, and decided to see the origin of this little fat man with a Kaio aura. When following, Xiao Chen found that Dugu's sword demon and the mysterious woman in the colorful mist also followed, and did not shy away from him at all. When crossing the Sea of Aa Bones and entering the mountains and forests, Xiao Chen walked towards them and pointedly said, "I suspect that there are evil spirits returning from corpses, so I followed them." "Why did you follow them?" Dugu's sword demon sneered and said, "Hey, same. I can feel the aura of a certain barbarian in his body, but the body is not that person's. That's why I chased him down." The mysterious woman responded. Xiao Chen was finally convinced that his feeling was not wrong, and the matter was full of sinister ways. The silly little fat man is not as simple as his appearance. He seems to be very alert, constantly changing directions in the mountains and forests, as if afraid of being followed. This made KK, who was following Xiao Chen's side, keep blinking her big eyes, which seemed to be very interesting. After traveling south all the way for more than an hour, the little fat man plunged into an open mountain forest, turned left and right and disappeared. But Xiao Chen and the others were not worried, as they seemed to have reached their destination. But at this moment, KK suddenly jumped onto Xiao Chen's shoulder, stretched out a small animal claw and pulled his long hair, and then kept looking back with a pair of big eyes. Xiao Chen's heart skipped a beat, and he pretended to stop to observe. Not long after, the Snow Mountain old ghost appeared within the range he could sense, and he could clearly see him following him. This is not a good sign. Xiao Chen looked at the Dugu sword demon and the mysterious woman in front of him. They didn't seem to know the existence of this old ghost. Xiao Chen kept his composure and continued to follow. Not long after, he and Dugu sword demon found a small village in the old forest, surrounded by ancient trees, and it was hard to find it without going deep inside. There are only 70 or 80 households in the small village. You can hear the crowing of chickens and the barking of dogs. It is really full of rural atmosphere, which makes Xiao Chen feel like a lifetime away. On this wild dragon island, there is such a small mountain village full of life, which feels a little unreal. Ahem. There was a coughing sound, and an old woman appeared behind Xiao Chen and the others like a ghost, and sighed faintly. Young people, why are you following my grandson? Xiao Chen's heart sank. The divine power of foresight indeed made him discover the old woman first, but the speed of the other party was too fast. He clearly saw a smoky shadow approaching them from the deep forest. Holding the iron sword, Dugu sword demon flew back to the side, distanced himself from the old woman, and the mysterious woman in the colorful mist had long since disappeared. It seemed that her cultivation was really good, and she avoided the old woman one step ahead. We don't have any malicious intentions, we just want to investigate one thing clearly. Xiao Chen was very calm, looking at the old woman with gray hair and somewhat stooped body in front of him. Want to investigate our village? The old woman's words were a little cold. No. Xiao Chen decided to open the skylight to speak clearly. There was no need to hide it and make some excuses, and said, I felt the aura of an acquaintance on the little fat man, and found it strange, so I followed all the way down, trying to figure it out. I feel the aura of an acquaintance. Could it be that the so-called acquaintance is your friend? Although the old woman spoke calmly, Xiao Chen's prophetic spiritual sense sensed a hint of danger. No, speaking of it, that's an enemy of mine. Only one of me and that person can survive. Oh, the old woman nodded. At the same time, Xiao Chen felt that the danger disappeared. What about you? The old woman turned her head to look at Dugu sword demon. Although Dugu sword demon was extremely conceited, he didn't want to provoke such an incomprehensible and powerful enemy casually, and said, I am the same as him. He pointed at Xiao Chen with his finger. Intuition tells me that you are not lying, so it will be easier. I can tell you that the barbarian youth named Kao was killed by me, and I implanted the two ancient beast souls in his body into my grandson. Both Xiao Chen and Dugu sword demon were a little surprised. They had also heard that some barbarians had ancient beast souls sealed in their bodies, and they could indeed be forcibly extracted and reimplanted into other people's bodies. My grandson is also a descendant of the barbarian race. He has an ancient beast soul in his body. That Kao should never have done anything wrong. He wanted to devour my grandson's beast soul, but he was captured alive by my grandson. After he brought it back, he was treated like that by me. Xiao Chen and Dugu sword demon were speechless, and it was really unlucky for Kao to end up like this. Let's go, I'm a guest from afar, go to the village and have a cup of tea, I know you must have many things to ask me. Said the old woman and walked forward first. Excuse me, old lady, have you been living on Long Island? The old woman looked at Xiao Chen, with a smile on her face like an orange peel, and said, I knew you were going to ask this question. Our ancestors came from the longevity continent just like you, but they were trapped on this island. We are their descendants. Although he had guessed this possibility, Xiao Chen couldn't help being surprised. He seemed to see his own future, whether he would also be trapped on this island to live such a life. No, Long Island was unsealed not long ago, why didn't you leave? Xiao Chen thought of this question. How to leave? Living on this island for a long time, people's physique will change, as if they were cursed, and they can't leave this island at all. The old woman took a deep breath. Is there no way? Yes, if you can subdue the nine-headed companion dragon king, even if the island has been sealed, you can still leave the island safely. Is there such a thing? Dugu sword demon, who had been silent all this time, couldn't help asking. The blood of the nine-headed dragon king can lift the curse of our descendants. The old woman was in a trance, a little excited. While talking, they entered the village. Although there was the sound of cocks crowing and dogs barking, there were very few people, and they appeared to be lacking in vitality and deserted. That silly little fat man came out of a courtyard and said, "Grandma, they are. You kid is usually very clever, but today you are being followed and you don't even know it." "They followed me." The little fat man was a little annoyed, and then looked a little naive. However, Xiao Chen did not underestimate him. This little fat man may be the kind of person who eats pigs and tigers, otherwise it would be impossible to clean up Kaio. The old woman led Xiao Chen and the others into the courtyard, called them to sit down at a stone table, and asked the little fat man to prepare tea, and then slowly began to talk with Xiao Chen and the others. Dragon Island has been sealed off, and even the nearby sea area has become a taboo sea. No matter whether people or ships enter it, it will collapse. But it is said that there is a divine ship that can pass through the taboo sea. The old woman brought hope to Xiao Chen and the others. What kind of ship? The divine ship made of the bones of the ancestral dragon and the heavenly tree has been wandering in the forbidden sea for endless years. It can take the people on the island out of the forbidden sea. How to find this divine ship? Dugu Sword Demon asked. The old woman took a sip of tea and said unhurriedly, "Didn't I say that it takes a 9-headed dragon king, and they work together to summon the divine ship that wanders in the forbidden sea? Then don't we hope to leave here?" Dugu Sword Demon was very excited. The old woman poured cold water on her and said, "The premise is that you find the 9-headed dragon king first, and let them listen to you, and they are willing to summon the god ship for you." This is indeed an extremely difficult question. How many people worried about the purple dragon king at the beginning, but no one can subdue it. Of course, if Dugu Sword Demon knew how Xiao Chen and the others got the 2 dragon kings, they would definitely feel depressed and vomit blood. Is there no other way to replace it? Yes, you can also find the legendary little ancestral dragon. An ancestral dragon will have the effect of the 9-headed dragon king on top of it. The old woman said calmly. Chapter 106 Secret. Dugu Sword Demon was speechless for a while. And Kiki, who was looking around on Xiao Chen's shoulder, stared wide-eyed when she heard the word Zulong, and swung the little beast's claw vigorously, which meant that she was not convinced at all. Why is the village so deserted? Xiao Chen noticed that although there were 70 or 80 families, he only saw 3 or 5 people after entering the village. Although there are many houses, the population has been decreasing. Now the whole village has less than 30 people. The old woman sighed. At this time, an old man with white beard and white hair floated into the courtyard like a ghost. "This is an old spirit priest." "Fourth grandpa," the little fat man said naively. The old man responded, frowned and said, "It's not good, that evil ghost was born again, and I found his trace." "What evil spirit?" Dugu Sword Demon asked. "An ancient evil spirit, who has lived for endless years, is the only terrible ghost that has escaped from the dead city." The old man's words made Xiao Chen's heart feel cold. He thought of the old ghost who had transformed several times in the snow mountain, and seemed to follow here. Evil ghosts have existed for endless years. They escaped from the city of the dead, and they originated in ancient times. This news is really terrifying and makes people shudder. Back then, the village was not located here, but in a valley with a more beautiful scenery. They moved here only because dozens of sarcophagi were discovered during the excavation and construction of the foundation, and a tragedy happened. Less than 3 months later, an evil spirit appeared, and the nightmare of the village began. They were like livestock in captivity, and 1 or 2 of them would disappear from time to time. Everyone in the village knew that the evil spirit took their lives. The ancestors of the old woman also resisted and tried their best to kill the evil spirits, but they all ended in failure and brought even more terrifying revenge. For them, it was an unforgettable dark age. As the old woman spoke slowly, the expressions of Xiao Chen and Dugu Sword Demon became serious. That terrifying ominous spirit reappeared on Dragon Island, which would pose a serious threat to their lives. The old woman sighed, as if waking up from a nightmare. There seemed to be a few more wrinkles on the old cheeks. During those dark years, the ancestors of the old woman discovered several more ancient village ruins on Long Island, and there are some records left in those ruined ancient villages. Only then did they know that the evil spirit was an ancient undead, the only evil spirit that escaped from the dead city, and it was not something they could contend with. It is conceivable that people were trapped on Dragon Island at different times. And the final demise of these people is related to the evil spirits, so they all left some clues more or less. In ancient legends, some evil spirits that disturb the gods can snatch the vitality of the world, let their own ghost bodies continue to transform and return to the sun again. Such evil spirits are called devils. Some records left in those dilapidated and deserted ancient villages verified this legend, and it is obvious that the ominous spirit on the island is the devil. Fortunately, the evil ghost has not been raging for a long time, only 1 year. Once the time passes, he will find a place where there is no one and fall into a deep sleep. After hundreds of years, he will undergo a transformation, and then break out of the coffin again to absorb the yang energy. The ancestors of the old woman have experienced ghost robbery twice, and now it can be said that the population is withered. If they experience another ghost robbery, then the remaining 20 or 30 people will die, which is not enough for the devil's needs. It is obvious that they will be completely extinct. In this way, don't we die? Although Dugu Sword Demon asked like this, he didn't show the slightest fear. He was cold-hearted and determined, and he was a cruel and hard-hearted person worthy of the name. According to some records discovered later, we only have one chance now. The old woman took a sip of tea, moistened her parched lips, and said, the 3 months after he sheds his skin and reborn is his weak period. Only during this period can we fight him. Otherwise, after this period, he will be invincible and unable to contend with him. He is a veritable devil. The devil has gone through dozens of transformations, and it stands to reason that he has already reached the state of consummation, and has become an existence that makes even gods tremble. It's just that Dragon Island was sealed off by the God Tablet, and the devil couldn't break through the shackles at all, and was firmly suppressed in the demigod realm, and he himself didn't dare to take the risk of breaking through, otherwise the consequences would be dire. God-level power is not allowed to exist on Dragon Island. Out of the 5 realms of shedding mortals, knowing Tibet, controlling space, nirvana, and longevity, the realm of controlling space can be called the realm of demigods. The gap between the strength of the cultivators on the island and that of the devil is obvious. 3 months. I'm afraid it won't be that long. Xiao Chen told what he had seen and heard in the snow-capped mountains. The old woman and the old man were horrified, and both showed expressions of fear. The old woman said, he has already transformed. In this way, it may have been a month or 2, and we seem, not even a month. The old man also went to collect snow lotus near the snow mountain, only to find the breath left by the evil spirit, but he did not find the 3 ice coffins. Xiao Chen lowered his voice and asked, is there a birthmark on his left wrist? Legend, yes. Then it's not good. When I came here, it seemed, that guy has followed all the way here. Xiao Chen's news was like a comet crashing into a calm sea, causing thousands of waves in the hearts of several people present. Their expressions changed terribly, and several people felt chills on their backs, and quickly glanced away. There was a silence, deathly quiet. Only Kiki turned her big smart eyes and looked around nonchalantly. Xiao Chen lowered his voice very low, and said, he is so powerful, can't we use other forces to deal with him? A few days ago, the Dragon Clan showed extraordinary supernatural powers. This is a suggestion and an inquiry, why the Dragon Clan suddenly regained its former power in those few days, and he is still confused, especially ignorant of the mysterious Dead City. The Dead City, the Dead City. The old man sighed softly, and said, everything is because of the Dead City. Think about it, the devils escape from it. The old man didn't say too much, in fact they didn't understand, the information they got was passed down from their ancestors. Every few hundred years, after Dragon Island is temporarily unsealed, the Dragon Clan will briefly recover their magical powers on the Ghost Festival, and then attack the Dead City, trying to destroy the sacred monument. As for the ultimate secret, outsiders cannot know. As for the sacred artifacts in ancient legends such as the brass gossip, the black iron seal, and the golden divine halberd, they also don't know which area of Dragon Island is hidden. The mysterious Dragon Island hides many secrets, even if you dig hard, it is difficult to find out thoroughly. It seems that there is a big secret hidden here. The sacred tablet on Dragon Island should be the key clue. Dugu Sword Demon said to himself. The ghost trouble is so sudden, and the disaster has come again. The old woman's old face became more and more aging, and said, there is a strange power on the Dragon Island that suppresses the god-level power. Although it is mainly aimed at the dragon race, other races have also been greatly affected. From the generation of our ancestors to the present, no matter how talented people are, it is difficult for them to make progress when they reach the 3rd level of the Tibetan realm. It is obvious that the people on Dragon Island are not strong enough to fight against the devil. At this moment, bursts of piercing sounds came from the entrance of the village, and everyone clearly saw several bright sword chi rushing into the sky. At the same time, there were bursts of angry reprimands, and the loud sound of buildings collapsing, followed by screams, and then the deafening roar of dragons. The old woman, the old man, Xiao Chen, Dugu Sword Demon, and the little fat man quickly rushed out of the courtyard and rushed towards the entrance of the village. I saw several torn corpses at the entrance of the village gurgling with blood. Scattered among the collapsed houses, a woman was in the colorful mist, her body was trembling slightly, and then spurted out a mouthful of blood, obviously she had just been injured. The purple dragon king was accompanying her, and it also had scars on its body, with some scales and dragon blood on the ground. The old woman and the others looked sad, pieced together the corpses on the ground, and then looked at the woman and the purple dragon king in the colorful mist. Is this a dragon king? Yes. What just happened? It has to be said that the woman in the colorful mist is very mysterious. Xiao Chen has met her several times but has not been able to see her true face. Her body is always shrouded in mist, and she looks otherworldly and mysterious. Just now a very sinister person came here. Following the narration of the woman in the colorful mist, everyone quickly deduced that it was the evil spirit. Although he was still weak, he was still powerful and terrifying. The three people at the entrance of the village were torn apart by him almost instantly, and the woman who controlled the god of time was also seriously injured. If the blood of the injured purple dragon king hadn't accidentally pierced through the evil ghost at a critical moment, she would have been torn apart in a moment. The blood of the dragon king can actually restrain him. This is really gratifying good news. The old woman's wrinkled cheeks like orange peel trembled, and she could see that she was too excited, but she seemed a little horrified. Her wrinkled cheeks were almost convulsed, and she chuckled. This is really great news. This may be the only way we can defeat him. We only know that the blood of the nine-headed dragon king mixed together can lift our curse, but we didn't expect that it can also restrain evil spirits. Quack quack. Chapter 107 Devil. Ever since Dragon Island was sealed off, there has been no ancestor dragon or dragon king. The legend has only been revealed again after endless years have passed. The people who came to Dragon Island this time were not for the purpose of exploring the secrets, but for the ancestor dragon and the dragon king. Grandma, we don't have to be afraid this time. At least we have the ability to protect ourselves. I'll go find Xiao He. The little fat man said naively, and then ran towards the village like flying. A dragon's roar came from the dense forest behind the village, and not long after, the little fat man ran back leading a black young dragon more than 1 meter long. The scales on the little dragon's body were black and shiny, and the whole body was extremely black and shiny. The head of the ancestor dragon, and the body that looked like a leopard or a tiger, of course could not have fur, and were completely covered with dragon scales. There is no doubt that this is a dragon king. It is difficult to speculate what kind of dragon he is, because the dragon king is very different from the blood inheritors of the previous generation. The people in this village have already found a dragon king. It can be seen that they have been prepared for a long time. The Black Dragon King is a little smaller than the Purple Dragon King, and it is very likely to be the second largest Dragon King on Dragon Island. It has obvious advantages in competing for the Ancestor Dragon's position. When the Purple Dragon King and the Black Dragon King met their eyes, they immediately burst into low roars, and their mutual hostility was deep. This is nothing more than an unavoidable thing. The battle between the Dragon Kings is the cruelest, and the companion Dragon Kings will inevitably fight to the death when they grow up to a certain stage. The woman and the little fat man in the colorful mist hurriedly appease the two young Dragon Kings to avoid conflicts between them. At this moment, KK suddenly opened her big eyes, and the two Dragon Kings seemed to be alert, looking towards the dense forest outside the village like KK. Kiki rushed to Zalongwang's back with a whoosh, and quickly touched the wound twice with two small claws, stained with some blood of the Dragon King, and then turned into a white light and rushed towards the dense forest outside the village, causing Zalongwang to roar. The black mist in the dense forest surged violently, and a large area of AA trees collapsed instantly. Kiki turned into a white light and fled back. And a pale young man appeared from the dense forest. There were several blood holes in his chest and abdomen, which were splashed by the blood of the Purple Dragon King, and there was a small paw print on his left arm, which was obviously KK's masterpiece. There were two breathtaking lights in his eyes, staring at KK and the two companion Dragon Kings, and then disappeared from the spot without a sound. It's him. Xiao Chen and the woman in the colorful mist spoke at the same time. It's him, it's that evil spirit. The old woman said excitedly, I've seen the records about evil spirits left by our ancestors, including his simple drawings, that is, he killed our countless ancestors. The return of the evil spirit made several people feel very uneasy. Although they retreated again, it was hard to guarantee that they would not reappear. The arrogance of the Dragon King's blood surprised Xiao Chen and others, and they were able to restrain the terrible devil steadily. One can imagine how powerful the Zilong King and others are once they grow up. And Kiki's spirituality is also jaw-dropping. It actually discovered the evil spirits ahead of everyone and the two Dragon Kings. Kiki was rubbing her pair of little claws vigorously, annoyed to remove the blood stains from the snow-white and shiny fur, then ignored the Zilong King growling at it, playfully jumped onto the back of the Black Dragon King, and waved the little beast claws at the Zilong King. Before the two Dragon Kings got angry, Xiao Chen hurriedly caught it back. This little guy was too troublesome. Several people returned to the village. This time they changed to a different courtyard. The grape trellises in the courtyard were lush and emerald green, covered with crystal clear purple grapes, as translucent as a bunch of agates. Several people sat around the stone table under the grape arbor, and began to plot in detail. The devil must be removed, otherwise everyone would be in danger. Xiao Chen said. The devil was accidentally injured by the blood of the Dragon King. This is our chance to unite all the people on Dragon Island to deal with him. After the catastrophe of the Dead City, there were still more than 100 young cultivators on Long Island. That was because they did not enter the area near the Sea of Aa Bones that night. Uniting them all was still a strong force. It was rare for Dugu Sword Demon to let go of his conceited mentality. He felt a strong threat of death and agreed with Xiao Chen's suggestion very much. The mysterious woman surrounded by colorful mist nodded and said, "We can also unite with another group of masters." Xiao Chen and Dugu Sword Demon were puzzled, and looked at her with some doubts. The old woman next to her smiled and said, "Little girl is a real master, but your cultivation level seems to go up and down, making it hard to be sure." She narrowed her eyes and said, "The people who entered Dragon Island include more than 30 senior masters who are in the Tibetan realm besides you young masters." Dugu Sword Demon nodded and understood instantly. According to the original agreement of the various forces, the old masters cannot interfere in the affairs of the island, and the younger generation is completely left to compete for the Dragon King. The old people will respond in the vast sea. These people obviously sneaked in secretly and did not follow the rules. I'm in charge of contacting those people, and I know their movements. The old man next to him said. The old woman said, "The most important thing now is to find the 9-headed Dragon King. When the 9 kings gather together, they can summon the legendary god ship and leave this mysterious and terrifying island completely. Legend has it that the divine ship made of the bones of the ancestral dragon and the heavenly wood has been floating in the Sea of Aa Taboo for endless years, and only it can take the people on the island out of the Sea of Aa Taboo. This is the record found by the ancestors of the old woman in the ruins of a dilapidated ancient village. The bone of the ancestral dragon can be guessed to be the sacred bone of the dragon clan without much thought. And the sacred tree of Tongtian, as Xiao Chen expected, really refers to the sacred tree in Kiki's hometown that is as thick as a mountain. Several people discussed for a long time, but there was an urgent question in front of everyone: could they get out of this village safely? Evil spirits may wander around the village. Do you want to leave here with the 2 Dragon Kings to unite everyone? Dugu Sword Demon grabbed his iron sword vigorously, his knuckles turning blue. Everyone was silent for a while. In fact, they were already facing death threats. It seemed that the evil spirits would not let them go, and suffered heavy injuries because of them. This was unimaginable for a devil that had survived for endless years, and it was a great shame. At this moment, KK stared again with big eyes, and at the same time, the Purple Dragon King and the Black Dragon King also let out low growls. A gust of gloomy wind blew into the courtyard, and the area around the grape trellis was filled with gloom. This time, the Purple Dragon King was on guard. Before Kiki could jump on top of it, it rushed out first, and the Black Dragon King followed closely behind with a low growl. KK didn't feel any sense of urgency at all. She jumped onto the grape trellis and watched the 2 Dragon Kings roaring on the street from the elevated stand. The yin qi has dissipated, and the evil spirit retreated again. However, the few people in the courtyard still felt chills in their hearts, feeling that the village was filled with the breath of death. No, there will always be negligence in this way. Without the 2 Dragon Kings by our side, we can't fight against that devil at all. The little fat man who always looked stupid expressed his opinion at this moment. Obviously he was not as stupid as he appeared. Not good, not good. The old man frowned, and said, "Our clansmen who went out are coming back soon. If we encounter evil spirits, we will definitely not escape the claws of evil." Afterwards, they had no choice but to get up and walk towards the entrance of the village, preparing to meet the people who went out in the village. In the empty village, there was no sound of chickens crowing and dogs barking, and it was dead silent, like a dilapidated wasteland. "He's coming again," Xiao Chen shouted, because KK jumped onto his shoulder and was pulling his long hair with her little paws, staring at the street ahead with her big bright eyes. After being discovered, the evil spirit was not hiding. The black mist surged, and bursts of piercing yin qi surged in, and everyone felt the cold chill. The 2 Dragon Kings kept roaring. They were not afraid of this fierce aura. If they hadn't been stopped by a few people, they would have rushed over. The evil ghost was less than 100 meters away from everyone. Although the dark mist was churning, blocking the brilliance of the scorching sun, Xiao Chen was still able to see clearly. In the mist is the pale young man seen in the sea of AA bones. There is a striking birthmark on his left wrist, his eyes are a little hollow, and there is a sense of the vicissitudes of time. If you don't take a closer look, it is hard to imagine that this is a devil who has lived for endless years. The more you look closely, the more miserable and scary you feel. Give him to me. I'll let you all go. A ghostly voice came from the black mist. Although it was a young voice, it lacked any vitality, as if a broken window in an old house was rattling in the dark wind. Following the words, it seemed that a chill had broken into several people's bodies, making people feel chills down their backs. The dark wind surged, and the black mist blocking the devil's body dispersed a little, and one of his arms could be clearly seen stretched out, pointing at Xiao Chen. Are you talking about me? Xiao Chen felt bad. Why did this evil spirit stare at him? The yin wind blew again, and the pale cheek in the dark mist was completely exposed in front of everyone's eyes. He shook his head slowly, and slightly shifted his right arm. KK jumped off Xiao Chen's shoulder angrily, and rushed forward without fear, yelling in her mouth, as if she was scolding the evil spirit. At the same time she waved her little paw, and a brilliant light shrouded the front. The mist surged, and the devil disappeared without a sound. The strength shown by the prepared evil ghost was unfathomable. Kiki fiercely waved her little paws on the street. It seemed very angry, but it looked a little cute. Xiao Chen hurried over and hugged KK back. KK became more and more mysterious, and he didn't want the little beast to have any accidents. The people next to her were shocked. The devil seemed to be jealous of Kiki, but Kiki is not the Dragon King. Could it be that its blood or body can restrain evil spirits? I can't agree to your request. No one can hurt Kiki. Xiao Chen shouted loudly towards the empty street ahead, not only shouting to the evil spirits, but also expressing his attitude to the people around him. The evil ghost manifested itself on the street in the distance, and a ghostly voice came from the mist, saying, "What I want is the holy tree above its head. Give me that little tree, and I will never harm another human life from now on." Everyone's eyes focused on Kiki. The precious tree on top of Kiki was without any brilliance at the moment, just like an ordinary plant, inconspicuous at all. Everyone thought it was this naughty little beast running around and was accidentally covered on its head, but now they know the reason behind it, and even the devil is tempted. While Xiao Chen was surprised, his heart was full of doubts, but he didn't even think about it. He couldn't agree, and said, "Why should we give it to you? Why should we trust you? I can swear that after I get the holy tree, I will never kill anyone on the island again, or I will be destroyed." The voice of the evil spirit came from the black mist. The old man said in a low voice, "According to the records, the oath made by the evil spirit is binding. He made a promise in the past, but he didn't go back on it in the end. It was obvious that he was afraid of the evil spirit and wanted to compromise. Do you also believe in the devil's oath?" Xiao Chen turned around and asked coldly. This made the old man and the old woman feel hot at the same time. They were indeed afraid of evil spirits, and they were not sure that the record that evil spirits did not violate their oath was true. It's just that their family members who went out are about to return, and evil spirits are haunting nearby, which is a deadly threat to those people. After the dark fog dissipated, the devil turned his head to look in the direction of the sacred monument in the center of the island, and said, "I will not renege on my vow, or I will be punished." "You are a devil, how could I believe you? Everyone in the world says that you must never deal with devils." Xiao Chen hugged Kiki and retreated, but Kiki was not restless at all, struggling to rush over, as if she was not afraid of the evil spirits in the mist. "Oh, I'm not a devil, I'm a human being." Yu Gui Yin sighed. Xiao Chen snorted coldly and said, "This is not a very funny joke. I have gone through endless years of continuous transformation. What I look forward to is to be reborn. Now I am no longer a dead body. I am now a human body with flesh and blood. I really don't want to kill anymore." Chapter 108 The Sacred Tree of the Dragon Clan. Xiao Chen snorted coldly and said, "This is not a very funny joke. I have gone through endless years of continuous transformation. What I look forward to is to be reborn. Now that I am not a dead body, I am now a human body with flesh and blood. I really don't want to kill anymore. How do you explain the few people who were torn apart by you at the entrance of the village? They attacked me first," the woman surrounded by colorful mist can testify. The devil sighed. Xiao Chen was unmoved, and said, "It seems that you are forced to do nothing. You have killed so many people, how can the devil's mind change as soon as you say it? Besides, if you really restrain your fierceness, why force me to ask for Xiaoshu? The dark mist around the devil intensified, and the dark yin energy filled the air again. He said faintly, Dragon Island has suppressed my strength, making it impossible for me to break through the shackles, so I have no choice but to absorb yang energy every few hundred years. Although I am already a living body with flesh and blood, I still lack some vitality. If I can't get the nourishment of the holy tree, I have no choice but to absorb yang energy on a large scale again, but I really don't want to start killing again. It's really nonsense. Xiao Chen didn't really believe his words. Do I have to lie to you? The devil's pale face was exposed outside the black mist, and he looked very sincere. He sighed, even if you have the companion dragon king to guard you. Their blood can indeed restrain me, but can they really keep you safe? You should understand that if I want to kill you, I will always find a chance. Besides, what about the other people on the island? Who can protect them? If I want to kill, who can stop me? Are you threatening us? It's okay if you think so. The devil kept sighing, making people feel a creepy chill. He is a real devil, and all his words are not jokes. Harvesting lives is nothing but normal for him. Someone is coming. After saying these words, the devil disappeared from the street ahead without a sound, and then a scream sounded from the dense forest in front of the village. The old woman and the old man changed color on the spot, obviously they were people from the village. Stop you devil! The little fat man yelled loudly, leading the Black Dragon King towards the entrance of the village. Xiao Chen and others followed. A tragic black mist surged out from the woods, and the devil appeared again tens of meters in front of everyone. His pale face was very calm, as if nothing had happened, making people feel chills in their hearts. Give me the holy tree. I will return it to you after I use it up. I promise that I will never kill a living person again. I will try my best to be a good person. A sincere expression appeared on his bloodless cheeks. The devil was very serious and sincere, and there was no trace of affectation. The old woman and the old man were very angry. It was obvious that the clansman who had just screamed was dead, and their bodies were trembling slightly. Xiao Chen, Dugu Sword Demon and others felt that it was extremely absurd that a devil who used to kill people like hemp actually wanted to reform himself. What is the origin of the sacred tree you mentioned? Do you really need it so much? The little fat man asked. Oh, that's the sacred tree of the dragon clan. I really need it. On Dragon Island, it is the only one that can make me a living person. The devil always sighed when he spoke, looking very melancholy, not at all as heartless as he was when he shot, giving people an illusion, as if this is a lonely man. As soon as the words, Holy Tree of the Dragon Clan, were uttered, there were huge waves in the hearts of several people at the scene. Of course, the two young accompanying Dragon Kings were the most emotional. Angrily, Kiki broke free from Xiao Chen's arms and jumped to the ground, wearing a treasure tree hat and looking at the two Dragon Kings without fear. Although the little beast usually looks lively and cute, it exudes an invisible coercion at the moment. The little thing actually wants to fight a battle to defend its dignity, and wants to fight against the two Dragon Kings at the same time. Xiao Chen knew that KK had super strong defense power, and it would be difficult for him to get out if he was imprisoned, but he had never seen KK show aggressive power, and he didn't want it to fight with the two-headed Dragon King. After all, it was too young. However, when Xiao Chen reached out to pull Kiki, he was blocked by a light curtain. Kiki's body as white as jade shone with colorful lights, and the little guy seemed to have colorful holy flames beating outside his body, and it actually exuded an amazing fighting spirit. This has never happened before. Kiki has always been lively and mischievous, and aggressiveness has nothing to do with it, but at this moment it seems to have subverted its previous performance. The purple light of the purple Dragon King is shining, and the black light of the Black Dragon King is shining. They are still advancing. The sacred tree of the Dragon Clan was so alluring that several people present couldn't calm down, but they knew that the Dragon Kings could not fight each other. The woman and the little fat man in the colorful fog kept trying to dissuade the two Dragon Kings. But the two young Dragon Kings were unmoved. It was the sacred tree of the Dragon Clan, but now it was controlled by a little guy who didn't know what kind of beast it was. They felt that it had shamed the Dragon Clan. Yeah, at this moment, Kiki let out a childish cry, stretched out a small paw and pointed to the treasure tree on her finger, then pointed to the dark woods in front of her, and then rushed out first. The two Dragon Kings understood, roared and ran towards the evil spirit. KK swung the little beast claws and shot two colorful light curtains towards the evil spirit in the mist, and the horns on the heads of the two young Dragon Kings also burst out with dazzling light, turning into two straight beams of light and shooting at the evil spirit. They seemed to want to separate winners and losers in this way to see who is the real king. The black mist billowed violently, and the devil disappeared from the spot, but the three divine beasts seemed to be able to lock onto his aura, and rushed directly into the dense forest. Amid the Dragon King's roar and the towering ancient trees crumbling, there was dazzling light and scattered leaves. All of a sudden, like a cloud in the wind, a dark mist floated quickly, and the devil appeared beside Xiao Chen and the others without a sound. Kiki turned into a white light and appeared on Xiao Chen's shoulder, the two Dragon Kings also rushed back, and the devil disappeared without a sound. All this happened in an instant. You have seen that if I wanted to kill you just now, I had a good chance of killing you, but I didn't make a move. The devil sighed in the distance, and said, the Dragon King is too young. Although their blood can restrain me, they can't do anything to me when I am prepared. On the contrary, if I want to kill them, they will definitely be dangerous. It's just, I don't want to offend the Dragon Clan. This is indeed the thing, the devil is unfathomable. At this time, several people at the scene hesitated, and finally looked at Xiao Chen and KK together. They were the key to the incident, and everything depended on their decisions. Kiki stared angrily at Xiao Chen's shoulders, glaring at the devil in the mist. The little tree is a sacred tree that grew up with it, and it was also its ration. After being abandoned by its parents, this little tree was the only one that accompanied it all the time. Don't look like it usually doesn't care, but if someone really comes to snatch it, Kiki will say nothing. Little guy, I just borrowed it, and I will definitely return it to you in the future, and I will definitely repay you heavily. The devil showed a gentle look, and showed a pale smile at Kiki. This made several people at the scene a little surprised. The devil seemed to value Kiki more than the two Dragon Kings. Xiao Chen looked at the few people beside him, and after a brief observation, he knew what they were thinking. Even Dugu Sword Demon, who had the strongest fighting spirit, wanted to compromise. The devil is really unfathomable, and it is impossible to compete with it. Although it is not known whether what he said is true or not, it is still a hope. After understanding the thoughts of several people, Xiao Chen was silent for a while, and then hugged the furious KK tightly to prevent it from rushing over again. He said to the devil, since your goal is the holy tree, then you should come for me and have nothing to do with other people. Let's go to other places to talk. No matter whether it succeeds or not, please don't hurt others. This is the minimum line to show your sincerity. There was a tinge of blood on the devil's pale face, and he nodded slightly. My target is only the holy tree. If others don't block me or attack me, they will never harm anyone again. An impending terrifying storm had calmed down so much, Xiao Chen didn't turn his head and strode out of the village. The two Dragon Kings roared and chased after them. They didn't want the sacred tree to fall into the hands of others. The little fat man in the village chased after him in a hurry to appease the Black Dragon King, and it took a lot of effort to persuade him to retreat. In fact, although the Dragon King is young, he has psychics for a long time. He deeply knows that his power is not enough to take back the sacred tree of the Dragon Clan. I hope you are safe and sound. I really want to make friends with you. My name is Niu Ren. The naive little fat man whispered to Xiao Chen before retreating. Niu Ren's name made people laugh, but Xiao Chen couldn't laugh out loud. He nodded slightly and said, we will be friends next time we meet. My name is Xiao Chen. The woman surrounded by colorful mist also came over, but she didn't want to take the purple Dragon King away, but to appease him constantly, wanting him to stay by Xiao Chen's side to protect his safety. Good intentions. KK is no worse than the Dragon King. If KK can't restrain the evil spirits, even one more Dragon King will not help. Xiao Chen felt that the mysterious woman was really kind-hearted, so he told her about the other two Dragon Kings in inaudible words. The little snow-white beast KK was very intelligent. It knew exactly what had happened, and reluctantly took off the precious tree from its head, hugged it tightly in its arms for a long time, and then handed it to Xiao Chen very reluctantly, with a pitiful look on its face. Xiao Chen smiled, and said, this is the sacred tree that the little beast has been with since it was born. How can it be given to others? Besides, it is a devil. It cannot be believed or dealt with. Kiki didn't want to be called a little beast, so she grabbed a lock of his long hair and pulled it gently, then handed the treasure tree to Xiao Chen. Don't worry, there is no need for the little murderer to extract the sacred tree. He must have some scruples. Otherwise, how could a devil negotiate with us instead of taking it forcibly? Yeah, Kiki's big eyes suddenly brightened, her long eyelashes fluttering constantly, but in the end she lowered her head in frustration, and compared her height funny ly with that of the evil ghost, as if to say that it is really still young and can't beat the devil. Xiao Chen was suddenly amused by the emotion it showed, and said with a smile, I see you sleeping soundly all day, and those Dragon Kings are fighting every day. They try to improve their strength. You are no worse than them, you have to work hard. If you want to be able to fight against the devil, you can't be so lazy from now on. Annoyed, the snow-white little beast grabbed Xiao Chen's long hair and pulled it lightly, then unexpectedly nodded solemnly, put the treasure tree hat on his head, jumped from between Xiao Chen's arms to his shoulder, and began to meditate solemnly. That's right, Ida's meditation and breath adjustment. This made Xiao Chen open his mouth wide in surprise. Kiki actually sat cross-legged like a cultivator, closed a pair of bright big eyes, her long eyelashes stopped blinking, and a faint glow bloomed from her whole body, as if she had fallen into an ethereal realm. It is no longer possible to use words to describe Xiao Chen's mood at the moment. KK brought him too many surprises. How could a little beast behave like this? However, after walking a few miles in the dense forest, Xiao Chen was completely speechless again, because he heard a slight snoring sound, and the little beast actually sat cross-legged on his shoulder and fell asleep. Speechless. Completely speechless. Nature is hard to change. This little guy really made Xiao Chen at a loss for what to say. Chapter 109 Finding Strength. Speechless. Completely speechless. Nature is hard to change. This little guy really made Xiao Chen at a loss for what to say. Xiao Chen really wanted to grab one of its furry ears and wake it up, but in the end he held back. Who let this poor little beast be born not long ago? It is too young, it is normal to have such a behavior. The devil seemed to have completely disappeared and never appeared, but Xiao Chen knew that it must be nearby. The sun was setting, and the sunset glow had dyed half of the sky red. Xiao Chen was walking aimlessly in the mountains and forests. Hearing the roar of ferocious beasts in the distance, his heart gradually calmed down. He was surrounded by demons. Now he couldn't go back to Lu Mu and Monk Yijun. After Xiao Chen left, the old woman, little fat man, Dugu sword demon and others immediately took action. The devil's words should not be taken seriously, they still had to contact other experts, and at the same time mobilized everyone to find the companion Dragon King. If they could really gather the 9-headed Dragon King, then escaping from Dragon Island would not be a fantasy. On this night, many cultivators learned the news that moved them to the point of tears, that there was hope of escaping from Dragon Island, which really mobilized their enthusiasm. Of course, everyone was still very afraid of the appearance of the devil, which made them even more eager to escape here as soon as possible. It was a restless night, and it was difficult for anyone who got the news to fall asleep. Everyone was eager to find the companion Dragon King. Undoubtedly, the appearance of 9 young Dragon Kings will kick off the prelude. At midnight, the bonfire was beating. Xiao Chen sat in front of the flame and practiced quietly. And KK, the little snow-white beast, still maintains a cross-legged posture, sitting on Xiao Chen's shoulder with a treasure tree hat on her head, snoring sweetly, looking cute and funny. However, Xiao Chen realized that Kiki really didn't seem to be sleeping soundly, because he found that the sun was constantly fluctuating around it like a wave of water, and the small tree on its head had already glowed from the dim light. There seemed to be a wonderful connection between the two. Could it be that it really knows a peculiar cultivation method? Xiao Chen secretly guessed that he had also heard that rare races such as dragons had been inherited their own cultivation methods when they were born, so Kiki should belong to such a race. The wind was blowing, and the temperature in the forest dropped sharply, as if the winter wind was blowing. There was a piercing chill, the bonfire beat violently, and instantly turned a miserable green, eerie and scary. Silently, the evil spirit sat on the opposite side of the bonfire, only a fire away from Xiao Chen. When I saw this sacred tree 1,000 years ago, it was only a black jade leaf, but 1,000 years later, it had 3 sacred leaves. The devil's pale face was even paler against the dancing flames. If he was not a ghost, no one would believe it. Undoubtedly, his words aroused Xiao Chen's interest. At this moment, he has no fear at all, he will come sooner or later, and he can't avoid it. He asked, "Did you see it at the Tongtian divine tree?" Yes, the small tree was found on the section of the sacred tree. The small tree is an alternative regeneration of the broken wood. However, it is no longer the original sacred tree, because it has 6 more brilliance than the sacred tree of Tongtian. The devil's response confirmed Xiao Chen's original guess. Although it is said that the Tongtian Shenmu is the sacred tree of the Dragon Clan, it did not belong to the Dragon Clan earlier. The Shenmu was transplanted to the Dragon Island by the Dragon Clan. Yu Yugi said in a low voice. After saying these words, the devil revealed a deep thought, and said almost confused, "I actually know so much." His performance surprised Xiao Chen. At this time, KK also woke up and turned around. Seeing the devil sitting opposite, the little beast almost jumped up and rushed over. Xiao Chen hurriedly stopped it, and asked the devil tentatively, "You seem to have forgotten a lot of things." The devil recovered from the short-term confusion, nodded and shook his head, and said, about the endless years, my mind is blank. I only remember that I escaped from the dead city. Xiao Chen regretted that he could not know the secret of the dead city from him. The mist in the mountains and forests blended with the cold aura emanating from the devil, making this area dense. After being silent for a long time, the devil broke the dead silence and said, I think you are a smart person and know that I don't want to force my shot, but that doesn't mean I really don't dare to make a shot. I hope I can borrow the holy tree from you. I will definitely return it in a year at most, and there will be a good reward. What are you worried about? Xiao Chen never figured it out. For the long past, although my mind is blank, I still know who I can offend and who I can't. The devil said straightforwardly, I dare not make enemies with the dragon clan, so I don't want to kill the 2 little dragon kings. Similarly, I have more scruples about this little beast, and I don't want to offend its parents. Kiki's big eyes immediately shone with hope, as if she no longer hated the devil. Her long eyelashes fluttered and she listened carefully, as if she really wanted to know where her parents were. Xiao Chen understood Xiao Beast's mood, and said to the devil, do you know Kiki's origin? I don't know, but I'm sure it's no worse than the companion Dragon King. Its parents should be able to sit on an equal footing with the grown-up Dragon King, otherwise I wouldn't dare to take the idea of the sacred tree of the Dragon Clan. When I saw a black jade leaf spit out from the sacred tree 1,000 years ago, I also found a colorful jade shell egg, which was next to the little sacred tree. They were sealed together by a mysterious force. I think it is Kiki. After the devil said these words, he took a deep look at the little beast. Kiki blinked her eyes in a daze, while Xiao Chen was surprised that Kiki's body had already appeared in this world in the form of a jade shell egg 1,000 years ago. But he had already communicated with KK, and the little guy was indeed born not long ago. So, wouldn't that 7-colored jade shell egg have been conceived for 1,000 years? Kiki's body has always been covered with a veil of mystery. How long does it take for the dragons to break out of their shells? Xiao Chen wanted to compare Kiki with those dragons. It's hard to say. Generally speaking, it will take hundreds of years, but when the seal of Dragon Island is loosened, this routine will be completely broken, because at this time there will be a strange force overflowing, and all the dragon eggs on Dragon Island will burst in the shortest possible time and turn into baby dragons. After all, what they need is the nourishment of the majestic heaven and earth essence. If they are given endless spiritual energy supplements, they may break out of their shells within a few days. A few days compared to hundreds of years is a bit exaggerated. Thinking about it carefully, comparing hundreds of years to 1,000 years, Kiki is not really against the sky. Yeah, the little beast moaned softly, looking a little lonely, as if thinking about its parents again. Its pitiful appearance made people love and pity. Understanding all this, you should believe it. I really just want to borrow it. The devil looked at Xiao Chen firmly, and said, I have taboo against its parents, but I have no scruples about you. Killing you will not cause any trouble. Hearing this, the little beast was freed from its lost state, and fiercely waved its claws at the devil. Xiao Chen was not afraid, and said, want to kill me? Kiki will remember you, and it will avenge me in the future. Forgive you for not doing anything to it now, otherwise, with the supernatural power of its parents, it will definitely make you go to heaven and earth. With a sigh, the devil disappeared with a cloud of mist, and a ghostly voice came from the distant dense forest. Actually, it's hard to say whether it really has parents, or whether its parents are still in this world. I was just too cautious before. My patience is limited, and I won't give you too long to think about it. If you have to bleed, I will not be soft. The sacred mountain of the Dragon Clan is majestic and majestic, with overwhelming momentum, like a huge pillar supporting the heaven and earth. Xiao Chen brought KK to this area again, standing on the section of the tree that is more than 1,000 meters high, looking up at the majestic and misty holy mountain at the correct point. The words of the devil's departure last night made Xiao Chen understand that the other party will not turn his back in a short time, so he can ignore it for a few days. He came to this area, hoping to find a powerful force to suppress the devil. He hoped for the strong dragons, but he was disappointed to find that even those high-ranking dragons, such as Tyrannosaurus, Lion King Dragon, Stegosaurus, etc., had lost the great supernatural powers displayed in the Dead City. Undoubtedly, the devil also followed, although Xiao Chen could not find his whereabouts, but Xiao Chen could feel that he was nearby. Roar! There was the sound of a dragon whistling in the distance. Based on his intuition, it was a young dragon. Looking down at the shadow of the whirling forest in the distance, Xiao Chen saw the shadows of several cultivators, who seemed to be chasing a golden dragon. The word, Dragon King, immediately appeared in Xiao Chen's mind. The cultivators should have received the information that the 9 kings gathered to summon the god ship, and they have already launched an operation. It is too reckless to go to this area to capture the little dragon king. This area seems to be the holy land of the dragon clan. Not to mention the powerful Tyrannosaurus, Lion King Dragon, etc., there are also some powerful savage beasts that are not weaker than the dragon clan. If you encounter them, the consequences will be unimaginable. Chapter 110 The Different Little Dragon. Chapter 107. Sure enough, Xiao Chen's worries came true. A loud roar of the dragon flew across the sky, and a shining golden Lion King dragon quickly appeared in that area. A large area of AA trees fell down, and there were horrified screams. Several cultivators among them were torn apart by the mountain-like Lion King dragon almost instantly. The huge dragon's body was casted like brass, and a large mountain forest was flattened by an impact. The mountain was trembling violently. The other cultivators who escaped not far away were not able to escape the disaster of killing themselves in the end, and were directly trampled into a pulp. Xiao Chen was silent for a while. The price paid by the cultivators to leave Dragon Island was really too high, and most of them would die if they could finally find the 9-headed Dragon King. The evil spirit silently appeared on the section of Shenmue. Xiao Chen ignored him, and left directly from another direction, and then quietly waited for the night to fall. When the moonlight fell, the vicinity of the holy mountain was extremely peaceful, and the roaring savage dragons and beasts had all left. After passing through the jungle and coming to the foot of the imposing holy mountain, Xiao Chen once again felt the familiar terrifying aura. That's right, although it is vaguely hidden, it is very similar to the atmosphere in the Dead City. If you want to enter the Dead City again, this is not an entrance. But who would seek their own death? Do you want to lure me into a dangerous place? The devil stood in the forest not far away, watching Xiao Chen quietly. He has lived for endless years and cannot be deceived. Originally, Xiao Chen did not place any hope in sealing the devils into the Dead City again, but came here just to see if there was any terrifying sealing power on the holy mountain that could destroy the evil spirits. However, he stopped at the foot of the mountain, and the strange aura emanating from the holy mountain seemed to be stronger than last time. The black-red mountain seems to have been stained with blood, and the dilapidated palaces that have almost collapsed are engraved with the vicissitudes of time, giving people an infinitely long-lasting atmosphere, and at the same time making people palpitate. KK shook her head at Xiao Chen. The spiritual little beast had very keen intuition, and its body, which was as bright as white jade, was dotted with rays of light. It signaled Xiao Chen not to go forward. The hope was in vain. Xiao Chen knew that if he proceeded rashly this time, he might die here. He chose to retreat and return along the original road. When passing by the Tongtian Shenmue, the young dragon's roar caught Xiao Chen's attention. Under the watery moonlight, the entire mountain forest seemed to be covered with a layer of tulle, and one could clearly see young dragons fighting near the broken root of the sacred tree, and there were actually 3 of them. The roar is what they make. This immediately attracted Xiao Chen's attention. This place is near the sacred mountain of the Dragon Clan. Maybe one of them is the accompanying Dragon King. He sneaked in and approached there slowly, but he was surprised that 2 of the 3 baby dragons were young dragon kings, and they were fighting. Although the 3rd baby dragon was not a dragon king, it was extremely fierce and joined the battle group of the Dragon King. They were fighting fiercely. A young dragon king is shining red all over his body, beating violently like a blazing flame. The head of the ancestor dragon is so eye-catching, it is difficult to guess what kind of dragon it is from just looking at the dragon body. On the other side, the young Dragon King was gleaming all over his body, as if cast from gold. The head of the ancestral dragon was also particularly eye-catching, and his body was like a little lion. Of course, it could not have fur, it was completely golden dragon scales. Xiao Chen couldn't speculate about the red little Dragon King's origin, but for the golden little Dragon King, he immediately thought of the Lion King dragon, and it was probably born from another dragon egg in the valley he once visited. The 2 little Dragon Kings are nearly 1 meter long, but their power is enough to scare the experts of the 7th heaven. They are not restricted by the seal, and their divinity is more than animal. Sure enough, it is the holy land of the Dragon Clan. Xiao Chen sighed so much. All the powerful dragons are concentrated here, so the birth probability of the little Dragon King here is obviously higher than other places. 2 young Dragon Kings suddenly appeared. If Lu Mu and Monk Yijun's Qinglong King and Jade Dragon King were added, there would be at least 4 accompanying Dragon Kings in this holy land of the Dragon Clan. Will the legendary little ancestral dragon also appear in this area? Xiao Chen is still looking forward to this, but he also knows that it may be more difficult to see the little Zulong than to see the 9-headed companion Dragon King appear together. Wow! The fighting dragons were roaring. The battle was very intense. What surprised Xiao Chen was that the ordinary little dragon that was not the companion dragon king was obviously not strong enough. It had been wounded almost fatally, but it still rushed over again and again to join the battle between the two little dragon kings. It is very strange that the little dragon is so tenacious and stubborn, rushing upwards without fear of death. It looks very ordinary. Its black-brown dragon body is full of scars, its body is like a tiger and leopard, and its head has the shadow of an ancestor dragon, but it doesn't even have a single horn. Its strength and speed are far from those of the two little dragon kings, and it can't cast simple dragon spells. A lot of dragon scales on his body have fallen off, his flesh and blood are blurred, and there is no light coming out of his body, which is worse than that of ordinary dragons. It's just that this little dragon is too tenacious and stubborn, falling down in a pool of blood again and again and rushing forward again and again. Until the two little dragon kings were irritated, they seemed to be annoyed that this weak third party kept interfering with their real battle, and at the same time they launched a fatal attack on the dark brown little dragon. With a whine, the inconspicuous little dragon fell to the ground, unable to get up again. Xiao Chen was filled with emotion. The rise of the Dragon King was indeed a cruel process, and many of his kind would fall in the process of their transformation and advancement. And what the legendary ancestral dragon has to go through may be even more tragic. After all, what it has to face is the challenge of at least 9 companion dragon kings. The fighting and roaring of the young dragons had obviously been heard by the nearby savage dragons, but they did not interfere, allowing this cruel fight to continue, which seemed to be the survival rule of the dragon clan. Finally, the 2 young dragon kings separated and left with many scars. There was silence in the forest, only the weakened little dragon was screaming in pain. It hadn't died yet. Near the broken root of the sacred tree, the ground had already been stained red with dragon blood. Xiao Chen walked over and found that the little dragon seemed to be dying. Its injuries were too serious. There were several horrific wounds on its chest and abdomen, all of which had exposed its colorful internal organs. It was obvious that it would not survive. Yeah, KK tugged at Xiao Chen's clothes corners, her eyes full of pity. You want me to save it? KK nodded vigorously. I also want to save it, but its injury is too serious, it is impossible to save it. Xiao Chen shook his head helplessly. He knew that Xiaolong's state had caused Kiki to feel sympathy. This is Kiki's hometown, it is a little outcast, and Xiaolong's state at this time is very similar. He has already been sentenced to death, no one cares about him, and Waituo has been abandoned by this world. Yeah, Kiki still shook Xiao Chen's calf vigorously, then took off the treasure tree hat on her head, carefully placed the little holy tree's hat by the little dragon's mouth, and stuffed the black jade leaf on it into the little dragon's mouth. Baji, the seriously injured and dying little dragon started sucking. Its mind has long been blurred, and it seems to be completely instinctive. Rays of brilliance emanated from the little holy tree and flowed into the little dragon's body. The unconscious little dragon opened his eyes, first looked at KK and Xiao Chen in confusion, and then moved the seriously injured dragon's body vigilantly, but failed. The severe pain made him wail a few times. Kiki handed the little holy tree to its mouth again, but Xiaolong turned his head stubbornly. Yeah, Kiki pointed at its wound with her small paw angrily. Unexpectedly, the dying little dragon shook his head, rejected its kindness, and proudly stood up the dragon's head, but it was a pity that he fell powerlessly to the ground in the end. A very interesting little dragon, even when he is about to die, is so lonely. Kiki was speechless and kindly helped, but the other party was like this. Xiaoshu put away the treasure tree annoyed. But Xiao Chen felt a little emotional. He opened the close-fitting package, and took out the radiant snow lotus heart from it, which is Kiki's delicacy, but the belly of the little beast is bulging with the nectar of life, so he can't enjoy it now, and let him keep it all the time. Give it a little snow lotus heart. Kiki blinked her big eyes, then nodded her head in agreement. Xiao Chen forcibly opened the stubborn little dragon's mouth, and stuffed a small piece of snow lotus heart into it. This is a rare innate spiritual essence, and indeed it has unimaginable effects, but the dark brown little dragon spit it out, not wanting to be rescued at all. Xiao Chen was speechless, and crushed the piece of snow lotus heart that fell in the grass, and smeared it on its wound. However, Xiaolong violently rolled over, grinding off those snow lotus hearts, and a lot of blood spattered from the wound, making people speechless with his stubbornness. Finally, Xiao Chen forced a piece of snow lotus heart into its mouth and guided it into its body with vitality. He stood up and said to KK, "Let's go, we have tried our best." Although he had gone far away, he could still hear the lonely little dragon humming in pain. It was obvious that he would not be able to survive tonight with his level of damage. In the early morning, Xiao Chen woke up from the meditation, the soft morning glow fell on the forest, and the golden light trembled like pieces of gold. Kiki also rubbed her big eyes in a daze, and got up lazily from among the flowers and plants. Unable to find the strength to fight against the devil in the holy mountain of the dragon clan, Xiao Chen decided to move on to the next destination, which is the Tree People Valley outside the island. He will never forget the scene he saw that night, a green-haired young man with flesh and blood transformed out of an old tree man 20 meters tall. At that time, the powerful fluctuations of power revealed that it must be a super existence. Xiao Chen even once thought that the tree man could compete with the fierce dragon. Maybe, he can fight the devil. Dragon Island is really big, and together with the trees and wolves, all kinds of ferocious beasts are infested. They need to be carefully avoided. If they want to walk safely to the edge of the island, it will take at least a few days. 3 days later, Xiao Chen had already arrived at the outskirts of the island. When he passed a valley with beautiful scenery and filled with aura, he discovered a strange phenomenon. The golden light flowed out from a thatched hut in the valley like water waves, as if there was a golden spring there, and the peaceful breath made the birds and beasts in the valley quiet down. This is really amazing. It is hard to imagine what happened in the hut. The valley is full of verdant orchid trees, with pink, deep red, rose red, purple, lavender, white, orange and other flowers in the lush greenery. The fresh and tender green leaves set off the colorful camellias, and the buds are full of intoxicating fragrance. Coupled with the continuously surging golden mist, the entire valley of flowers is covered with a layer of mystery. It seems like a fairyland here, quiet and peaceful. Xiao Chen watched quietly not far away. KK wanted to run over several times, but was stopped by him. At this moment, a pale devil appeared soundlessly. Although there was no black mist surging out, there were faint bursts of gloomy aura. He stared at the hut and said, "This is the breath of God." Xiao Chen was extremely shocked by this sentence. How could it be possible for the breath of God? Could it be that there are gods on Long Island? Isn't this the power to suppress God? There is no way this series exists. It's indeed the breath of God. The devil's eyes narrowed, and 2 cold lights came out. Xiao Chen's heart was agitated. Could it be possible to end the devil's life in this way? If it is a god, it is enough to destroy the devil whose suppressed power cannot successfully break through to the god realm. The golden brilliance gradually faded away, and the peaceful atmosphere in the hut also tended to be peaceful and gradually dissipated. Well, I understand. This is the awakening of divinity. The devil's tense body relaxed, and the cold light in his eyes disappeared. It's Chinese New Year. I wish all brothers and sisters a happy New Year. Good luck in the year of the ox. If you have a monthly ticket and a recommendation ticket, please send a red envelope _. Chapter 111 The Immortal King. Chapter 108. What's going on? Xiao Chen asked, although he didn't want to deal with the devil, but he had to ask him some things. The blood of the gods is burning in the mortal body. This is the awakening of the divinity, which is also the inheritance of the gods in the secular population. The descendants of the gods are receiving part of the power of their ancestors. Xiao Chen was a little surprised by this news, but not as surprised as before. He asked, "Is he very powerful?" The devil remained calm and said very calmly, "No matter how powerful his ancestors are, it is impossible for him to reproduce the complete divine source power when he is passed down to his generation. It would be good to be able to reach the state of demigod before the age of 30. But if you want to make breakthroughs after that, you need to break the confinement of the divine power in your blood, otherwise your life's achievements will stop here." Xiao Chen suddenly realized, isn't this the demigod that Monk Yijun and Lu Mu told him? Some people are born demigods, descendants of gods who, as they grow older, draw upon the powers passed down to them by their ancestors. However, such families are very rare, and not every generation can possess such power, because with the passage of time and passing down from generation to generation, the blood of the god hidden in this family will become thinner and thinner. It is good that one person in a dozen generations is awakened occasionally due to external stimulation. Who is the person in the thatched hut? What state has he reached now? Could it be an acquaintance? Xiao Chen really wanted to go and observe. It's just the recovery of the power of the gods. To become a real demigod, you need to be at least 30 years old. Now his strength has not increased much. If I want to kill him, it is as easy as crushing a bedbug. Or, you can too. The devil spoke calmly, and he did not look at the person who was expected to become a demigod at all. This is the qualification of an absolutely powerful person. Xiao Chen strode forward, wanting to see what happened, but at this time the golden light completely subsided, and a shadow broke through the hut and flew towards Gao Tian. Rand. Xiao Chen was really surprised. It turned out to be Rand, a beautiful blonde man, and he had a lot of grievances with him. Xiao Chen. Lander was suspended in the sky, looking down. He was also full of surprise. He did not expect to meet Xiao Chen here. Without extra words, a piece of golden light poured down like water waves. Killing God. Xiao Chen yelled lightly. Rays of light rushed from his hands. Shadows of swords and swords soared into the sky, shattering those golden waves of light, and then went against Rand. Rand hurriedly soared into the sky, and then fled into the distance. There is a chance to compete with you again. Rand's words came from afar, and there was no resentment or anger. His state of mind seemed to be much calmer, as if he had forgotten the fiasco at the time. Waiting for you at any time. Xiao Chen responded. It was beyond his expectation to have such an opponent who might become a demigod. However, after thinking about it, it might not be surprising. Who is Yan Qingcheng? If Rand had no potential, how could she befriend him? He must have valued his possibility of becoming a demigod in the future. It's just, so what about the demigod? Xiao Chen firmly believes that as long as he works hard, so what if the other party inherits the blood of the god? One of the few sands he has practiced is called killing God. Is he still afraid of a demigod? As long as you practice to the highest level, there is nothing to be afraid of. One day later, Xiao Chen finally came to the Valley of the Tree People, but he was disappointed to find that the green-haired man had already left here, and the Tree People had long since disappeared. Of course, it was impossible to find Zhao Liner, who fled back to the outskirts of Dragon Island earlier. Are you looking for the old tree? Do you want him to deal with me? The devil is really a veritable man, and he appears in the Tree Valley silently. He is really not weak, but even if he transforms into a person, he is not my opponent after all. I can tell you clearly that if he finds the little sacred tree, he will definitely fight for it because he is a man. Ah, maybe you will tear your skin directly without any shots. Quote. Xiao Chen didn't respond, and walked aimlessly on the edge of Dragon Island. In fact, he was carefully searching for the whereabouts of those tree people. You don't really want to lure him, do you want us two to compete? The devil laughed and said, if that's the case, I will be very happy to watch him kill you and steal the holy tree, so that everything has nothing to do with me. I will find him to snatch it, which is considered revenge for you. Of course, I will save this little beast. Kiki was sleeping soundly, otherwise the little beast would definitely rush over. After searching around Long Island for a few days, there was nothing to gain. After that, Xiao Chen came to a dark swamp several times, and retreated several times. It was the swamp of death where the 3 skeletons including King Reincarnation lived earlier. For the undead king who was more than 10 meters tall and had a pair of huge rotten wings, Xiao Chen was really impressed. Although I didn't really see it clearly that day, the terrifying scene of the moon covered by the devil cloud it caused was enough to show its strength, and it was classified as a terrifying existence on the same level as the fierce dragon by Xiao Chen. Can I borrow his power? Xiao Chen really didn't have any confidence. If he didn't do it well, he would provoke a murderous demon, who might be as terrifying as a devil. The night was full of stars. Xiao Chen finally came to the death swamp again. There was no time to delay. The devil was obviously impatient, and if there was no way to get rid of it, his life might be in danger. In the past few days, Kiki, a little confused, looks like a good baby every day, and sleeps soundly and sweetly for most of the time. Xiao Chen knows that the little beast may really be practicing seriously. It is a strange dream to practice the method. The miasma of corpses was fluttering like black belts dancing. The gloomy swamp was very quiet, and no bird or beast dared to approach it. The devil looked at Xiao Chen with a half-smile, and followed behind him unhurriedly. In the past 2 days, he almost never left Xiao Chen, and he no longer followed secretly like before. After a little hesitation, Xiao Chen held his breath and strode into the swamp. A layer of light and mist emerged to protect him and the sleeping Kiki. Stepping on the muddy and dark land, passing through pieces of dry land, occasionally a few pale moonlight can be seen falling into the darkness. Finally entered the center of the swamp, Xiao Chen looked at the pile of bones in front of him, and his heart trembled. The evil spirit that penetrated the heart was so evil that it danced in the pile of bones like a black flame. He knew that the undead king more than 10 meters high was in the mud under the bone pile. Looking back at the devil, Xiao Chen started to retreat, because this evil ghost obviously knew that there was such a place, but at the moment he had no fear at all, which seemed to be enough to explain the problem. Hey, although the devil was trying to soften his laughter, it was still very gloomy in such a dead swamp in the dead of night. I think you'd better back off, otherwise, after the undead king comes out, the mighty corpse aura of death may hurt you. I haven't greeted this old friend for a long time, let's catch up with him today. Xiao Chen was completely speechless, the two ghosts turned out to be friends. He backed away without a word, feeling a little emotional in his heart. If he wanted to find a person who could restrain the devil on this dragon island, his hope would be completely in vain. Old friend, I'm here to see you. The devil waved his hand lightly, and the huge pile of bones floated up and moved to another area. The black mist surged violently from the ground, violently churning like blazing black fireworks. A scalp-numbing ghost whistle came from the ground, and then the moon was covered by a devil cloud, and the endless black mist rushed to the sky in an instant, completely blocking the moonlight that passed through the branches and leaves of the towering ancient trees. A gigantic monster appeared from the swamp, its body more than a dozen tall exuded a fierce evil spirit. Although it was a little far away and there was a black mist surging, Xiao Chen could still see the rotting corpse of the undead king and the pair of huge rotting wings. The yin energy was powerful, and the terrifying dark force was impacting in the death swamp, and the shrill howling sound made people feel chills down their spines. I can't see his head and face clearly, and it's hard to guess his emotions, but I can still really feel his coercion and strength. This undead king may really be able to defeat the devil, but, will they fight? Was he an angel in his lifetime? Xiao Chen guessed like this, otherwise how could there be a pair of wings, but the figure is too huge. Perhaps before Dragon Island was sealed, there was a fierce battle on the island. It is very likely that the undead king fell during that period. Two icy rays of light approached Xiao Chen like sharp swords, and the immortal king seemed to want to harm him. Relax, old brother, don't be as knowledgeable as a junior, I want to see you. The devil stood quietly in front of the undead king. The cold gaze shifted the direction, and the undead king and the devil walked further away. They seemed to be old acquaintances, dispelling the last hope in Xiao Chen's heart. However, only a quarter of an hour passed, and suddenly there was a violent crashing sound in the distant swamp. It was the sound of trees smashing, the endless dark mist was surging, and violent energy fluctuations were surging. The undead king fought the devil. Xiao Chen chose to run away at the first time, and his speed was extremely fast. It was really like wind and electricity, and he escaped from the death swamp completely in almost a moment. The pair of dead brothers actually went to war, there is no better news than this. Xiao Chen boarded a high ground, flew to the crown of a giant tree tens of meters high, and looked at the death swamp area. The endless mist was billowing, and it actually completely submerged the fighting land, and it was impossible to see the details of the battle at all, but the violent energy fluctuations could make people feel how fierce the battle was. As the thick fog of death continued to surge westward, the original battlefield was exposed. The area with a radius of more than 100 meters seemed to have been hit by a meteor. It is conceivable how powerful the undead king and the devil's combat power is, not counting the collapse of all tangible things on the ground, and sinking that area. There were figures swaying in the distance, and there were cultivators on the periphery of the island. The fierce battle shocked them, but those people retreated quickly after feeling the strong breath of death, and it was obvious that they were very careful. The fierce battle lasted for a quarter of an hour before it stopped. Xiao Chen was looking forward to the result of the devil's death. However, he guessed wrong again. When all the dark fog dissipated, a huge deep pit with a radius of more than 300 meters appeared on the scene, and the immortal king and the devil were sitting on the edge of the pit and talking about something. Although it's not real, you can still feel the atmosphere. They are not mortal enemies. Occasionally, you can hear eerie laughter, and the two evil spirits are talking happily. How is this going? Xiao Chen couldn't figure it out. The two fierce spirits were facing each other just now, but in the blink of an eye they were talking harmoniously again, the change was too fast. Haha, I will never forget my old brother on the day of liberation. We are the closest friends. The devil's laughter came from afar. Then the magic cloud surged, and the undead king returned to the deep underground of the swamp where he lived in seclusion. The dark wind was blowing, the green leaves were falling, and the devil appeared on the top of the huge canopy, not far from Xiao Chen, sitting on a branch, and said, "Have you thought about it clearly? I really have no patience. If you can make the little beast willingly lend me the holy tree for a year, there will be great rewards in the future." Xiao Chen remained silent. Can he get back the sacred tree after giving it to the devil? It seems that Kiki's growth cannot be separated from the sacred tree. Is it really necessary to compromise in order to survive? Except for the Dragon Clan and those prehistoric beasts on Dragon Island, no one can threaten me, but the Dragon Clan will never attack me. As you can see, the Immortal King has a great friendship with me. Every time I transform into a new life, I will come to compete with him. He is my strongest ally. Who is he? What is his history? Hearing this, the devil looked up at the bright moon in the sky, and sighed faintly, I don't even know who I am, so how can I know who he is? I only know that I escaped from the dead city, and he is a corpse that has decayed for endless years. At this point, the devil actually showed a sad look, as if it was really not a ghost, but just a melancholy young man. Happy New Year, the year of the ox is auspicious, brothers and sisters, monthly tickets and recommendation tickets are packaged and sent. Chapter 112 Encounter. Chapter 109 Encounter. The moonlight was like water, and there was silence above the canopy. The devil was in a daze. Looking at the bright moon, he seemed to have fallen into a long memory, and unknowingly, 2 lines of tears were left in his eyes. A melancholy, weeping devil who once killed people like hemp, but also has such a weak side, if it is spread, no one will believe it. Speaking of which, the devil is very handsome. Since he is the only evil spirit that escaped from the dead city, he must have something extraordinary. He must have had a glorious past, but everything about him has disappeared in the long river of time. He doesn't even know who he is. Looking at the bright moon in the sky, my heart hurts, as if I lost the most precious thing on such a similar night, endless years ago. There were crystal tears hanging on the devil's pale cheeks. It took him a long time to wipe away his tears, and Zonyan smiled and said, I'm actually crying, I'm becoming more and more human, maybe I'm really a human already. Then under the moonlight, on the canopy of the tree, he and Xiao Chen fell into silence again. After a long time, the devil said coldly, I will give you the last 7 days. After saying that, he disappeared from the canopy of the tree. The breeze blew gently, and Xiao Chen's long hair moved with the wind. On such a night, he also thought of a lot. Looking at the bright moon, he thought of his parents and relatives. It has been several months since he came to the world of longevity, but he was trapped on the prehistoric Dragon Island, struggling for survival most of the time. How are your parents? Losing his son, he must be heartbroken and shed tears. He really wants to return to the human world, so that the gray-haired parents can smile, and don't want them to cry. And the girl in her heart, if many years pass, will she still remember the boy she used to be? Goodbye to my beloved girl. After many years, I hope that the dream is still there, and I hope there is still a good memory buried in my heart forever. Xiao Chen was waving goodbye to the past, unknowingly there were tears in his eyes, his mood was very confused. When there is no one there, he doesn't have to hide it, let his true feelings be revealed, he is a person of flesh and blood, and he also has all kinds of emotions that the world should have. However, he can only be buried deeply in his heart on weekdays. In the eyes of the cultivators on Long Island, he is just a cold-hearted young man, but who would know that he also has such an emotional side? I really want to go back to the human world. Xiao Chen muttered to himself. A few teardrops finally fell down, but he shook his head violently in an instant, burying the sadness deeply again. I can't do it now, and now I can only live well. With a firm mind, he forced himself to shake off his sad worries, and began to practice quietly on the canopy of the tree until he fell into a deep sleep. In the early morning, Xiao Chen was awakened by the joyful singing of birds. Under the guidance of his profound art, the spirit of the surrounding heaven and earth gathered on the canopy of the tree. Let the aura here be full of spirit, and the glow of the sun is shining, even the gorgeous morning glow seems to be compared. It provoked a lot of birds to gather over, whirling and singing around him constantly. Xiao Chen began to exercise his muscles and bones, and the flapping birds scattered away in shock. Looking at Kiki, who was drooling and still sleeping soundly, he couldn't help laughing. The little beast was so cute sleeping, it was as peaceful as a baby, but sometimes it babbled in sleep. It is no longer necessary to stay in the fringe area of Long Island. Xiao Chen took KK back to the depths of the island. 2 days later, he unexpectedly met Lu Mu, Monk Yijun and others. Qinglong King and Belong King followed them, while Yan Qingcheng was sealed off, and was watched by the sexy and enchanting stunner Lu Ruyan. In addition, there are more than 20 people behind them, who seem to follow them as their leaders. Xiao Chen, Monk Yijun and Lu Mu exclaimed, and rushed over quickly, while the 2 young dragon kings also flashed divine light, rushed over like lightning, and stared at Kiki covetously around Xiao Chen. Are you okay? Lu Mu asked with concern. His handsome appearance and a little sickness gave this space spirit man a unique aura. I'm fine. What happened? Why are you here? Xiao Chen looked at him suspiciously. Monk Yijun whispered, we are looking for the companion dragon kings. Now the cultivators on the island know that you have held back the legendary devil, and now everyone is very grateful to you. The people who can be contacted on Dragon Island have already launched operations. They want to find a few dragon kings as soon as possible, and hope that they can summon the divine ship and leave the island as soon as possible. After a captivating and charming laugh, Lu Ruyan twisted her snake-like soft waist, and walked over with all kinds of charms. At the same time, she also escorted the peerless Yan Qingcheng over. She could be described as Yan Qingcheng. Yan Qingcheng gritted her silver teeth secretly, but there was nothing she could do. If her skills were not completely blocked, she really wanted to get rid of the beauty Lu Ruyan immediately. I've been doing my best these days, and I'm strictly training her every day on how to be a qualified woman and female slave. Lu Ruyan giggled and smiled, as if the spring water was rippling, charming and enchanting. With a few swishing sounds, the last 3 skeletons in the crowd rushed over. King Qin Guang, King Yama, and King Reincarnation were also among this group of people. They quickly came to Xiao Chen, greeted Xiao Chen with their unique skeleton language, and their jaws continued to click. From these people, Xiao Chen knew what had happened recently. Sure enough, everyone was mobilized. Lu Mu and Monk Yijun were found by the woman who was always surrounded by colorful mist, and persuaded them to take the young Dragon King leader to search for other Dragon Kings. Because only the Dragon King knows the Dragon King best, if Qinglong King and Jade Dragon King are dispatched, there will definitely be something to gain. Originally, according to many people's intentions, Lu Mu and Monk Yijun were to be separated, and each led a group of people to search, but under their strong resistance, everyone finally agreed to their request to be together forever, and also brought Lu Ruyan and Yan Qingcheng by their side. In fact, the Dragon King really knows the Dragon King best. They have already found the trace of another Dragon King in this area, and they are planning how to subdue it these 2 days. I also found 2 Dragon Kings near the sacred mountain of the Dragon Clan, but that area is too dangerous, there are many wild dragons and beasts, and ordinary people can't get close to it. Xiao Chen told Lu Mu and the others the news. After all, if you want to find the 9-headed Dragon King, you still have to go to that area after all. You mean the ferocious Red Dragon King and the mighty Golden Dragon King? The Red Dragon King has been subdued. Monk Yijun's words made Xiao Chen a little surprised. Someone went there and successfully subdued the Red Companion Dragon King. Yes, Monk Yijun explained. The mysterious woman led Dugu Sword Demon and other strong men to go deep into that area, and under the leadership of the Purple Dragon King, they found the Red Dragon King. After sacrificing nearly 20 people, the ferocious Red Dragon King was subdued by Dugu Sword Demon. How did he subdue it? In the beginning, many cultivators wanted to use force, but instead of rounding up the Red Dragon King, they injured a few people, and provoked fierce dragons such as Lion King Dragon, Stegosaurus Dragon, etc., leaving behind 7 or 8 dead bodies, and only a few escaped back. Monk Yijun briefly described. Xiao Chen couldn't help sighing after listening. The most powerful and terrifying thing in this world is the human heart. The second time to encircle the Red Dragon King, Dugu Sword Demon summoned more than a dozen people, but the mysterious woman did not participate. They first lured the Red Dragon King out of the Dragon Holy Land, and then sent people to surround it and severely injured him. More than a dozen people were also seriously injured by the backlash of the Red Dragon King. In the end, they never thought that the Dugu Sword Demon, who had not taken any action, would attack them at this time, and almost all of the dozen people were smashed to pieces with an iron sword. Using bitter tricks, sympathy, etc., Dugu Sword Demon, the Dragon Savior at the critical moment, narrowed the distance with the Red Dragon King. Then he resorted to all kinds of tricks and arranged a few more scenes, and finally came together with the Red Dragon King. Although the Little Dragon King has long been psychic and has not been affected by the seal of Dragon Island, he is still too young after all, and his wisdom cannot compare to the heart of a man who has been calculating for a long time. Roar! The roar of the dragon shook the sky in the distance, and then came the laughter of Dugu Sword Demon. From a distance, he was seen galloping towards him with a Red Dragon King. Why is he here? Xiao Chen asked puzzled. Lu Mu explained. It was contacted in advance. Not only is he coming, but the masters of the Black Dragon King and the Purple Dragon King are also coming, and they are going to jointly surround a companion Dragon King that appears in this area. Dugu Sword Demon, who was as aggressive as a sharp sword, rushed over quickly. The Red Dragon King Zhou beside him seemed to have red flames beating up and down, and his divine light shone. Relatively speaking, the Red Dragon King may be the most ferocious and aggressive among the current Dragon Kings. Seeing the slightly smaller Qinglong King and Jade Dragon King, their eyes immediately glowed fiercely, and they rushed towards them viciously. When Dragon Kings meet each other, there will usually be fierce battles, but the reason why Jade Dragon King and Qinglong King can live in peace is mainly due to the credit of Lu Mu and Yijun Monk, who constantly resolve the hostility between the two Dragon Kings. The Red Dragon King charged fiercely, and the Green Dragon King and the Jade Dragon King were not to be outdone, and they went to meet the slightly bigger and more ferocious Red Dragon King together. Lu Mu and Monk Yijun hurriedly stopped them. Now they can't let these Dragon Kings fight among themselves, otherwise it won't do any good. However, instead of stopping, Dugu Sword Demon laughed heartily. He was happy to see his Red Dragon King crushing the slightly smaller Green Dragon King and Jade Dragon King. He is aloof and arrogant. He not only wants to dominate the crowd, but also wants his Dragon King to beat other people's Dragon Kings. At this time, the little snow white beast KK, who was sleeping soundly on Xiao Chen's shoulder, was woken up. It rubbed its big dazed eyes like a child, looked at the people in front of it, and then looked at the three-headed Dragon King who was about to fight. Yeah, the big eyes of the little snow white beast suddenly brightened up. It had seen the Azure Dragon King and the Jade Dragon King before, so it naturally knew each other. And the ferocious Red Dragon King had also glimpsed it from afar that night. It rushed out with a swish, and landed on the head of the Red Dragon King in an instant, jumping and jumping on it, as if it was stepping hard. This accident made everyone at the scene stunned, but the Red Dragon King was furious. He was really going to explode. He was more ferocious than other Dragon Kings, and his temper was naturally much stronger than other Dragon Kings. How could he tolerate an unknown little beast breaking ground on the Dragon King's head? A pair of blood-red dragon horns clicked, and red lightning flashed, trying to smash Kiki into pieces, but Kiki's body was immediately surrounded by a soft light, and she was not hurt. Of course, this is not really hurting the Red Dragon King, it is a naked provocation. Thinking about it carefully, the Zilong King, Qinglong King, Belong King, and Black Dragon King have all been trampled by the little snow white beasts. And the Green Dragon King and Jade Dragon King are right next to them. They are a little depressed, but more of a gloat looking at all this. They are happy to see the Red Dragon King being trampled by a strange little beast. It's just that this time Kiki seemed to be going too far, stomping on, and the dragon's offensive spell cast by the Red Dragon King had no effect on it at all. Although it only knows one technique of confinement, its brilliant light can really block all attacks, making the furious Red Dragon King helpless. Even though it violently tossed and got rid of the naughty Kiki, Kiki was still able to rush up again with absolute speed in the end. Only Xiao Chen knew why Kiki went too far. He guessed that the little snow white beast was seeking justice for the dying little dragon who was seriously injured that night. KK, stop making trouble, come back. In the end, it was Xiao Chen who pulled KK back. The Dugu Sword Demon next to him was speechless, and he felt a little depressed because of his arrogance. The unruly and ferocious Red Dragon King seemed to be no match for a small snow white beast, which made him very uncomfortable. Everyone else is very happy. Many people dare not speak out against Dugu Sword Demon, because his skill is too high, and there are few people in his generation who can compete with him. Chapter 113 11-Headed Dragon King. Chapter 110. Just when everyone thought the incident had calmed down, the Red Dragon King suddenly exploded and rushed towards KK. Several blood-red energy blades emanated from its pair of horns, and even Xiao Chen became the target of attack. In fact, in the face of such a 1-meter-long young Dragon King, even Xiao Chen, who is at the 7th level, dare not be careless, because if the companion Dragon King can grow up safely, even the gods will tremble. Although he is still very young, he also has the power of the 6th to 8th level. But before Xiao Chen made a move, KK became angry. Although it stepped on the Red Dragon King deliberately before, it didn't really want to fight it. Now the little snow white beast waved its claws earnestly, and the colorful light curtain shrouded it, not only blocking the blood-red energy blade, but also covering the Red Dragon King with a swipe. Then it unceremoniously waved its claws again, and threw the Red Dragon King onto a towering ancient tree with a whoosh. This result not only made the Red Dragon King roar, but also made the Azure Dragon King and the Jade Dragon King look at each other for a while, and even made many cultivators dumbfounded. Of course, the few people who had experienced the catastrophe of the Dead City were not too surprised, because they had seen KK show supernatural powers. The Azure Dragon King and the Jade Dragon King roared, and rushed to Kiki, roaring continuously, as if they were asking for something. But KK proudly waved her little paws, jumped on the head of the Reincarnation King, and showed off, yee-yee-ya-ya-ya. It was a very speechless scene. A cute little beast was showing off in front of several mysterious Dragon Kings. Only Xiao Chen, Lu Mu, Yan Qingcheng, Dugu Zhanmo and others know why the two Dragon Kings surrounded Kiki and questioned. Last time, through the communication between the mysterious woman and the Purple Dragon King, everyone has learned that KK's supernatural power is the secret method of the Dragon Clan. How could the snow-white little beast, which knows even the secret arts of the dragon clan, surprise those who know the inside story? In the end, although the Red Dragon King was angry, he no longer took the initiative to attack Kiki. In the end, the little fat man Niu Ren and the mysterious woman arrived here one after another. The Purple Dragon King and the Black Dragon King were by their side. The arrival of the two Dragon Kings once again caused a fierce battle between the Dragon Kings. However, the Black Dragon King and the Purple Dragon King are quite restrained. They are more interested in Kiki than the other Dragon Kings. Anyone who knows the inside story knows that they want to compete for Kiki's sacred tree. But KK, the little snow-white beast, didn't care. Maybe things won't be as bad as we imagined. The woman surrounded by colorful clouds said to the crowd, I have communicated with the Purple Dragon King. According to the legend of the Dragon Clan, the ancestor dragon can break the seal of this island, but it seems to have to go out of Dragon Island. That means the ancestor dragon and the companion Dragon King are going to leave Dragon Island. It seems that we don't need to force them. As long as the method is appropriate, it may reduce a lot of casualties. Lu Mu, Monk Yijun, Dugu Sword Demon, and Niu Ren communicated with their Dragon King respectively, and got affirmative news, which gave everyone a glimmer of hope. It turned out that the future king of the Dragon Clan was going to leave here, and perhaps the existence of the ancestral dragon godship was prepared for them. Now that 5-headed Dragon Kings have gathered, it is not very far away from the 9-headed king, and when everyone really understands where the Dragon Kings of Lu Mu and Monk Yijun came from, they can't help feeling crazy. They guessed that Xiao Chen's Dragon King cultivation plan had come true. Although everyone is envious and jealous, there is nothing they can do. Today's Dragon Clan will attack and kill those who invade their territory fiercely at the slightest disturbance, completely blocking the way for others to steal dragon eggs. In a sense, it would be safer to round up the young Dragon King directly. After all, even though those savage dragons have lost their supernatural powers and their beast nature is greater than their god nature, they still have a godlike body after all, which is extremely cruel and terrifying. The crowd started on the road led by the 5-headed Dragon King, but Xiao Chen did not follow. Although many people hoped to use KK's power to capture the young Dragon King, Xiao Chen refused. After all, if these Dragon Kings survive in the end, they will eventually make the gods tremble. Let Kiki deal with them now, and wait for Kiki to set up a big enemy for Kiki. It's not that he doesn't understand the overall situation, because 5 Dragon Kings are involved, and it should be fine to deal with one Dragon King. Of course, everyone didn't really want to force him. Many people were afraid that the devil who followed Xiao Chen would be bad for everyone. The crowd gradually went away, but King Qin Guang, King Yama, and King Samsara stayed behind and followed Xiao Chen again. The devil appeared in the forest. He looked at the backs of everyone and said, I dare say they will fail this time. If it was another Dragon King, they might be able to catch it, but this time the Dragon King can't trap it even if it is a 5-headed Dragon King. Why, could it be that the legendary Zulong appeared? Xiao Chen looked at him in surprise. Although I have seen 11 Dragon Kings, I have never seen the legendary ancestor dragon. Maybe it hasn't been born yet. What, there are as many as 11 Dragon Kings? Xiao Chen was very surprised. Of course, there may be 1 or 2 more. However, the 9-headed Dragon King is enough to summon the divine ship you want. The devil's words affirmed the record of the divine ship discovered by the old woman. That's it, you haven't said why the 5-headed Dragon King can't trap the Dragon King that was discovered this time. Xiao Chen looked at him puzzled, and it was hard to imagine what kind of Dragon King could fight against the 5-headed companion Dragon King. It's not that this Dragon King is so powerful, but that the ability it currently possesses is beyond the reach of other Dragon Kings. Because it can fly now, it may take a long time for other Dragon Kings to have such supernatural powers. Why is it so special? Does the Dragon King also have a very obvious gap in strength? The devil shook his head with a smile, and said, no, this is its innate supernatural power, because it is a Pterosaur King. Pterosaur King? Xiao Chen was very surprised, because as far as he knew, pterosaurs were the only dragon family that had not been sealed, and there seemed to be only one pterosaur from outside on Dragon Island. He still clearly remembered the holy dragon of light that was defeated by the fallen angels and fell to Dragon Island. Could it be a female dragon that gave birth to dragon eggs on Dragon Island shortly after? Just a guess is very likely to be completely correct. This is so surprising, Xiao Chen sighed. At this time, there were bursts of dragon whistles and shouts from the cultivators in the distant mountains and forests. It was obvious that they had found the Pterosaur King. Actually, if you find one more Dragon King, you have already gathered the number of 9 Dragon Kings. The devil smiled lightly. What do you mean, is there anyone else who has conquered the Dragon King? Xiao Chen was very excited. Of course, the other three-headed dragon kings have already been subdued. It should be said that the three-headed dragon kings were the first to be subdued. Hearing this, Xiao Chen quickly thought that the group of people who first entered the depths of Dragon Island should be those old masters. You should have guessed it, Zhang is old and spicy. Although they are only 30 or so people, they are much stronger than you young people. If it is not because they are too greedy, they want to enter the sacred mountain of the dragon clan to find the legendary ancestor dragon, and they may conquer more companion dragon kings. The devil's news was very surprising. It turned out that the 9-headed dragon king had almost gathered together before he knew it. Wait, Ruo had already seen the hope of leaving Long Island. If you want to leave Long Island, it can be said that it is completely achievable. Now if you are close to success. The devil sneered, and said, have you thought it through now? If you haven't thought about it, you may regret it for the rest of your life. I don't want to kill you. You can stay with me on Long Island. KK, who had been pretending to be asleep, jumped up annoyed, and glared at the devil with her bright eyes, but the little beast knew itself, it didn't have offensive spells, and it couldn't deal with the devil yet, and its confinement was not as fast as the devil's superb speed. Xiao Chen gasped, if everyone left and he was left alone on Dragon Island, it would be too scary if that kind of thing happened. Hey, these three skeletons have a lot of background. The devil seemed to have noticed the three of King Qin Guang until this time, and said in surprise, it should have grown up in recent years. I have never seen it before. The growth rate is so fast. Why did they only wake up now after falling on Dragon Island for so many years? To be praised by him is enough to show the potential of the three kings. They can grow into kings. Xiao Chen said. He wanted to attract more comments from the devil so that he could understand the future potential of the three skeletons. King, hee, it's exaggerated. Even if undead and undead creatures grow to their final state, how many of them have been able to break into the realm of kings throughout the ages? Kings are equivalent to dragon kings. Don't look at the death of an undead king in the swamp of death. It is still far away from the real king. The devil's words immediately gave Xiao Chen a comprehensive understanding of the power of the king, but he was still a little puzzled, and asked, I have entered the dead city, and I have seen the skulls of several kings inside. If they are so powerful, how could they die in the dead city? Impossible, the devil said with certainty, the king can only be sealed, and cannot be killed. Well, it is a miracle that a dozen of you are able to escape from the dead city with such cultivation. A skull with a complete lotus imprint, isn't it a king? It's far away. The devil snorted coldly, and didn't say anything more. At this time, the sound of the dragon howling in the distant mountains and forests had gradually faded away. Xiao Chen wanted to see the result with his own eyes, looked back at the devil, and then strode towards the forest. This time the devil did not follow. The mountains and forests are full of broken branches and fallen leaves. It is obvious that this area has experienced a battle, and most of them have left. Only Lu Mu and Yi Jun's team are still searching nearby. It's a pterodactyl king. That little dragon is very alert. After fighting with a few dragon kings for a while, it rushed to the sky. Lu Mu sighed helplessly, and said, we were very fast when we found its trace earlier, because its speed in the forest was so fast. We only knew that it was a silver dragon king, but we didn't expect it to have wings. This result is really unexpected. After all, pterosaurs are not considered a strong dragon species in the entire dragon race, but a dragon king appeared in this race. This makes people have to believe that the legend is true. The production of dragon kings is not limited to races, even the weakest dragon species may produce ancestor dragons. There were faint low groans not far away. It seemed that some beast was injured. Xiao Chen turned his head and immediately showed a look of surprise. He actually saw the dark brown little dragon again, that stubborn and lonely little dragon. At this moment, it fell into a pool of blood, dyeing the flowers and plants under its body red, and it couldn't help moaning in agony. Kiki's big eyes widened immediately, and rushed over with a whoosh. Xiao Chen felt a little unbelievable. The last time I saw the little dragon fighting with the two dragon kings, he was seriously injured and dying, because its chest and abdomen were cut open, and the internal organs could be seen through the wound. No matter what, he never thought that it would survive. Going forward, he found that Xiaolong's last wound was almost completely healed, but this time he suffered a fatal wound. There was a huge blood hole in his neck, and his ribs were almost pierced. According to common sense, such an injury would undoubtedly kill him. It's really a strange little dragon. When we arrived here, we found that it was fighting the winged dragon king. Although it was defeated miserably in the end, this little dragon was really brave enough to dare to fight the king of the same clan. Lu Mu sighed beside him. Chapter 114 God's Power. Xiao Chen was in a daze for a while. This stubborn and aloof little dragon was not only courageous, it should be said that he was too competitive. He could guess that this unremarkable little dragon must have challenged the pterosaur king first. Because the little dragon had challenged the other two dragon kings before, and the pterosaur king would never take the initiative to challenge a weak dragon like it. What a strange little dragon. Xiao Chen squatted down to look at it quietly, and then tried to subdue it with a piece of snow lotus heart, but the little dragon turned his head stubbornly like last time. At this time, Monk Yijun and Lu Ruyan also came over. Seeing Xiaolong's serious injuries, everyone shook their heads, thinking that it was impossible for him to survive. This island is called Dragon Island. Since we came here, we have never eaten dragon meat. Why don't we roast it? Anyway, it won't survive. A cultivator next to him suggested. As a result, the Jade Dragon King and the Azure Dragon King roared loudly not far away. They can fight with each other, but they will never tolerate things like other clans coming to eat dragon meat. The cultivator was suddenly speechless in fright. Xiaolong's performance was really proud and fierce. He didn't look like a dying loser at all. Even though his eyes were dull, he still looked at the people who pointed at him with disdain, and even tried to make himself stand up. Only when he looked at KK and Xiao Chen, he showed a slightly different look. The crowd gradually dispersed, and Xiao Chen whispered the news from the devil to Monk Yijun and Lu Mu. What? There is only one Dragon King missing. We need to contact those elders immediately. And at this moment, Xiao Chen felt the breath of the devil nearby, and at the same time, Lu Mu's face suddenly changed. Don't worry, he won't hurt anyone for the time being. Xiao Chen explained. You mean that aura is the devil? Lu Mu asked in surprise. It caused Lu Ruyan and Yan Qingcheng to change color at the same time. Being peeped by the devil is not a happy thing. Yes, what's the matter? Xiao Chen asked puzzled. It turned out to be him, he is the devil. Lu Mu suddenly realized, and said, do you still remember what I told you? After entering the depths of Dragon Island, I always felt that someone was spying on us in the dark. It was such a breath. Xiao Chen remembered Lu Mu's words. When he decided to join forces, Lu Mu once said that someone was spying on him secretly, which made him feel uneasy from his soul. That was also one of the reasons why Lu Mu and Xiao Chen joined forces. Unexpectedly, that person turned out to be a devil, and this mystery was solved like this, which also shows that the devil has already transformed from the snow mountain. Everyone has already left, only Xiao Chen, KK and 3 skeletons are left in front of Xiaolong. Why are you so stubborn? I'm helping you, why don't you accept it? Last time you survived by chance, do you want to be brave this time? Xiaolong turned his head to the side vigorously, and it was strange that the blood from its wound had stopped automatically, and it was no longer gurgling like before. Xiao Chen was full of doubts. He felt that Xiaolong did not survive by luck. Perhaps there was something extraordinary about this little dragon that had not been noticed. The aggressive nature of this little dragon is in line with the character of the Dragon King, who wants to transform and sublimate in constant battles. It's just that the little dragon is really too weak, and it doesn't even have a single horn. It is far from the characteristics of the Dragon King, and it is even more different from the legendary ancestor dragon. If it was stronger, Xiao Chen would really suspect that it was a special Dragon King. After all, this little dragon seemed to be very spiritual, and it didn't have a beastly nature due to the seal on Dragon Island. Maybe in the future you will become the #1 dragon fighter under the Dragon King. Xiao Chen said softly to himself. The little dragon is like a warlike dragon. If it survives every battle without dying, it will definitely become stronger as it fights. The dragon race is a race full of competition. Maybe it can really transform from a common dragon into a strange dragon second only to the Dragon King. As for transforming into an ancestral dragon, it is probably unrealistic. After all, talent is also extremely important, and its innate conditions are not good. Xiaolong didn't respond to Xiao Chen's comments. He had already closed his eyes and ignored everything outside. KK walked around curiously, seeming to think that the little dragon was very interesting. It touched the little dragon's head strangely, then looked at its dragon claws, and babbled a few times for some reason. In the end, Xiao Chen also left, but he turned back after walking for a few miles. Such a wounded little dragon fell alone among the grass, and it was likely to be eaten by other wild animals. After all, this is not the holy mountain of the dragon clan. Without the protection of the fierce dragon's territory, other beasts would probably rush over to enjoy the delicious food without any scruples. However, when he returned, he found that although there were several wild beasts haunting the vicinity, when he got close to the dark brown dragon, he fled away as if frightened. This is a strange and abnormal phenomenon. Xiao Chen didn't know what happened in the end, but knowing that the strange little dragon was fine, he retreated with confidence. Only 2 days before the 7-day agreement, Xiao Chen walked aimlessly in the depths of Dragon Island alone. Now he no longer hopes to find the power to suppress the devil. It seems that there is really nothing on Dragon Island that can restrain evil spirits. But when he gave up hope, something special happened. There is a crumbling mountain range in the depths of Long Island. There is no grass growing there, but endless broken stones. It seems that this place has experienced a catastrophe. The entire Rocky Mountain seems to be shattered by a huge force. Although the mountain range has collapsed, people can still feel its majesty and magnificence, and the remnants in front of it can also make people feel its majestic power. Many parts of the stone mountains have been completely crumbled and razed to the ground, but there are still many areas where there are still standing stone peaks, but those stone mountains are full of huge cracks, as if they will collapse at any time, giving people an infinitely precipitous and beautiful look. It was in this special area that Xiao Chen found a lot of corpses. Obviously they were all left over from endless years ago. Their bones were almost decayed, and the bones were so fragile that they would shatter if stepped on lightly. There are many such bones among the broken stone mountains, making it difficult to understand what happened here. And Xiao Chen happened to walk into this area, not too far into it, and saw a few carrion corpses among the chaotic rocks. It was obvious that he hadn't died for a long time. From their gray hair, it can be seen that they are all in their 50s or 60s. There is no doubt that this should be the group of old masters who sneaked into Long Island secretly. How could they die here? Xiao Chen couldn't help but secretly became vigilant. After some careful observation, he found that these people seemed to have escaped from the front, and they seemed to be exhausted in the end, and they fell here and never stood up again. After some observation and speculation, there seems to be an inexplicable danger ahead, and it doesn't seem to be very close to here. Xiao Chen stepped forward. Kiki also woke up, looked at Shishin curiously, and 3 skeletons followed closely behind them. After walking 2 miles forward, they found a few more rotting corpses. It seemed that they were the same group, but these people died earlier and did not escape as far as the previous ones. Kiki didn't seem to be aware of the danger ahead, and ran and jumped excitedly among the Rocky Mountains, as if there was a treasure in front of her that attracted her. How could this happen? There seems to be danger ahead, otherwise these old masters would not be able to die, but how could KK, a little beast full of spirituality, react like this? Xiao Chen was puzzled. Are you trying to kill yourself? The devil appeared behind Xiao Chen and the others. What kind of place is this place? Xiao Chen turned around and asked. It's a place you can't set foot in. The devil's eyes were a little empty, and he said, Dragon Island is a prehistoric island. There are many places that even I dare not approach easily. I advise you to leave here as soon as possible. However, if you want to force your way, I will not stop you. If something happens to you, I can get what you need in a fair and honest manner. Kiki ignored the devil directly and ran forward first. Xiao Chen ignored him and continued to move forward with Kiki. After advancing for 4 or 5 miles between the broken stone veins, Xiao Chen and the others finally felt an abnormality. A sacred aura was turbulent in this area like water waves, and there was a trembling power here. God's power. This idea emerged in Xiao Chen's mind. This is definitely not comparable to ordinary power, but how can divine power be allowed to exist on Dragon Island? It should be sealed. Dots of golden light emanated from the Rocky Mountains in front of them, and the fluctuation of divine power came from there. It was obvious that they were close to their target. Kiki cheered, and rushed forward like a joy, but Xiao Chen was worried about it, and followed closely, and the 3 skeletons turned into 3 white lights and followed. Finally rushed into the crumbling Rocky Mountain. The dazzling golden light caught Xiao Chen's eyes, and at the same time, it made people feel that the divine power here was even greater, as if there was a bright sun in front of him. The little snow-white beast finally stopped, jumped onto a huge rock and looked forward. And Xiao Chen finally saw what it was. A golden divine halberd seemed to be completely condensed by the dazzling golden light. It was so sacred and extraordinary that it was inserted quietly among the rocks, and the golden divine power emitted was surging like sea waves. Chapter 115 Ancient Sacred Artifact. Chapter 112 Ancient Sacred Artifact. The golden halberd shaft is shrouded in divine light, exuding a sense of oppression like a mountain. At the same time, it is also engraved with the vicissitudes of the years, giving people an unrivaled heaviness and infinite long-lasting atmosphere. And the sharp huge halberd blade shone with a cold light like an ice surface. This is definitely a magic weapon, an ancient sacred weapon that is difficult to seal. The power of the Dragon Island seal can't completely suppress its divine power, which is enough to show that it is extraordinary and refined. Xiao Chen suddenly remembered that when the dead city appeared in the Sea of Aa Bones that day, ancient sacred artifacts such as the Buddha's body, the horn of the ancestral dragon, the black iron seal, and the brass gossip had all attacked the sacred monument. And there is another sacred weapon in it, which is the golden divine halberd. This is an ancient sacred artifact that can be compared with the Buddha's body and the horn of the ancestor dragon. It dares to bombard the sacred tablet that seals Longdao. It was such a coincidence that Xiao Chen was very excited when he found this golden halberd. If he could control this divine halberd, he might be able to use it to completely suppress the devil. However, in just a moment, Xiao Chen's excited mood calmed down. Several senior figures lost their lives here, and they couldn't get the magic weapon. Can he, a master of the younger generation, do it? I advise you to stay away from here for the last time. The devil's voice came from not far away, saying, don't make up its mind. It used to be buried deep under the broken mountain. If you accidentally touch its murderous aura, it will attract murder. After the disaster of the dead city, it reappeared in the world. If you go 10 steps forward, you will definitely not be spared. The few corpses you saw before are examples. The golden murderous aura will follow you everywhere until you are killed. Xiao Chen has taboos in his heart. He does not doubt the words of the devil. If it is really easy to get this sacred artifact, the devil must have done it himself. Just when he was about to call Kiki back, who knew that the little guy had already fallen into a state of obsession, looking at the shining golden halberd, its eyes were full of little stars, and it was dancing happily. Faint. This little guy actually likes this big killer. KK, come back quickly. Xiao Chen's call was one step late after all. KK had already taken action, turned into a white light and rushed forward. It wanted to take away the divine halberd. In an instant the devil surged up a mist and disappeared, because he knew what was going to happen next. Xiao Chen was in a hurry with the 3 skeletons, but there was nothing he could do. The dazzling golden light shot up into the sky, and then swept towards KK and Xiao Chen. The fierce murderous aura made people tremble from the soul. The little snow-white beast seemed to wake up at this time, knowing that it had caused a catastrophe, cast the strongest confinement technique, and rushed back like lightning. The light curtain wrapped Xiao Chen and the 3 skeletons. At the same time, the fierce golden light blade tore apart like a huge lightning that pierced the world. Xiao Chen's heart was completely cold, and he closed his eyes. And KK also seemed to know that she had caused a catastrophe, so she yelled a few times in annoyance. At the same time, it tried its best to strengthen the confinement technique it can display to the strongest state. The golden divine halberd is an ancient sacred weapon, which can be compared with the Buddha's body. It is conceivable how fierce and unparalleled the power it emits. Although the dragon's supernatural power controlled by the little snow-white beast is unfathomable, it is still a young beast after all, and it cannot be resisted at all. The dazzling golden light tore through the light curtain in an instant, and fell towards the little beast and Xiao Chen. At this last moment, the little beast blinked its big eyes innocently, and looked at Xiao Chen with some frustration, as if it really had nothing to do with it. Xiao Chen was speechless for a while, never expecting such a result. At the most critical juncture, the sharp golden light blades did not hit them, and the little beast's treasure tree had burst out with colorful rays of light, and all the golden light blades turned into waves of energy flow, converging towards the little holy tree like a sea of AA rivers. Hey! The little snow-white beast swept away the frustrated expression just now, and excitedly grabbed the precious tree, screaming and jumping, like a naughty child. All the sharp golden light blades were absorbed by the holy tree. Xiao Chen and the 3 skeletons had a false alarm. On a distant mountain peak, the devil opened his mouth and looked in this direction in amazement. KK, what are you doing? Stop! Xiao Chen, who had just calmed down, became nervous again. The snow-white little beast was so annoying, it actually put on the treasure tree hat and moved towards the golden halberd. This made the silent 3 skeletons all jump up, eager to have a decisive battle with the little beast. Yi! The little beast mumbled nonchalantly, and staggered forward. Xiao Chen's heart was in his throat. Can the holy tree still withstand the attack of the golden halberd this time? After all, this time the distance is much closer than last time. However, things went smoothly unexpectedly. The ancient holy artifact, the golden halberd, actually emitted a soft divine light, without any murderous aura, and the little beast slowly approached. Kiki happily turned her head and waved the little beast claws at Xiao Chen a few times, which made Xiao Chen and the 3 skeletons a little speechless. Near the golden divine halberd, the golden light waves were as viscous as a liquid. The little beast seemed to be stuck in the mud when it walked there, and it was struggling to move in. 7 steps, 6 steps, 5 steps, until the last step, the little snow-white beast finally came close, and happily grabbed the golden halberd. I really don't know why such a small beast likes this big killer. When KK hugged the divine halberd, which was much taller than Tai Tai, a violent vibration erupted, and the entire collapsed mountain range shook violently, as if a major earthquake had occurred. Now Xiao Chen is also going all out, and rushed forward quickly with the 3 skeletons. Anyway, it is impossible to escape, so it is better to rush forward directly. They soon joined Kiki. In the dazzling light, this rocky mountain range shook, the dazzling light shot straight into Xiaohan, and countless boulders collapsed and flew high into the sky. Even many cultivators who are far away from here have discovered this strange phenomenon, seeing the dazzling golden light in the sky in this area. The devil in the distance sighed and said to himself, I hope the holy tree is safe. KK sees how much trouble you have caused, we are really going to be doomed this time. Seeing KK's innocent look, Xiao Chen felt very helpless. In the sound of cracking, they felt as if they were flying through the clouds, as if they were flying. However, Kiki's confinement technique is still very effective, enveloping them inside, and the sacred tree on Kiki's head is also full of colorful lights, as if swallowing a violent energy flow. Yeah, KK looked at Xiao Chen innocently, as if to say that we are safe. The golden divine halberd was actually held in its arms, and the little snow-white beast danced wildly in excitement. The blazing divine light swept across the entire rocky mountain, and the sound of the ground cracking continued. Xiao Chen seized the opportunity and knocked the little beast hard to calm it down. Finally, with a deafening explosion, the light curtain group covering Xiao Chen and the others was shaken and flew out, far away from that area. KK held the golden halberd tightly and refused to let go. With a boom, they fell among the rocks hundreds of meters away, and they were protected by a light curtain. Xiao Chen and the others were not harmed, but Kiki cried out anxiously, because the golden halberd that was held by it was slowly fading, and then disappeared out of thin air. The devil on the mountain peak in the distance opened his mouth in surprise, he couldn't believe his eyes, those audacious guys were safe and sound, they didn't die. When the blazing golden light in this area completely dissipated, the devil rushed over like lightning, and he looked at Xiao Chen and the others speechlessly, which really shocked him, they all survived. Xiao Chen and the 3 skeletons had already calmed down, only KK screamed anxiously, it was particularly frustrated, the golden halberd disappeared unexpectedly. The devil didn't say anything for a long time, until he was silent for a long time before he said incredulously, you actually pulled out that ancient sacred artifact. Kiki wandered around fiercely around the devil, and the little snow-white beast suspected that the devil stole the divine halberd. Where is the golden halberd, why can't I feel its breath? The devil asked in surprise. Xiao Chen also couldn't feel the breath of the divine halberd at all, and the sacred weapon seemed to disappear out of thin air. How is this possible? It seems to have completely disappeared from Dragon Island. The devil was almost mad, what did the guys in front of him do, and lost a legendary ancient sacred artifact? With his unfathomable cultivation base, he can no longer sense the whereabouts of the golden divine halberd, which is enough to show that the holy object has really disappeared. In the end, KK almost went into a frenzy, pointing at the devil ferociously, asking him to return the halberd to it. The devil was completely speechless and finally could only run away silently. After searching for a full half a day in this rocky mountain, the little snow-white beast left here together with Xiao Chen annoyed, but Xiao Chen felt that the golden halberd hadn't really disappeared. He seemed to feel the breath of the divine halberd vaguely, but he couldn't grasp where it was. Xiao Chen still felt that feeling even more than a dozen miles away from there, which seemed to indicate that the divine halberd was with them. When telling the news to the little beast and comforting it, Kiki's big eyes brightened immediately, and she searched up, down, left, right, but still found nothing. In the end, the matter was over. There is only the last day left in the 7-day agreement, and on this day Xiao Chen learned that the pterosaur king has been subdued, that is to say, if he can contact the elders, the number of 9-headed dragon kings has already been gathered. For Xiao Chen, this is undoubtedly shocking news. Although most people don't know that the 9-headed dragon king has been subdued, they can't hide it for many days. Xiao Chen had to start thinking about countermeasures, maybe he could only lend the treasure tree to the devil. Otherwise, he will just watch other people leave, and he will die alone on Long Island. Seeing Lu Mu and Monk Yijun again, Xiao Chen talked with them for a long time, because he was going to make a deal with the devil soon. How was the pterosaur king subdued? You might not believe it if you tell me. Lu Mu handed him a piece of delicious preserved deer after grilling, and said, it was a huge holy dragon of light that gave the little dragon king to a cultivator named Lan Yu. What? The holy dragon of light gave its child to Lan Yu? Xiao Chen thought about many possibilities, but no matter what, he never expected this to happen. It seems that the pterosaur that fell on Dragon Island still maintains a trace of divinity, and has not been completely sealed by the power of Dragon Island. It is planning for its own children, knowing that human wisdom cannot be underestimated, and it should have valued Blue Rain's ability in the end. In fact, Xiao Chen still had a deep impression of that female cultivator, Lan Yu. She also once lured Xiao Chen to join the Blue Rain Alliance. Her gentle personality left a very good impression on Xiao Chen. In fact, Lan Yu was a real master. According to what Monk Yijun said, many cultivators who were hostile to Dugu's sword demon on Long Island were killed by him, especially after the disaster in the Dead City. Several cultivators who were almost able to compete with him even died in the Dead City. Among the young generation on Long Island, there are very few who can contend against Dugu's sword demon. And Schroeder, the founder of the Light Alliance, and Lan Yu, the founder of the Blue Rain Alliance, are currently the few people who can block the Dugu sword demon's continuous 9 sword slashes. Of course, Yijun, Xiao Chen and others are also on this list. However, blocking the 9 swords and winning are two different things. According to Monk Yijun's speculation, Dugu's sword demon has at least reached the 8th heaven realm. Except for the woman who controls the time god, no one is really his opponent. Xiao Chen said, Zhulong has already gathered, let's contact those elders as soon as possible. Perhaps, the people in the village of Little Fatty Niu Ren have almost contacted those elders. It's time to leave this prehistoric island. But I'm going to make a clean break with the devil. At the end of the month, I finally call for a monthly pass, thank you. Also, I was too busy during the Chinese New Year. I did not read the book review section, and the person I asked for did not take the time to manage it. Some good comments have not been refined. Chapter 116 Compromise. Chapter 113 Compromise. Xiao Chen didn't hide anything, he once explained everything to Lu Mu and Yijun. You have to come back early, otherwise once everyone knows that the 9-headed Dragon King has gathered, I'm afraid they will immediately start summoning the divine ship. Yes, Xiao Chen, don't forget that I have already trained Yan Qingcheng, a peerless beauty, into a perfect slave girl. If you don't come back soon, you will regret it in the future. The stunner Lu Ruyan smiled lightly. Yan Qingcheng, with the posture of sinking fish and wild goose, and the face of closed moon and shameful flower, turned her head directly to the side. She couldn't see emotions, anger, sorrow and joy clearly on her peerless face. Now that her skill was blocked, she didn't want to say any more useless words. It doesn't matter, even if Xiao Chen doesn't agree to give me the holy tree, I won't treat him badly, just let this woman stay with him. The devil appeared in the mountain forest with surging mist. This was the first time Lu Mu and the others saw him. Lu Ruyan's expression changed suddenly on the spot, and he quickly backed away, and the expressions of the others also changed drastically. It's the last day, haven't you thought about it yet? The devil looked at Xiao Chen. And Xiao Chen looked at KK who was sleeping soundly. Seeing its peaceful appearance, Xiao Chen sighed, this is the ration of the little snow-white beast, and he is about to leave Dragon Island. What will KK do after lending the holy tree to the devil? Why not take KK away? Xiao Chen was really in a difficult situation. It seems that you are still unable to make a decision. The devil retreated. Everyone passed the night peacefully, but just after dawn a gust of cloudy wind blew wildly over. At dawn, the devil visited again. Without any words, he wrapped Xiao Chen, the 3 skeletons, and Yan Qingcheng into the mist, and disappeared in a moment. It is impossible for Lu Mu, Monk Yijun and others to stop it. The gap between the two sides is too great. They believe that the devil is definitely not as simple as a demigod. He has not spent these endless years in vain. The cold wind was bitter. Xiao Chen and the others were led into the snow mountain by the devil. The sun had already risen at this moment. The snow-capped mountain was covered with silver, and it had a different kind of beauty against the backdrop of the morning glow. The little snow-white beast KK also woke up in a daze. It sadly took off the treasure tree hat, and handed it to Xiao Chen with some grievances. It can be seen that the little beast is very disappointed. Xiao Chen really can't bear it, but he really doesn't want to die on Dragon Island. You really made Kiki sad. Xiao Chen looked at the devil quietly and said, the underlying meaning is that you have offended the little snow-white beast, and it may seek revenge from you in the future. I can only borrow it for a year at most. It has a long growth path, and I will be rewarded generously. I will definitely repay the favor. But the 9-headed Dragon King has already gathered, the divine ship will be summoned, and we will leave here. How will you return the sacred tree to us? This is really a troublesome question. It is absolutely impossible for me to leave Dragon Island in a divine boat. The devil pondered for a moment, and said, then I will leave everyone here, and let them leave here after a year. Do you want me and KK to make so many enemies? They will definitely hate us when they know the truth. How about I kill them all? The devil said cruelly. This made Yan Qingcheng beside her feel a little cold. She has not spoken since she came to the snow mountain, but she still has some fear in her heart. After all, this is the legendary devil who has lived for endless years. Didn't you swear to be a good person? Why do you still want to kill? Xiao Chen didn't want to really make the devil so crazy. Let me think about it. The devil was silent for a moment and said, now I will give you some gifts first. Having said that, he waved his hand vigorously, and the dark mist brought them to the foot of a snow mountain. The devil opened an ice cave, which turned out to be a series of magnificent ice palaces, hidden in the belly of the snow mountain. There are many pearls inlaid in the multiple ice halls in the mountain belly, making the inside as bright as day. After walking into the 7 ice halls in succession, they came to a hall full of weapons. The devil said to Xiao Chen and the others, you can take whatever weapons you like. Although I dare not say they are rare treasures, some of them may be weapons used by ancient immortals. I collected them from the ancient battlefields on Long Island. The light in the ice palace was bright, and dozens of weapons seemed to be of extraordinary quality, but they all had one thing in common, that is, they were all damaged, and they were all some defective products. Kiki glanced listlessly, not in the mood to choose at all. It didn't really like weapons. Before, it valued the golden divine halberd because it valued and liked the aura emanating from that sacred weapon. The 3 skeletons were not polite. Each of them chose a long sword, which seemed to be ancient relics that had gone through countless years, but still radiated dazzling brilliance. Although they all lack the tip of the sword, but after some polishing, it may be an excellent weapon. And if it is really a weapon used by the ancient immortals as the devil said, then there is no need to repolish it at all, this is a rare and powerful weapon. Yan Qingcheng was not polite either, and chose 2 daggers, one red as blood and one green as emerald. They were forged from unknown materials, and they were very sharp. The 2 short swords seemed to be a pair, and they matched very well when placed together. The fly in the ointment was that the tips of the swords were also cut off, missing a small section. Xiao Chen also chose a weapon in the end, although he thought the body was the best weapon, but since the devil is so gracious, how can he really not take it? What he chose was an ink-colored broken knife. The jet black knife body had no edge or brilliance. It looked very simple, but it felt very heavy after holding it. It was less than half a meter long, but it weighed hundreds of catties. Obviously, it was by no means ordinary. Since it was a broken knife, it now looked more like a thick heavy sword, whether it was used as a knife to chop or swung as a sword. Good eyesight, the best weapons have been selected by you, especially the black broken knife that I personally admire the most. To be honest, I think it is far less ordinary than it looks. If it is not for repaying you, I will not give this broken knife away anyway. It could be seen that the devil was serious, and he was really reluctant to part with the black broken knife in Xiao Chen's hand. Seeing KK's listless look, the devil said, I have a special gift for you. Having said that, he led several people into the next ice palace. After entering here, the temperature dropped sharply. Even a cultivator like Xiao Chen felt a little unbearable, but Yan Qingcheng, whose skills were blocked, retreated directly. She couldn't bear it in this ice palace. This ice palace is very empty, only the ice platform in the central area enshrines a shimmering fetish. It is a piece of milky white divine jade the size of a human head, crystal clear, lingering in the sun, and the icy breath is emitted from it. After the listless Kiki saw it, her big eyes lit up immediately, she flew up with a whoosh, and hugged her tightly, not afraid of the cold at all. The devil explained, this is a piece of ice god jade, which is the condensed essence of the legendary snow veins. It is a rare spiritual thing in the world. It is much stronger than the snow lotus heart you got. But ordinary people are not blessed to accept it, after all, it is too cold. Before he could finish his words, KK took over the precious tree from Xiao Chen and placed it on the ice god jade. There was a crack, bang, bang, sound of shattering, and the roots of the little holy tree plunged into the ice god jade, causing it to crack quickly. The devil felt a pain in his heart. In his imagination, no matter how miraculous Kiki was, it would be impossible for Kiki to digest such a large piece of ice jade, and more than half of it would be left in the end. In the future, after he completely fades the dead energy in his body, he can slowly absorb the essence of the ice god jade. Now KK gave the sacred tree to him, and the devil knew that if he set a piece of ice jade, even a few more pieces would not be enough to absorb. Yi, the little snow-white beast kept whispering to the holy tree, as if saying goodbye to it, which made Xiao Chen feel ashamed. The rays of the sun were shining, the white mist was floating, and the sound of shattering continued. The brilliance on the ice god jade was like waves of water, continuously flowing towards the little holy tree. Leaving KK to guard the little holy tree, the devil brought Xiao Chen into another ice palace and talked with him. At first I didn't want to talk about it, but since you mentioned that the divine ship is about to set sail, I can tell you a secret. There is another, king ship, that can sail away from Dragon Island and break through the Forbidden Sea. In the future, I will leave Dragon Island on the king ship and go to the Longevity continent to return your sacred tree. I can swear in the name of the ancient king, if I don't return the sacred tree, I will die. King ship. Xiao Chen heard this secret for the first time, but he didn't fully believe it. I didn't lie to you, you can think about it, am I willing to stay here? The power of the gods is suppressed here. If I stay here forever, I will never be able to make a major breakthrough. I let the ancestral dragon god ship leave and ignore it. It must be because I know another way to leave here. Otherwise, how can I cut off my way out? As long as the holy tree helps me transform the dead energy in my body into vitality, I will have a way to summon the kingship to leave here. When you think about it, what the devil said really makes sense. The holy tree has been handed over to the devil for 10 days. Since then, the devil has never appeared again, and he has frozen himself in the belly of the snow mountain. And for the past 10 days, the little snow-white beast seemed to be out of spirits, listless all day long, which made Xiao Chen extremely ashamed, and wished he could rush back to the snow mountain to take back the sacred tree, but he didn't have that kind of ability. That day, Kiki really made a big fuss in the snow mountain, but the strength shown by the devil was too unfathomable, and it seemed that it had far surpassed the demigod realm. He never fought back once, and from the beginning to the end when Kiki attacked, he always dodged with absolute speed, and the confinement technique couldn't cover him at all. Xiao Chen is trying to find a way, he feels that Kiki cannot be without the company of the holy tree. Yeah, Kiki looked towards the direction of the dragon sacred mountain, with a sad expression on her face, as if she was sad because she lost the sacred tree left to her by her parents. KK, let's go to your little beast's lair, shall we? In a few days, we will leave here and go to a wider world. Seeing the state of the little snow-white beast, Xiao Chen tried his best to enlighten it, trying to make it happy. Kiki nodded vigorously. She used to be a lively little animal, but now she is too quiet, and the feeling of loss may not be able to get rid of for a long time. Now, the young cultivators on the island already know that the number of 9-headed dragon kings has been collected, and they are now contacting the older generation of cultivators. At present, the elders of Little Fatty Niu Ren have already got in touch with those people. If it weren't for those people's obsession with the legendary Zulong, they would have summoned the godship a long time ago. But the date of departure is getting closer and closer. Those people decided to make one last effort. If they can't find any trace of Zulong within half a month, they will leave Dragon Island right away. Many young cultivators scolded them for being greedy, but many people also joined the ranks of this search. After all, it was the legendary Zulong, the true king of dragons. It is unimaginable that the little Zulong's combat power will be so powerful after it grows up. Only the 9-headed dragon king can summon the divine ship, and it can summon the divine ship by itself, which is enough to explain its status and ability as the most respected dragon. The elders have already paid a heavy price in order to find the ancestral dragon. Nearly half of them were killed by the dragon clan because they entered the field of the wild dragon by mistake. However, everyone also discovered an astonishing fact: the dragon clan did not stop the little companion dragons from following the human beings, and seemed to know that they were about to leave Long Island. All kinds of signs prove that to break the seal of Dragon Island, it seems that the ancestor dragon and the accompanying dragon king really need to leave here. Xiao Chen bid farewell to Lu Mu, Monk Yijun and others. He didn't even let the 3 skeletons follow him. He came to the vicinity of the Dragon Clan Holy Mountain again. He and KK climbed to the section of the Shenmue. Chapter 117 Dragon. Xiao Chen's appearance made Xiao Chen feel very uncomfortable. The little snow-white beast whined for a while, then looked up at the sky. Its big eyes were filled with mist, as if calling for its parents. KK, don't be sad, one day you will see your parents again, and I will find a way to help you get the little holy tree back. When Xiao Chen and KK left here, they finally met a few legendary elder cultivators in the outskirts of the Dragon Sacred Mountain. Although there was still no trace of the ancestor dragon, the descendant of the Lion King dragon that haunted this area was subdued by them this time. The golden little dragon king is very mighty, his whole body is radiant, as if cast from gold. In terms of shape, he should be regarded as relatively outstanding among the little dragon kings. Xiao Chen didn't show up, and watched them leave from a distance. What surprised him was that not far away was a huge Lion King dragon, hiding its brass body in the forest, quietly watching the little dragon king being taken away. It did not stop it. But the eyes are full of reluctance, the expression of a mother watching her child go away, very humane and full of sadness. This shocked Xiao Chen very much. The Lion King dragon is taking the initiative to send the little dragon king away. Who said that their animal nature is more than divine? This is clearly very sober. Perhaps, after experiencing the catastrophe of the dead city, their muddled minds have cleared up. Apparently, the Dragon Clan knew that the only way to break the seal of Dragon Island was for the little dragon kings to leave here, so they had no choice but to rely on human power. I have also seen before that the barbarian dragons prevented the cultivators from rounding up the little dragon king, and brutally killed many cultivators. Maybe they were angry and unwilling at that time, and did not want their descendants, especially the legendary Dragon King, to be driven and enslaved. But now it seems that they have compromised. They seem to have realized that the little Dragon King will leave here sooner or later, and enter the longevity continent dominated by humans. Perhaps, it is safer to rely on a human being at present. In order for the little Dragon King to survive in safety in the future, these savage dragons who are father and mother compromised. Another companion Dragon King has been subdued. At present, there are already 10 Dragon Kings following the cultivator on Long Island, but the legendary ancestor dragon is still missing. There were bursts of young dragon roaring in the distance. Xiao Chen followed Keiki to find it, and saw the golden little dragon king fighting fiercely with a dark brown little dragon. Several senior cultivators watched the battle of the little dragon king silently, and then one of them, a gray-bearded old man, said, "Let's go on the road. There is no doubt that there will be more such battles, and the little dragon king needs a stronger opponent." He swung his right hand, and a burst of spiritual power pierced through the air, instantly knocking the dark brown little dragon into the air, and then the others took the golden little dragon king away. It's it again. It's that lonely little dragon with high fighting spirit, unyielding and always challenging everywhere. Xiao Chen was puzzled. Although this little dragon looked ordinary, it seemed to be really extraordinary. Why did it survive every fatal injury? Moreover, he challenged the Dragon King again and again, without fearing the coercion of the kings of the same clan. Its character is the trait of a real Dragon King, but its innate conditions are too bad. Xiao Chen was just about to take action, but at this moment he felt a tragic evil aura, which was a unique aura condensed from the slaughter of thousands of creatures. A huge cyan tyrannosaur flashed out from the opposite mountain forest, walking towards the seriously injured and dying little dragon step by step. Xiao Chen stopped KK who wanted to rush over, and observed quietly in the dark. Obviously, the Tyrannosaurus has been lurking nearby and has not moved before, which once again proves that the Dragon Clan seems to have compromised. It didn't stop those old masters from taking away the young Golden Dragon King. Perhaps like the Lion King dragon, it hoped that the little Dragon King could grow up safely on the longevity continent relying on those people. The Tyrannosaurus Rex is one of the most powerful dragon species, with divine light shining all over its body. It came to the weakened little dragon step by step. Xiao Chen didn't know what it wanted to do, held his breath, and watched quietly. Roar! A low dragon roar came out. The Tyrannosaurus lowered its huge head, and then stretched out its dragon tongue and began to lick the little dragon covered in scars. The Tyrannosaurus did not have any malice, on the contrary, it was a little spoiled. Could it be that the little dragon is his descendant? Xiao Chen was full of doubts. It has to be amazed that the saliva of Tyrannosaurus Rex, a powerful dragon species that makes gods tremble, is really a holy product for healing. After its licking, all the rolled wounds of the little dragon were healed, and there was a crystal brilliance circulating around the wound. The black-brown little dragon in a coma unconsciously let out a few whispers, as if feeling that his physical condition was getting better. The Tyrannosaurus retreated step by step, then took a giant step, stepped on the ground and made a rumbling sound, and left the area. Faced with this situation, Xiao Chen was puzzled. According to the form of the little dragon, it could not be a descendant of Tyrannosaurus. Could it be said that the Dragon Clan is very harmonious, and the adult dragon will take good care of the young dragons of other clans? When Xiao Chen walked up to this stubborn little dragon, it had already woken up, and this time it did not reject Xiao Chen anymore. He looked at Xiao Chen very calmly, but still a little aloof. Kiki seemed to be attracted by Xiaolong's state. She temporarily got rid of the disappointment of so many days, and tapped Xiaolong's head in a funny way, as if she was picking ripe melons. This made the weakened little dragon very dissatisfied, and glared at the little snow-white beast angrily. But KK didn't realize it at all, and was still groping on its head. "Don't look for it, it doesn't have horns." "Yeah," KK responded to Xiao Chen, pointing at a faintly invisible spot of light. Xiao Chen was taken aback when he looked closely. A dragon horn the size of a grain of rice had been drilled out, but it was too small, and there was no swelling around it. It was hard to imagine that it was about to grow horns. "It's really strange to grow horns," Xiao Chen said to himself. This should not be one of the twin horns, but a single horn, because it was born in the center of the little dragon's head. Xiao Chen left a small piece of snow lotus heart for the stubborn little dragon. He didn't expect it to accept it, but because he felt that the Tyrannosaurus seemed to be back, he had to express his attitude that he didn't want to hurt the little dragon. Unexpectedly, Xiaolong did not refuse this time, moved his body with great effort, and devoured the crystal-clear snow lotus heart among the grass. It was obvious that this lonely little dragon really didn't repel him very much anymore. With KK's consent, Xiao Chen broke off a slightly larger piece of snow lotus heart and gave it to it, then got up and went on the road again. It wasn't until he went far away that he turned his head to wait and see, and found that there was a golden light shining in that area, and it was actually the Lion King dragon. Half a month has passed, and the little ancestral dragon still hasn't shown a trace. Why didn't the existence of the legendary Xion appear on Dragon Island? The old masters were very frustrated. There were nearly 100 people of the older generation who actually entered Long Island, but in the end there were only a dozen or so people left. There are more than 1,000 cultivators of the younger generation who entered Long Island, but there are only more than 80 people left, which can be said to have suffered heavy casualties. The youths who entered Dragon Island can be regarded as masters among their peers, and almost all of them have stepped into the realm of transformation. Although it seems that youths in the realm of metamorphosis can be seen everywhere on Long Island, they are nothing at all. It seems that the word metamorphosis is nothing more than that. But you must know that these people are all carefully selected, otherwise, how could there be so many young people who have transformed themselves into one place? Strictly speaking, the youths who entered Dragon Island were not the top youth powerhouses on the longevity continent, but they were definitely among the top 10 among the junior masters of the major forces and sects. The top young masters of the major forces will definitely not be sent, that is their hope for the future, and it is impossible to send them to such a dangerous place. Of course, there are exceptions. Some organizations with weaker strength have sent their own number 1 young masters, but they are a minority after all. After several months of hardships on Long Island, this group of young masters can be said to have experienced an unforgettable tempering in their lives. In just a few months, almost everyone's strength has broken through again, which is due to the crisis of survival, forcing them to practice hard. If these living people return to the longevity continent, they will definitely become the top 5 in the young and middle-aged generation of their respective forces. What's more important is that they will work harder after this experience, and their future achievements will be limitless. Painful experiences and tribulations will become a valuable asset in their lives. In the last few days when he was about to leave, the 11th Dragon King was subdued by the Curse Master Schroeder. This young Dragon King was found at the seaside. It is the descendant of the 8-armed dragon. Originally, Schroeder wanted to call him the Silver Dragon King. After all, the evil Dragon King was not very elegant, but he was called away by everyone, so he followed the crowd. Xiao Chen was surprised when he heard the news. He once refined an evil dragon egg, but he did not expect that another evil dragon egg turned into a little Dragon King. So far there is no trace of the ancestral dragon. Xiao Chen once felt guilty and doubted, is the little ancestral dragon among the dragon eggs he refined? However, in the end he rejected the idea, the chances were too small. The scorching sun was in the sky, and the waves of heat brought the sea breeze mixed with the salty smell. The golden sand beach and the vast sea became one piece, and the whole was golden. After Long Island was sealed off, the originally blue sea, after several months of changes, has now turned into a golden sea. There are also winds, waves, and turbulent waves, but it is dead silent. There are no fish swimming in it, and no seabirds flying in the air. The verdant and green coconut grove on the coast is covered with shade, and the brown-yellow coconuts that have already ripened are clustered together, which is particularly attractive against the backdrop of green leaves. Xiao Chen, Lu Mu, Yi Jun, Lu Ruyan, Yan Qingcheng, etc. gathered in the coconut grove, and most of the cultivators on the island almost arrived, because tomorrow the little dragon kings will be invited to summon the legendary god ship. Xiao Chen, you are really safe and sound. The fat man Niu Ren walked over with the black dragon king with a silly smile. Now he is a descendant of the beast race with 3 beast souls. Although he is only in the 5th heaven of the mortal realm, his strength should not be underestimated. Xiao Chen, Yi Jun and others laughed and chatted with him. Fatty and his 20 clansmen in the village had already drank the blood mixed with the 9-headed dragon king, and the curse was completely lifted. Now they feel extremely refreshed, and finally have the opportunity to escape from this island. Up to now, almost everyone has relaxed, there is no more fighting, and all the cultivators are resting in the coconut grove by the sea, quietly waiting for the day of liberation. Monk Yijun leaned on the trunk of the coconut tree, stroked Jade Dragon King beside him, and said, I will redouble my hard work when I go back, and I must catch up with Dugu Sword Demon. Lu Ruyan smiled coquettishly and said, Master, don't work too hard. Anyway, you can pass through your intestines with wine and meat. After I go back, I will introduce you to a good sister. Lu Mu nodded seriously when he heard the words, it's a good idea. Although senior brother Yijun seems to be in a peaceful state of mind, he still feels a little depressed in his heart. We really should help him. Hee, I will introduce one for you if Lu Mu wants it or not. We have the same surname. The older sister will help you choose one. Forget it, I can't afford those sisters of yours. Lu Mu shook his head repeatedly. Could you introduce one to me? The little fat man Niu Ren said with a simple smile, I don't dislike it, just do as you do. Everyone laughed together. Die. Lu Ruyan punched him, and said, don't you dislike it? Just like me, are you saying that I am ordinary? Do you want this? The stunner Lu Ruyan pointed to Yan Qingcheng next to her. Forget it, my grandma said that such a woman is not suitable to be a wife. The little fat man had a simple and honest look on his face. Everyone smiled again, and Lu Ruyan was trembling with laughter, her sexy red lips parted slightly and said, she is really not suitable for being a wife, but only for being a lover, do you dare to have it? Is there anything I dare not ask for? The little fat man said nonchalantly. You. Yan Qingcheng glared at Lu Ruyan and the little fat man angrily. You can't do it even if you dare, hee. Lu Ruyan gave the little fat man a blank look, and said, haven't you heard that brothers and wives can't be bullied? What, brothers and wives are welcome. ... About to leave Long Island, almost everyone relaxed their minds, and many places by the sea were full of laughter. Chapter 118 The Identity of the Mysterious Woman. Chapter 115 The Identity of the Mysterious Woman. Suddenly, a handsome blonde man like the scorching sun came into Xiao Chen's eyes. He walked through the coconut groves and came to this area. It turned out to be Rand the Curse. Xiao Chen didn't hold back his smile, sat on the spot without moving, looked at him, and said, you really have a bit of courage, you dare to come in front of me, do you want to challenge me? Lu Mu, Niu Ren, Yijun, and Lu Ruyan were still talking and laughing happily, and they didn't feel nervous because of Rand's arrival. This was due to their self-confidence and strength. Sitting together like this, even if Dugu Sword Demon came, he might not be able to please him. Well, I apologize for my frivolity, but I don't need to apologize at all, because you have taught me the most profound and painful lesson. You must know that in that battle, you were ruthless and broke more than 30 bones in me. Rand, a handsome blonde man, did not feel too embarrassed when he said these words. He sat calmly opposite Xiao Chen, with a pair of blue eyes shining with sincerity, and said, a few days ago, I was still trying to seek revenge from you. But today I suddenly figured it out. Our grievances are too worthless. We are about to leave Dragon Island, and there is nothing more exciting and joyful than living, so let us forget all the unpleasant things we have experienced when we get out of Dragon Island. Isn't it because I am too arrogant and conceited? As a result, I have already suffered enough, and I don't want to make any more mistakes. I am here today to settle the past grievances with you, eh? Xiao Chen said, if it is not forced, who would want to face you with life and death? If you are sincere, I will accept your suggestion to resolve this grievance. A smile appeared on Lu Mu's sickly face, and he said, Rand, I've heard of you, but I didn't value you before. In my knowledge, I can take your head within 20 strokes. However, seeing you have such a broad mind today, I have to get to know you again. It's rare that you can pick it up and put it down, which shows that you have made a breakthrough in your state of mind. In this way, I have the opportunity to become friends with such a peerless handsome man instead of enemies. Lu Ruyan smiled charmingly. Rand nodded and smiled. I used to desperately think that I would be trapped on Dragon Island forever, and suddenly I was pleasantly surprised to learn that I could leave here. It really had a great impact on my state of mind. Many things have been opened and seen broadly. Lu Mu, you may have misread it. Rand not only has a breakthrough in his state of mind, but his cultivation level may also improve by leaps and bounds in the next few years. He is a demigod who is gradually awakening, a descendant of a god. The only little secret was revealed by you. Rand couldn't deny it. A born demigod. Rand, I adore you. Lu Ruyan's winking eyes sparkled, seductive. Really, I don't have to worry about my opponent now, and I will definitely go to compete with you often in the future. Monk Yijun also said in surprise. Hey, let me take a good look at what the demigod looks like. The little fat man walked up to him and looked at Rand seriously, which made everyone laugh. Niu Ren can liven up the atmosphere. During this process, the peerless Yan Qingcheng remained silent, without saying a word, not even looking at Rand. Brother Xiao, I have an unfeeling request. Can you restore the freedom of junior sister Yan Qingcheng? We are about to leave Long Island, so let the unhappiness of the past go with the wind. Rand looked at Xiao Chen seriously. I didn't intend to be hostile to her before, but when things got here, it's impossible to let her go. Xiao Chen rebuffed, do you believe that I can resolve the enmity with her? Ask her if she believes it. In fact, Xiao Chen was in a bit of a dilemma about how Yan Qingcheng was handled. Many people on Dragon Island knew that he had captured Yan Qingcheng. It would be fine if everyone was trapped on Dragon Island, but everyone was about to enter the Longevity Continent, and the Immortal lineage was a huge force. If, after entering the Longevity Continent, the news of Yan Qingcheng being captured by him spreads, it may cause great trouble for him. Kill it now, that will cause more trouble later on. This is the reason why he has never dared to act rashly. In the past few days, Lu Ruyan and Lu Mu have helped Xiao Chen come up with an idea, that is to create a fait accompli and marry Yan Qingcheng to resolve future dangers. In their words, you, Xiao Chen, became the son-in-law of the Immortal line, and you didn't treat Yan Qingcheng as a slave. Will the Immortal line still trouble you? Of course, the premise is that Yan Qingcheng must show his willingness to the outside world. However, how could it be possible for Yan Qingcheng to cooperate like this? Of course, there is another fatal point. Xiao Chen once killed Wang Zifeng and Lu Yu, two young masters of the undead line. Although it was not publicized, there was a key person who knew the inside story, and that was Zhao Liner. At the beginning, she was the one who passed the news to Yan Qingcheng. Things would go very badly if she didn't keep her tongue shut. Just when Xiao Chen was thinking of Zhao Liner, she really appeared, actually walked into the coconut grove, and the little Pegasus horse, whose whole body was as white as jade, followed her far away, unwilling to approach the crowd, and looked here timidly. Xiao Chen almost couldn't believe his eyes, it was so extraordinary that the magnificent royal maiden dared to appear in front of him. The grievances between them can be summed up in terms of life and death. At the beginning, it was really life and death. Xiao Chentang stood up. If it wasn't for Zhao Liner, he would not have entered this world, and it was difficult to keep calm in his heart. He said coldly, "How dare you appear here?" The overwhelmed royal maiden looked cold and said, "I'm here to settle grievances with you." Not only Xiao Chen was stunned, but the people beside him were also a little bit tongue-tied. What is it today? How come to resolve the grievances? Rand can be forgiven. After all, it was just because of arrogance and conceit that he fought fiercely with Xiao Chen. But Zhao Liner and Xiao Chen have always been life and death enemies. Can this kind of resentment be resolved? And her demeanor doesn't seem to be willing. Even Rand felt a little unbelievable. Although he was the first to come, their natures were completely different after all. "Are you resolving grievances with me?" Xiao Chen wanted to laugh, but he didn't. "Please come with me to meet someone." After saying this, Zhao Liner ignored Xiao Chen and walked towards the beach. Standing quietly there was a graceful and tall figure, looking aloof and out of the world. Beside her is a purple young dragon. They are looking at the golden sea. It is the woman who understands the laws of time, but at this moment her body is not surrounded by colorful clouds. Just because their backs were facing the direction of the coconut forest, everyone still couldn't see his face clearly. It wasn't a conspiracy trap. Everyone didn't follow. Xiao Chen strode towards the beach. At this time, KK rubbed her big hazy eyes, woke up from sleep, looked at the little unicorn that was as bright as jade in front, its big eyes lit up immediately, flew over with a whoosh, and landed on the back of the little Pegasus. Like a frightened little rabbit, the little unicorn wanted to fly away, but found that no matter what it could not get rid of Kiki on its back. It turned its head aggrieved, and when it saw Kiki's appearance, it calmed down from fear and looked at this naughty little beast curiously. The two cute little guys looked at each other, looking very interesting. Xiao Chen followed Zhao Lin'er to the Golden Sea step by step. He finally saw the face of the mysterious woman clearly. He was stunned for a moment. How could it be her? It is difficult to describe its unparalleled appearance in the posture of sinking fish and falling wild geese, it is difficult to describe its beauty in the appearance of closed moon and shameful flowers, and it is difficult to describe its stunning beauty in the beauty of the city and the country. The wisdom of Zhang Tiandi makes the whole person look ethereal and remote. He is clearly standing in front of him, but he seems to be far away in the clouds. This is a real otherworldly and refined temperament. In fact, in terms of appearance, Zhao Lin'er and Yan Qingcheng already represented the most beautiful people in the world, and this person in front of her could not be more beautiful, but her unique temperament made her surpass the former two at once. She turned out to be Lan Nuo, a generation of proud goddess. It was she who shattered the void that brought Xiao Chen and Zhao Lin'er into this world. It's surprising, isn't it? Lan Nuo smiled slightly, like a beautiful rainbow blooming in the ice and snow, the brilliance was dazzling. It's really very unexpected. Xiao Chen answered truthfully. When the void was shattered that day, I saw you rushing in when I was walking forward. I wanted to stop you, but I found that there was no way to reverse it, so I had to let you follow. I didn't want to, but you became enemies. We all come from the world. Xiao Chen has great admiration for this Tianjiao goddess. This is the only strong man who breaks through the void again after a long period of silence in the human world, and she is such a magnificent woman who crowns the world with beauty. She has great respect and admiration for her. He said, I didn't want to be an enemy of her. It can be said that today's results are all caused by her. It's not that I'm refusing. That's the fact. HMPH, if you didn't kill my sister-in-law, how could I do this? Zhao Lin'er's beautiful face was full of anger. If it wasn't for your subordinates to bully others and surround and kill me, how could I make a move? In order to protect myself, how could I show mercy to the enemy? Xiao Chen confronted. Okay, both of you don't mention the past. Tianjiao goddess Lan Nuo smiled slightly. I just want to ask you, I intend to reconcile for you, if you are willing. After a while of silence, both of them nodded silently. They both respect Lan Nuo very much. Okay, since you are willing, please forget all the unhappiness in the past, and never be an enemy again, are you willing to swear? Lan Nuo is really helping them resolve it. The two finally vowed not to be enemies anymore. This result made both of them very emotional, and they would never have thought of it before. However, no longer being enemies does not mean that the two will be friendly to each other, and it is even more impossible to talk about getting close. Xiao Chen was full of doubts about Lan Nuo's cultivation base falling to such a level. You must know that this is a goddess who can shatter the void, and she can only suppress Dugu Sword Demon. But after listening to Lan Nuo's brief statement, he immediately understood. When Lan Nuo shattered the void, he had already reached the legendary nirvana state. Reaching this state, there will be neither birth nor death, both body and mind are on the verge of extinction, wandering between life and death, and comprehending the profound meaning of life and death. If one fully comprehends the secret of life and death, one step further is the realm of longevity, but if one stays here for a long time, one may never recover, body and spirit will be destroyed. At the same time, the cultivators in this realm, their cultivation bases are sometimes strong and weak, and they are indeterminate. When they are strong, they can even exert the strength of immortality. For practitioners, the state of nirvana is both a great opportunity and a great danger. Those who can overcome the mystery of life and death will break out of their cocoons and turn into butterflies, and live forever in the world. And those who have no understanding will be wiped out, which is the most cruel. Lan Nuo, who was in the realm of nirvana, shattered the void, and after entering Dragon Island, her strength was still weak and strong. She didn't know the secret of Dragon Island. All the god-level power was sealed here. When the vast and unpredictable sealed power rushed to her at first, she chose to resist. As a result, this proud goddess was almost sealed to death on the deserted island. Lan Nuo was severely injured on Dragon Island, and her cultivation was almost destroyed. However, she was talented and intelligent. After surviving a near death, she quickly discovered the nature of the problem and automatically sealed her cultivation. The influence of the vast and unpredictable sealing power on her became smaller and smaller. But even so, the power of the seal suppressed her cultivation to the lowest point of the fluctuation range of the nirvana realm. We must know that practitioners in the realm of nirvana can be compared to those who live forever when they are strong, and they are not as good as practitioners in the realm of knowledge and storage when they are weak. The lowest point of this range of fluctuations is close to the realm of knowing Tibet. And it was difficult for her to recover from the severe trauma she suffered. Chapter 119 Summoning the Divine Ship. Chapter 116 Summoning the Divine Ship. It turned out to be like this. Xiao Chen was very worried about Lan Nuo. Don't worry about me. If you leave here, I believe I will enter the realm of immortality in a short time. Lan Nuo smiled confidently, like the spring breeze blowing willows, giving people a warm feeling. Xiao Chen did not expect that the grievance with Zhao Linner was resolved in this way, but both parties involved were not very willing in their hearts, but they were unwilling to go against Lan Nuo's good intentions. Xiao Chen walked towards the coconut grove, but his mind was full of the figure of Lan Nuo. Such a goddess of Tianzhou was admired by him. If you can marry such a woman, with her gentle character, kind heart, and intelligent talents, anyone will be moved. But he quickly let himself dispel this idea. How could he have such an idea? However, soon he had this idea again. How could he not have such an idea? I am afraid that everyone will have a yearning for such a strange woman. Xiao Chen couldn't help but think of various legends about Lan Nuo. Lan Nuo is a legendary figure in Yanwang Kyushu. She has been famous in the world for many years. However, it was also in that year that Lan Nuo practiced the legendary Shen Yin, and his cultivation base was half useless, and his body became weaker and weaker day by day. Afterwards, Lan Nuo resolutely made a decision to freeze himself in the snow valley. A miracle happened to Lan Nuo. 13 years later, she walked out of the ice cave with infinite vitality. Her face was as beautiful as before, and her peerless beauty did not leave any trace of time. For her, 13 years seemed like a snap of the fingers. Frozen for 13 years, the years are merciful, and the beauty is not old. Back in the coconut grove, looking back inadvertently, Xiao Chen saw Lan Nuo, Zhao Linner, and Ling Shi Lan Yu coming together, and at the same time, there was a green-haired young man not far from them. Xiao Chen was surprised for a while. Isn't that the flesh and blood body transformed from the old tree man in the Tree Man Valley? Could it be that he also intends to leave Long Island? That is definitely a strong man who is close to a demigod. The sunset glow reddens the sky, and the golden sea undulates vastly. There are many cultivators near the beach, and almost all of them have rushed here. Kiki sat on the back of the little Pegasus, galloping back and forth on the golden beach, and faced the young companion dragon kings without fear. With the support of Kiki's magical confinement technique, the little unicorn became more courageous and jumped around the evil dragon king, pterosaur king and so on. Kiki even left her own footprints on several dragon kings. Zhao Linner was very annoyed that her beloved little Pegasus was actually being ridden by that man's little beast, which made her a little unhappy, but seeing the cute appearance of the snow-white little beast, she really couldn't get angry. Ah! A loud roar shook the golden sea, and a small golden dragon ran to the sea, and behind it were 3 young dragon kings. Everyone on the edge of the island knew that the master of the older generation had arrived, and this was the companion dragon king they subdued. Following the roar of the little golden dragon king, the other dragon kings also became agitated, and all rushed to the beach. These dragon kings gathered together, and immediately burst out with astonishing fighting intent. They actually wanted to fight decisively. This is not a good sign. Their respective masters rushed over and forcibly separated them, otherwise it would be a tragedy. In the end, the 11 little dragon kings seemed to compromise, and they did not attack each other, walking up and down on the beach peacefully. This is a rare picture. After all, there are more than a dozen companion dragon kings. It is not bad to see one of the legendary ones, but now all the dragons are gathered. Perhaps, I feel nothing now, but after decades or hundreds of years, future generations will be amazed. Because at that time, the little dragon king had grown into a powerful existence that even the gods feared, and these powerful dragon kings once gathered together on a beach. The people at the scene may not have such an idea now, but there is no doubt that their descendants will use these as a kind of talk. Their ancestors have witnessed such a scene. Of course, there will definitely be another little beast to talk about. Kiki had a great time playing on the beach. Xiao Chen let it go. The little snow-white beast finally got rid of the disappointment. He didn't want to destroy it. However, when the 4-headed little dragon king of the Elder Master arrived, KK began to make people look away again. It turned into a white light and stepped on the 4 dragon kings one by one, as if it wanted to show people that it had left footprints on the 11 dragon kings, and it seemed to want to leave a legend that the little beast is respected for future generations. The 4 new little dragon kings were furious, while the 7 little dragon kings in the distance were a little gloating. They had all experienced this kind of battle, and they had all been provoked by that nasty little beast, even the flying pterodactyl king was no exception. As the night fell, the sky was dotted with stars, and the sea breeze was so gentle at night, but it was difficult for everyone to sleep, because tomorrow they would bid farewell to Long Island. Xiao Chen lay on his back in the coconut grove, and said to himself, I hope everything goes well. The little fat man Niu Ren said, Don't worry, those old guys have already arrived, and they won't delay any longer. In fact, they are a little scared, because near the snow-capped mountain where the devil lives in seclusion, it is very cloudy these days, and they are also afraid that something will happen. Devil, oh, Xiao Chen talked, always feeling sorry for KK. It was a sleepless night, but also a night full of expectations. In the early morning, when the first rays of sunrise fell on the beach, almost everyone opened their eyes. There were crowds of people on the golden beach, and everyone walked out of the coconut grove. Many people carry large bags of coconuts with rattan nets and keep them as drinking water at sea. A total of more than 100 people stood on the beach, and in front of them were 11 young dragon kings, all of whom were miraculous and extraordinary. The Purple Dragon King, Black Dragon King, Azure Dragon King, Jade Dragon King, Red Dragon King, Winged Dragon King, Evil Dragon King, etc. lined up, looking up to the sky and screaming. The deafening howling sound formed a strange force, reverberating fiercely in the sky, and rushed towards the distant sea. All cultivators had to temporarily close their sense of hearing, otherwise no one could withstand the terrifying sound waves of the Dragon King Qi Xiao, even though they were still very young. Like the thunder of the 9 heavens roaring above the golden sea, like the roar of the 9 nether demons piercing through the 10 lands and rushing to the surface, the dull roar of the Dragon King spread infinitely far in the vast sky and earth, making the golden sea roar violently. Strange fluctuations fluctuate in this world, making people believe that the legend of Kowloon summoning the godship must be true, otherwise it would not be so miraculous. There seems to be an incomparably vast and long-lasting atmosphere in the sky and earth, as if there is an unknown mysterious force sending some kind of message to the distance. Roar! The Dragon King roared continuously. The entire Dragon Island was trembling slightly. The Dragon King's call seemed to cut through time and space, spreading their will. Amidst the deafening roar of the Dragon King, suddenly there was an unharmonious sound. Yi! The little snow-white beast had already run to the front of the 11 Dragon Kings lined up at some point, and vaguely became a leading figure. It actually looks like it, and it is very devout to follow along with the sky and howl, but its voice is too immature, like a baby learning to speak. However, what is extremely shocking is that the voice of the little snow-white beast clearly echoed between the heaven and the earth, and was not suppressed by the voices of the 11 Dragon Kings. Everyone wanted to stop it, but at this moment, in the endless golden sea, there was a huge roar of the dragon, just like the grand sound of heaven from ancient times, which made people tremble from the soul. A huge dragon boat bursting with colorful light rides the wind and waves, and appears out of thin air on the golden sea level, as if it really came from time and space in ancient times. Many people were so excited that their eyes filled with tears. The huge divine ship was as majestic as a hill, like a real ancestral dragon, piercing through the taboo sea and approaching here. It is indeed a huge divine ship in the shape of an ancestral dragon, with colorful rays of light shining, illuminating the entire sea of AA taboos. The thousands of miles of sea area fluctuated violently because of its appearance, but the divine ship was driving smoothly without shaking at all. The legend is true, when the 9 kings gather, they can summon the divine ship made of the bones of the ancestral dragon and the sacred wood, and they can lead everyone across the terrifying sea of AA taboos and leave Dragon Island. 11 young companion dragon kings had stopped roaring, and KK ran to Xiao Chen's side. But at this moment, an even more earth-shattering dragon roar came from behind everyone. There are countless huge dragon shadows in the coconut grove, such as the blue tyrannosaur, the golden lion king dragon, the blue sword dragon, the purple brontosaurus. Many wild dragons gathered here, and their fierce evil spirit rushed straight to Xiaohan, and the huge dragon shadow occupied the entire coconut forest on the beach. Everyone is indifferent. What do these fierce dragons want to do? Why are they all gathered here? Do they want to kill everyone? However, what made people feel a little more at ease was that all the savage dragons that looked a little scary didn't come any closer, and they only roared and watched in the coconut forest area. The 11 young dragon kings also let out howls, and rushed towards the coconut grove quickly, full of reluctance and sadness. In an instant everyone understood that those huge wild dragons were seeing off the little dragon kings. 11 little dragon kings rushed into the group of dragons, making mournful low cries, as if they were extremely attached and nostalgic for the dragons. The roar of the huge wild dragon is also full of sadness, full of sincere feelings of reluctance. It's getting closer, the legendary ancestral dragon god ship has finally docked, and a rainbow of colorful light turns into a rainbow bridge, leading from the god ship to the shore. Chapter 120 Change. Chapter 117. Niu Ren's grandma shouted loudly. Everyone get on the boat along the Hongqiao, and don't try to fly in the air, because both the sea and the air are full of the power of conferring gods. Without the protection of the colorful lights of the god boat, you will definitely be smashed to pieces immediately. No one dared to joke about their lives, and everyone stepped on the divine boat in an orderly manner. At this time, the 11 young dragon kings and the wild dragons finally finished their farewell, and all rushed towards the divine ship with a mournful roar. When the young dragon king boarded the divine ship, the huge divine ship shone with colorful lights immediately trembled, and it was about to set sail. Don't delay, everyone should move faster. The people on the god boat shouted. Xiao Chen said to Lu Mu, Yi Jun and the others, let's go, it's time for us to board the boat. At this moment, Xiao Chen suddenly had a bad premonition, as if a huge deep cave was about to swallow him, so he dodged hastily. But it was still too late after all, he didn't even see the enemy clearly, because there was no one behind them. A huge picture scroll has already unfolded, covering him, Yan Qingcheng and the 3 skeletons, and a huge gap is opened in the air, swallowing them. Damn it, Xiao Chen couldn't help cursing, he was plotted against, but he didn't know who the enemy was, there was no one behind, and there were chaotic borders ahead. An inexplicable huge force pulled Xiao Chen and Yan Qingcheng, and he didn't know where to send them, and the broken big crack in the back was about to close. Xiao Chen tried his best to escape back, but found it difficult to succeed. KK was also beside him, the little snow-white beast roared angrily, and swung its 2 claws vigorously, several light curtains shot out, and several, swish, sounds seemed to involve several figures. There was a flash of light, and it was completely plunged into darkness. In this dead nothingness, time seemed to be stagnant. Xiao Chen knew that this seemed to be traveling through space. On the beach, Lu Mu and others exclaimed, and then became angry. If I'm not wrong, someone used space scrolls to calculate them. This is really annoying and hateful to the extreme. At this critical moment, teleport them to another place, clearly wanting to trap them on Dragon Island and never leave. Time waits for no one. Even though Lu Mu and Yi Jun were extremely angry, they searched around the seaside and found no trace of Xiao Chen, and at this time the divine ship was about to set sail, and they had to board the ship. After experiencing a wonderful feeling like time stopped, Xiao Chen felt a sudden light in front of his eyes. They passed through the dead space and appeared in the real world. There are endless primeval forests in front of your eyes, and the roar of wild beasts in your ears. Xiao Chen found that besides him, Yan Qingcheng and the 3 skeletons, there were 3 gray-haired old men beside him, and KK was pointing at them angrily with a small animal claw. KK, are they plotting against us? Xiao Chen asked. KK nodded vigorously. Xiao Chen was almost berserk, he didn't know a few people at all, but he was framed like this, he was almost out of anger. The 3 old men were also very shocked and angry. One of them shouted, how could this happen? Why did we come here? 10 miles teleportation, here is at least 10 miles away from the sea, we have no time to board the boat. Master, why do you want to kill me? Yan Qingcheng also shouted angrily. The old man who was called Master Uncle by Yan Qingcheng said angrily, you and this kid spread shame, what face do you have to live on, it's an extrajudicial favor to let you be trapped together on Long Island. But, I didn't expect, such a simple matter, how could we get involved? Originally thought that it would be simple and easy to slaughter the shame maker of the undead gate, but the old man never expected this to happen. He shouted at the other 2 in horror. You 2 are curse masters, don't you know the scroll? What kind of broken scroll is that? Don't say any more, maybe it's still too late to go quickly. The 2 of them had already taken the lead and wanted to rush towards the sea. Yan Qingcheng's uncle also rushed forward like a ghost, not caring about killing Xiao Chen and Yan Qingcheng. Yeah, Kiki waved the little beast's claws angrily, and the gorgeous light curtain instantly enveloped them, and then pulled them down abruptly. Kiki, ignore them, let's go quickly. After shouting these words, Xiao Chen rushed towards the beach. Yan Qingcheng and the 3 skeletons followed closely behind, and the 3 old men watched them leave in horror and anger, never expecting that it was the little beast that made them suffer the consequences. It wasn't until Kiki and the others completely disappeared that the 3 of them regained their freedom and rushed towards the seaside. After all, Xiao Chen still missed the divine ship. 10 miles away was not too far for a master like him. Although the way was full of forest obstacles, he quickly rushed to the seaside, bypassing the barriers of those wild dragons. He happened to see the divine ship slowly set sail and left the sea. It was only 7 or 8 meters away, but the colorful bridge connected to the shore had already been retracted, so he just missed it, because it was impossible for him to pass through the terrifying realm of forbidden gods. KK seemed to feel Xiao Chen's despair. The little snow-white beast tried its best to use the confinement technique, and was about to seal itself and Xiao Chen from crossing the distance, but Xiao Chen stopped it. He knew the little beast's ability, so far it doesn't have that strong supernatural power. Xiao Chen, Xiao Chen, ... Lu Mu, Yi Jun and others shouted regretfully from the divine ship shrouded in colorful rays of light, and Goddess Lan Nuo, Lu Rian, Little Fat Man Niu Ren, etc. were also full of expressions of regret. How did this happen? Who are those bastards? Lu Mu shouted angrily. Brother Xiao, I will never forget you. The Little Fat Man Niu Ren also shouted. Xiao Chen. Regarding this situation, Monk Yi Jun was helpless. As soon as the 11 companion dragon kings boarded the boat, the ancestral dragon divine boat set sail automatically, and it was impossible to reverse it. Live well. If I have the ability in the future, I will come to save you. Lan Nuo waved his hand lightly. This kind of promise may be considered false in the ears of others, but Xiao Chen knows that Lan Nuo really has the qualifications. He shouted loudly at Shenchuan, "Goodbye, goodbye, I will always remember you." There were also people calling Yan Qingcheng's name, but so what, she could only wave her hands wordlessly. Many people I knew and didn't know stood at the stern of the boat and waved towards the beach, including Lu Mu, Yi Jun, Lu Rian, Lan Nuo, Niu Ren, Rand, even Zhao Liner, and Kai Luo, the genius illusionist. At this time, Yan Qingcheng's uncle and 2 curse masters also rushed to the seashore, and they looked up to the sky and shouted in grief and anger, "How could this happen? How could this happen? Uncle Wang Hao, this is your own fault, harming others is also harming yourself." It would be impossible for Yan Qingcheng not to be annoyed. The only chance to leave Hongwanglongdao was ruined like this. Wang Hao just wanted to destroy the 2 people conveniently, but he didn't expect such a result, and he regretted it to the extreme. If he had known this, he would never have done so. The 2 old curse masters next to him beat their chests even more, and finally they looked at Xiao Chen and Yan Qingcheng together with fierce eyes. The big ship was sailing slowly, but everyone could still see everything here. In the distance, Lu Mu and others were worried about Xiao Chen and scolded the 3 old men. Dugu Sword Demon's regretful voice came. Xiao Chen, what a pity, I thought you would be a good opponent for me in a few years, what a pity. Xiao Chen said to KK, prison them. The snow-white little beast was already furious, and there was no way to be polite. The 7-color light curtain enveloped the 3 of them in an instant, without giving them any chance at all. Although the 3 of them are already masters in the realm of recognizing Tibet, they still cannot get rid of KK's confinement technique. KK, can I let my power enter the light curtain and kill them? Xiao Chen asked expectantly. If he couldn't kill these 3 people himself, it would be hard for him to get rid of the depression in his heart. The little snow-white beast nodded, indicating yes. Xiao Chen loudly shouted at the god ship that was gradually going away. Dugu Sword Demon, you have nothing to regret, and now I can let you see my profound art. He held the black broken knife in his hand, and then he slashed up. And Kiki incorporated all of them into the light curtain. Ah! There was a scream, and all the flesh and blood on the right arms of Wang Hao and the 2 curse masters were removed, leaving only bones. The Dugu Sword Demon in the distance could clearly see that it was definitely not a simple knife glow that cut off the flesh and blood, it was a force of ingenuity, and it was cut off by thousands of gorgeous knives. He was moved by it, and shouted, "Good trick, what's the name for that knife?" Kill God! Xiao Chen shouted loudly. The divine ship gradually went away, and the shouts of the people on board could no longer be heard clearly, and their shadows could not be seen clearly. The colorful divine ship gradually disappeared into the golden ocean. The 3 of Wang Hao were finally thrown into the sea of Aa Taboo. Even KK's light curtain couldn't stop that destructive force, and the 3 of them were shattered in an instant. It turned out to be such a result, a very speechless ending. Xiao Chen looked at Yan Qingcheng, and the 2 were silent for a while. What's scary on a deserted island is not that there are enemies, but that there are only 1 person left. Yan Qingcheng, are you still thinking about killing me? Xiao Chen looked at the descendant of immortality. It's because there are only 2 of us left, so I feel even more scared. Yan Qingcheng said bluntly. Xiao Chen was speechless for a while. The thoughts of the 2 of them were really different. He said with a chuckle, It seems that I was too upright before. If I treated you as a female slave earlier, maybe you would not feel terrible now. Well, now I am just a man, and you are just a woman. Let's talk about men and women. You, don't act foolishly, or I will commit suicide immediately. Yan Qingcheng's voice trembled a little. Xiao Chen laughed softly, and said, if you want to commit suicide, you can commit suicide, I will not stop you. Yan Qingcheng's graceful and delicate body kept retreating. Forced to stay on Long Island, Xiao Chen was really depressed at the beginning, but now he has adjusted his emotions, because he knows that there is still a king ship that can take him out of here, so he is still in the mood to tease Yan Qingcheng, saying, woman, what are you thinking? Am I so scary? The three skeletons looked at each other, and they followed Xiao Chen closely. Knowing that Xiao Chen was teasing her again, Yan Qingcheng turned her face away angrily. And Xiao Chen walked forward with KK, and said, little fierce beast, now we will live on Dragon Island again, until you get the little holy tree. When KK heard the words, little sacred tree, she immediately became elated, ignored the words, little fierce beast, ran around cheerfully, and then followed Xiao Chen to the snow mountain. Yan Qingcheng followed closely behind. Hey, woman, why do you always follow me? Aren't you afraid that something bad will happen? Stay away from me as soon as possible. Otherwise, you will be very dangerous. You have blocked most of my skills. If you don't follow you, what should I do? Are you waiting to feed the beast? Yan Qingcheng responded angrily. You want to kill me, but I have this person who is not very cruel, and I don't want to kill you, so I can only block your skill. Otherwise, why don't you commit suicide, so we won't be embarrassed? Yan Qingcheng was speechless for a while, feeling that the man in front of her was too hateful. It was clear that she was using her to adjust her emotions to buffer her depression. At present, it is impossible for Xiao Chen to kill Yan Qingcheng. The devil said that he seems to need a year to fade away, which means that if he wants to get KK's holy tree back, Xiao Chen will have to stay in Long Island for a year. If he was the only one who would suffocate to death and leave Yan Qingcheng behind, even if he was an enemy, he would no longer be so lonely. Xiao Chen, I'm warning you, don't think about me. Xiao Chen sneered, and said, is it useful if you warn me? Instead of warning, it's better to seduce me. Don't worry, we will have something to talk about in the long night on the isolated island, and you won't be disappointed. This kind of response was specious, and Yan Qingcheng was both worried and frightened, and of course more ashamed.